Chapter 593. Bloodline Pressure. Isn't this a magical power that only Dharma adepts have? How can a core forging cultivator have it? If I didn't know him well, I would have thought that the person cultivating in the cave was a top-level core forging cultivator. Guo Tianshan looked at Tianqin Laozu in disbelief. Tianqin Laozu smiled and said, I don't know about this either, but when this guy was on Jingzhi Island, he withstood the bloodline pressure of Uncle Master Tianxiang and walked all the way to the cave. Tianxiang Laozu didn't say anything. Guo Tianshan let out an "oh" and seemed to understand something. He didn't say anything else. At this time, inside the cave dwelling, Lu Ping's divine sense was closely observing the huge golden core in the Xanhe space. Just as the spiritual energy vortex outside the cave dwelling reached its limit, the huge amount of spiritual energy was refined by Lu Ping's North Sea wave listening scripture, and turned into pure and vast true essence. The true essence carried the huge amount of spirituality transformed from the myriad wonder dew, and the true essence turned into clouds of blue with a hint of purple that were swallowed by the golden core. The 6 strange flood dragons quickly hovered on the surface of the Jindan, and gradually connected from head to tail, forming a ring. In the center of the ring, a purple mist gradually grew, and then a long roar came. A strange flood dragon that looked like the 6 strange flood dragons whizzed out of the purple mist. The other 6 flood dragons seemed to be welcoming a new member as they circled around the 7th flood dragon. Long cries sounded one after another in Lu Ping's divine sense. Core forging 7th layer. Feeling the surging spiritual energy in his body like a long river, Lu Ping's heart was filled with joy. After all, these 6 years of hard work had not been in vain. He had finally reached the late core forging stage and was one step closer to becoming a Dharma adept. After refining the myriad wonder jade nectar, Lu Ping's cultivation base became abnormally stable after he advanced to the 7th layer core forging realm. There was no need for him to go into closed-door cultivation again. But just in case, Lu Ping didn't want to waste the opportunity to cultivate in the spirit vein on Tianling Mountain. So he cultivated in the cave dwelling for another year. After fusing with the Thousand Wonder Dew, Lu Ping's body had 2 direct effects. The first was the rapid recovery of his spiritual energy. Lu Ping's cultivation was pure and vigorous, especially after refining the Xinyuan heavy water. Although in battles between cultivators of the same level, Lu Ping often did not fear prolonged battles of attrition and siege. Once Lu Ping's spiritual energy was used up, it would take a long time to recover. After Lu Ping refined the Thousand Wonder Dew, this problem was greatly improved. The second most direct effect of refining the Thousand Wonder Dew on Lu Ping was the increase in his lifespan. The Thousand Wonder Dew itself was a high-grade spiritual item that contained a large amount of vitality. It was the main ingredient for refining high-quality longevity pills. It was also because of this that the Thousand Wonder Dew could reach the same value as a high-grade heaven-level spiritual item even though it was only a mid-grade heaven-level spiritual item. Originally, after a cultivator advanced to the core forging stage, they would enjoy a lifespan of 500 years. After advancing to the mid-grade core forging stage, their lifespan would increase by 100 years. After advancing to the late-grade core forging stage, their lifespan would increase by another 100 years, reaching 700 years. However, after Lu Ping refined 2 portions of 72 drops of the Thousand Wonder Dew and advanced to the late-grade core forging stage, his lifespan directly increased to 800 years. The limit of his lifespan was already the same as the lifespan of a Dharma adept. A longer lifespan usually meant a longer period of training and more opportunities to advance. In the world of cultivation, there had never been any mention of a longevity pill that could increase one's lifespan by more than 30 years. However, after refining 2 portions of the Thousand Wonder Dew, Lu Ping was able to increase his lifespan by 100 years. He did not know if anyone in the world of cultivation knew about this, but at the very least, it was not common knowledge in the world of cultivation. Lu Ping had secluded himself in Tianling Mountain for 7 years. When he came out, he found that Guo Tianshan Laozu was no longer on Tianling Mountain. Lu Ping used his divine will to explore the entire peak of Tianling Mountain. He found that other than a few caves that were used for seclusion, there were only 9 caves that belonged to the Dharma adepts of Laozu. This meant that although Guo Tianshan Laozu had become a Dharma adept, this news had obviously not spread out yet. At this time, Guo Tianshan was not on top of Tianling Mountain. This meant that he must be carrying the secret mission of Jinling. Lu Ping went to see his teacher Lu Tianling through the door of Chonghua Mansion. Ever since Tianling Laozu had taken charge of Jinling, although Jinling had yet to officially address the deacons of the sect as sect leader, Everyone in Jinling had already regarded him as the first-generation sect leader of Jinling. Lu Ping reported to his teacher about his experiences in the past few years. He also asked his teacher about some matters related to cultivation. Lu Ping's achievements made his teacher very satisfied. After Lu Ping finished reporting, Tianling Laozu waved his hand, and 2 jade scrolls immediately appeared in front of Lu Ping. He said, "These are 2 jade scrolls that record 2 spirit-nurturing treasures that are specially used for flying swords. One was obtained by my teacher from the Central Plains, and the other was obtained by my teacher in the name of the sect from Jade Sword Sect's Jade Sword Laozu. Your achievements in the future will be on par with Uncle Tianxiang. Since you are good at using swords, then a high-grade spirit-nurturing flying sword is indispensable. Take these 2 treasures, they will be of great help to you in the future." How could Lu Ping not know the value of these 2 spirit-nurturing treasures? Hearing this, he immediately beamed with joy and hurriedly thanked his teacher. Tianling Laozu waved his hand and said, "This is what you deserve. Among my disciples, in terms of future achievements, I am afraid that you will have the greatest future achievements. Chonghua and Xiaoyao branches are currently too powerful and have too much power in the sect. Otherwise, Mei Tianqin would not have taken the position of Elder of Law Enforcement as soon as she returned. It is just a division of power. This is the way of balance in the sect. Even if Uncle Tianxiang has become a great cultivator, this cannot be changed. Otherwise, in the long run, it is very easy to leave the root of the disaster of internal strife in the sect. Therefore, in the future when you have some achievements in cultivation, the sect is very likely to let you set up another branch. At least on the surface, you must weaken Chonghua and Xiaoyao branches to achieve a balance of power." Lu Ping was silent for a long time, then he frowned and said, "What should I do?" Tianling Laozu smiled and said, "This matter is not urgent. How old are you now? You just need to keep this matter in mind and be prepared for the future. But now, something has happened on Frost Island. Uncle Tianlu and Uncle Tianjiang are dealing with it. Your Uncle Tianshan has also secretly rushed over. In recent years, the situation in the North Sea has changed. The matter on Frost Island is just an excuse. It is time for everyone to show their fangs." Lu Ping immediately understood and asked, "Is the news of the medium-sized spirit mine on Frost Island leaked?" Tianling Laozu nodded and said, "The news of that spirit mine will be known sooner or later. It is just that the leak this time is a bit strange. However, the large-scale spirit mine on Frost Island is an extremely rare rich mine, and the ratio of top-grade spirit stones produced inside it is rare even among large-scale spirit mines. Our sect has occupied a medium-sized spirit mine, which is also an extremely high-quality mine, and the ratio of top-grade spirit stones produced is extremely high. When the cultivators of other sects know that our sect has occupied a medium-sized spirit mine, they can easily imagine that this spirit mine must also be a high-quality rich mine. Naturally, they are very dissatisfied." Lu Ping couldn't help but say, "Didn't Xianling sect also occupy a medium-sized spirit mine? Our sect's current strength far surpasses Xianling sect's, so why can't we?" The heavenly spirit ancestor said with a smile. The spirit mine of the giant spirit island was severely damaged by the demon clan back then. Although it can barely be considered as a medium-sized spirit mine, its output is extremely low among medium-sized spirit mines, and the proportion of superior-grade spirit stones produced is extremely low. It is far from comparable to the medium-sized spirit mine occupied by our sect. Moreover, our sect's strength has greatly increased, but senior uncle Tianxiang has become a great cultivator, and junior brother Tianshan has become a Dharma adept. Xianling sect has the support of the Crystal Palace and has also developed in recent years. Blue Sea sect has succeeded in merging and is eager to make a name for themselves in the North Sea. Water Mist Pavilion and Ocean Flame sect have always been in cahoots, and have always been like weeds that go with the wind. Therefore the sects still have their eyes on this spirit mine. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "It seems that the sect's importance is not the spirit mine, but because our sect has developed too quickly these years, the sects in the North Sea are panicking, and want to use the spirit stone mine on Frost Island to suppress our sect." Tianling Laozu nodded in satisfaction and said, "After the third-generation disciples returned from the East Sea this time, those who obtained the spirit items have already advanced to the late stage of the core forging realm before you. This time, the incident on Frost Island is the time when the third-generation disciples of the Jinling sect will officially participate in the affairs of the North Sea. Since you have also advanced to the late stage of the core forging realm, you should also go to Frost Island and see how the true high-level cultivators of the North Sea's cultivation world maneuver, so that you can support the Jinling sect in the future." Lu Ping nodded and said, "This disciple will remember. However, this disciple still has some things to prepare. Earlier, I had already sent Lu Qiner to find little junior's sister. Now this disciple will go see how the preparations are going. Tianling Laozu nodded and said, "Your little bird has become much more obedient. However, Xianxian has already followed her father to Huangli Island for seclusion. I have already arranged for your fourth senior sister, Xianjing, to take that little bird to handle your matters. She should still be at the Artifact Refinement Hall." Outside the Artifact Refinement Hall, after Tianjiang Laozu stood guard on Frost Island, all matters of the Artifact Refinement Hall were entrusted to the hands of Chen Lian's teacher, Sage Enigma Flame. By the time Lu Ping arrived, Wang Xianjing had already brought Lu Qiner back to Huangli Island. When Sage Enigma Flame saw Lu Ping's arrival and sensed the surging spiritual energy fluctuations coming from Lu Ping's body, the corners of his eyes twitched involuntarily. Next, he patted the crafting furnace before him, and a flying sword, which had been incinerated to a white-hot color, flew out from the furnace and shot towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping laughed. His right index finger pointed at the incoming flying sword, and a purplish-blue stream of primary energy shot out, freezing the flying sword in mid-air. A white mist immediately filled the entire crafting room. After the white mist dissipated, the white-hot flying sword's heat waves faded away and the golden-yellow fish-scaled flying sword reappeared before Lu Ping. Chapter 594. Sage Enigma Flame watched in surprise as Lu Ping easily stopped the golden scale sword in mid-air. Disheartened, he said, "It has only been a few years, yet your cultivation base has already reached this level. The old man used up 60% of his strength in that attack. And yet, you could so casually stop it. The old man is on the verge of stepping into the 9th level of the core forging realm." Lu Ping laughed and said, "This time, disciple has profited from a disaster." Lu Ping brandished the golden scale sword for a bit, his divine sense carefully inspecting the quality of the golden scale sword. On the blade of the golden scale sword, the 6th spiritual barrier shone brilliantly. Lu Ping revealed a look of joy and said, "Martial uncle's methods are truly experienced. Even now, that Qinlian fellow is still uncertain about carving the 6th spiritual barrier onto a magic treasure. If it weren't for that, this golden scale sword would have been given to him to upgrade." Sage Enigma Flame said, "It is not that the kid is incapable of condensing out the 6th barrier. However, he is still lacking by quite a bit. Given the quality of this golden scale sword, he had to smelt out several rare spiritual materials before he could barely succeed in condensing out the 6th barrier. If it were in his hands, the success rate would be even lower. However, there is basically no way for this sword to upgrade to a spiritual magic treasure in the future." Hearing that, Lu Ping was taken aback. The golden scale sword had been with him for the longest time. It was also his most commonly used magic treasure. To suddenly hear that the golden scale sword could no longer upgrade, Lu Ping could not stop himself from blurting out, "A pity." "A pity?" Seeing the reluctance on Lu Ping's face, Sage Enigma Flame said, "At its current grade, this golden scale sword is enough for you to use up to the 8th level of the core forging realm. You should try your best to find a suitable flying sword during this period of time. However, I can see that this flying sword of yours must have some background. It seems to be a life-bound magic treasure refined from a part of a Yao cultivator's fleshly body. If so, it is not impossible for you to upgrade this flying sword." Lu Ping grew spirited and said, "Martial uncle is right. This flying sword is a magic treasure I obtained from the Koi clan. This golden scale sword seems to be made from the scales of the Koi clan as well." Sage Enigma Flame nodded and said, "In that case, the life-bound magic treasures of Yao cultivators are different from the ones we forge using spiritual materials. To upgrade the magic treasure's quality, you will need to use the scales of high-level Koi clan cultivators and the Koi clan's secret technique to forge their life-bound magic treasures." After bidding farewell to Sage Enigma Flame, Lu Ping headed straight for Huangli Island. It had been a few years since he left, but the number of cultivators on Huangli Island had not increased. It remained at around 5,000. Most of them were at the mid and late blood condensation stage. However, there were also quite a number of core forging stage cultivators. The main reason for this was due to Huangli Island's limited size. After arriving at Huangli Island, Lu Ping spread out his divine sense and immediately noticed that Hu Lily had summoned Lu Qiner to her grotto mansion. Although Lu Qiner had long since grown impatient, she dared not act presumptuously before Lu Qiner. Thus, she obediently answered Lu Qiner's questions. Lu Ping's grotto mansion was protected by magic arrays. Naturally, it would not be easy for others to use their divine sense to infiltrate it. However, this grotto mansion was built by Lu Ping and Hu Lili after all. Naturally, the magic erase could not stop its owner, Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled and walked straight to the artifact forging shop that Qin Lian had set up on Huangli Island. At present, Qin Lian was quite famous in Jinling. As the youngest and most talented artifact forging master in the artifact forging hall, Qin Lian was also an influential figure amongst the third-generation disciples. Seeing Lu Ping return, Qin Lian put down what he was doing and personally came out to welcome him. When he saw Lu Ping, a puzzled look appeared on his face. Qin Lian was actually unable to sense any aura of cultivation from Lu Ping's body. After coming out from the artifact forging hall, Lu Ping utilized a secret technique to seal off his aura of cultivation in order to avoid unnecessary trouble. Those whose divine sense was weaker than Lu Ping's, even if they were at the late core forging stage, would not be able to sense Lu Ping's true cultivation base unless they possessed a special treasure. A strange look flashed across Qin Lian's face, and he immediately threw an iron seal and a dark blue flying sword over. Lu Ping reached out and caught the landslide seal and the water spirit sword. He carefully examined them with his divine sense and heard Qin Lian's introduction. The 2 psychic treasure restrictions of your landslide seal have been engraved. However, although the water spirit sword has an invisibility effect, its material quality is too low. Although I've been keeping an eye out for spiritual materials that can be used to enhance the water spirit sword's special quality, I've only managed to engrave 2 psychic treasure restrictions on it. If you want to engrave the 6th psychic treasure restriction, you'll need to find spiritual materials of higher quality that are suitable for the water spirit sword. Lu Ping grabbed a magic treasure in each hand and injected a bluish-purple spiritual essence into the 2 magic treasures, refining them in an instant. Qin Lian was stunned when he saw this. Lu Ping weighed the landslide seal in his hand and then slapped it into the core space. The water spirit sword in his other hand flashed a few sword flowers and then disappeared from Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping carefully felt it and then smiled with satisfaction. I haven't seen you for years and your refining skills are getting better and better. The landslide seal and the water spirit sword are different from ordinary psychic treasures, and it's very difficult to upgrade them. I didn't expect you to be able to upgrade them in such a short time. This time the sect sent a few urgent matters, so I had to use these magic treasures a little urgently. Thank you in advance. Qin Lian spread his hands and said, What are you thanking me for? I want to thank you for giving me 5 psychic treasure restrictions, especially the 3 invisible flying swords. It's obviously a complete set. This is a rare treasure. After Master heard about it, he immediately agreed to upgrade the golden scale sword to a top-grade psychic treasure. After saying goodbye to Qin Lian, Hu Lili already knew that Lu Ping had returned to Huangli Island and was already waiting in front of the cave residence. From afar, Lu Ping saw Hu Lili standing at the entrance of the cave residence with a smile as she watched him coming. He couldn't help but smile and said, How come you are so polite to me after not seeing me for several years? I've troubled the famous Taoist fox of Huangli Island to come out and welcome me. If this matter were to spread, I wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Although Huangli Island was built by Lu Ping, it had always been managed by Hu Lili. As the scale and fame of Huangli Island grew, more and more cultivators came to Huangli Island to explore the open sea. There were all kinds of cultivators mixed together, good and bad, but Hu Lili was able to manage everything on the island in an orderly manner, making Huangli Island develop steadily. This was not something that could be solved by the level of cultivation. Without extraordinary wisdom, means and communication skills, Huangli Island had long become a chaotic place. Even with Tianlin Laozu presiding over it, it couldn't be done. Over time, Hu Lili became more and more famous on Huangli Island. Many cultivators who came to Huangli Island even thought that Hu Lili was the guardian of Huangli Island. In addition, they had been dealing with her for a long time. In the process of trading various cultivation resources, they found that very few people could take advantage of her. Therefore, she got the elegant title of Taoist Fox. When Hu Lili heard Lu Ping's teasing, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but wander. She also smiled and said, This is not up to me. Little Qin, told me that you brought me a gift when you returned to Huangli Island. If I was late in welcoming you, the Water Sword Immortal would be unhappy and keep the gift a secret. Wouldn't that be a great loss for me? Lu Ping laughed heartily and said, I think you have been waiting for a long time. I heard that even Zhongjian and Ma Yu have started closed-door training in preparation to advance to the middle stage of the core forging realm. Qin Lian, Du Feng, and the others have already advanced successfully. However, there are advantages to advancing later. As the saying goes, sharpening one's axe will not delay the work of cutting firewood. Your foundation was not as solid as Zhongjian and Ma Yu's in the early years. These years, I deliberately let you slow down your cultivation speed in order to consolidate the results of your previous cultivation. This time the fire is almost there. Moreover, during this trip to the East Sea, I have gained a few more tricks in my hands. Even if my foundation is inferior to Qinlian and the others in the future, I believe that I can make up for it. After entering the cave, Lu Ping handed over the low-grade earth-rank dark wood that he had obtained from Lyra Laozu in exchange for the 1,000 sand copper in Hu Lily's hands. The dark wood suddenly sank in Hu Lily's hands. She was proficient in array formations, but her knowledge of heaven and earth spirit objects was far inferior to that of Lu Ping. Lu Ping explained, "This is dark wood, a low-grade earth-rank wood spirit object. The quality of this dark wood is good, and the quantity is also sufficient. It is suitable for you to smelt." Hu Lily said with some hesitation, "With my current strength, I am afraid that the smelting will fail." Lu Ping smiled and said, "Rest assured, this dark wood is the easiest to smelt among the spirit objects of the same grade. After it is smelted, it is famous for increasing the density of a cultivator's true essence. Although it is not comparable to a heaven-rank spirit object among the earth-rank spirit objects, it is the most suitable for you. Your life origin magic weapon is an array disc. This kind of magic weapon consumes the most true essence in a fight. Smelting the dark wood will allow you to use your life origin magic weapon for a longer time." There were nearly 9 small spirit veins on Huangli Island. Lu Ping buried the 2 small spirit gathering pearls he obtained from the Long Huai Tree's secret zone in the middle of the 9 spirit veins. After a year or two, the spirit veins would form and Huangli Island would have a mid-sized spirit vein. Lu Ping also gave 8 small spirit gathering pearls to Hu Lily, and instructed her to use these spirit gathering pearls as a guide to separate out some branches of the spirit vein on Huangli Island to build an immortal's cave. This would attract more cultivators to Huangli Island to cultivate, and increase the strength of Huangli Island. Once these cultivators settled down on Huangli Island, after a long time, they could be converted into Jinling's subordinate forces, and increase the strength of Jinling. Hu Lily took the spirit gathering pearls, thought for a moment and said, "Huangli Island will soon have a medium-sized spirit vein. This is undoubtedly a boost for Huangli Island, but in this way Huangli Island's size will become an obstacle to development. Moreover, after the medium-sized spirit vein is formed, we will need a spirit-gathering artifact to confine it. Otherwise, after a long time the spirit vein may slowly disappear." Lu Ping nodded and said, "I have already thought of this. I have already discussed it with Martial Uncle Guoxianshan. After a period of time, I will invite him to use the mountain-moving and sea-filling art again. This time, we will strive to expand Huangli Island into a small island. As for the spirit-gathering artifact, although it is only an ordinary spirit-gathering artifact, it is somewhat difficult to refine. However, I already have a plan for this matter, so you can rest assured." Chapter 595. When Frost Island had discovered the large spirit mine, the 10 great sects of the North Sea had swarmed over. Other than the large spirit mine at the center, the areas around Frost Island had all been divided up by the 10 great sections. Even after the small, medium and wandering cultivator forces of the North Sea had joined forces and forced the 10 great sects to give up 30% of the profits from the large spirit mine, other than the areas around the large spirit mine which were jointly managed by the sects of the North Sea, the other areas on Frost Island were still firmly in the hands of the various sections. Everyone knew that the birth of a large spirit mine was accompanied by many spirit materials, spirit ores, spirit veins and even spirit items. Therefore, after the 10 great sects had given up 30% of the profits from the large spirit mine, they did not give up any of the other areas. Among them, Jinling was the one who did the most exaggerated. After confirming the size of the spirit mine on Frost Island, Jinling was the first to start an enclosure movement on Frost Island. After that, all the other sects followed suit. Therefore, after Frost Island had been divided up, Jinling occupied the largest area among all the sections. Moreover, from the various cultivation resources that Jinling had discovered, it could be seen that Jinling's benefits were undoubtedly the greatest. However, compared to the production of the large spirit mine, these benefits were undoubtedly insignificant. Therefore, although all the sects were envious of Jinling's benefits, they could only secretly curse Jinling for acting so quickly. However, Jinling did not stop there. After dividing up the largest area of Frost Island, Jinling had also used formations to firmly control the entire area under his control. However, this formation was not a powerful defensive formation, otherwise Jinling would have revealed his intentions. Jinling used an extremely advanced warning formation. This formation did not have much defensive power, but very few cultivators could escape its detection. In these years, it was not that no cultivators had entered Jinling's area, but they would often be discovered by Jinling before they could go a few miles in. Then Jinling's core forging cultivators would punish and expel these cultivators. Due to the importance of the large spirit mine on Frost Island, all the sects would usually send important cultivators to guard Frost Island. While guarding against external enemies, they would also protect their own sect's rights. However, after the Frost Spirit Mine was on the right track, the Dharma adepts of each sect began to take turns to guard it. After all, no matter how important the Spirit Mine was, there was no need for a dozen Dharma adepts to guard it at the same time. However, Jinling was different. Lu Tianling Laozu set up his temporary cave abode on a spirit material mine that Jinling had discovered that was coveted by all the sections. He guarded it for several years. When Jinling set up a Dharma deacon, Lu Tianling prepared to become the first sect master of Jinling and temporarily handed over the responsibility of guarding to Sage Enigma Flame, the master forger of Jinling. Just when everyone thought that Jinling would no longer send any Dharma adepts to guard Frost Island, Tianjiang Laozu suddenly descended on Frost Island and began to guard Frost Island again. Sage Enigma Flame returned to the artifact forging hall. Jinling's abnormal actions finally aroused the suspicions of all the sections. For a time, the Jinling adepts guarding Frost Island immediately became busy. They were often sent out to chase away those who accidentally intruded into Jinling's territory. As the saying goes, one can only be a thief for 1,000 days, but there is no such thing as guarding against thieves for 1,000 days. After the sects failed several times in their investigations, even though Tianjiang Laozu crippled a few of their spies with the intention of warning the sects, in the end, someone still intruded and discovered the pulse-suppressing spirit-locking formation underground. What kind of treasure was in the territory Jinling occupied that was actually worth Jinling activating the pulse-suppressing spirit-locking formation? No wonder. No wonder Jinling had always guarded his territory so tightly. No wonder Jinling had never withdrawn his Dharma adepts after discovering the large spirit stone mine on Frost Island. Although the sects had guessed that Jinling had obtained some unexpected gains on Frost Island, they would never have guessed that the unexpected gains Jinling had obtained would actually be worth protecting with the pulse-suppressing spirit-locking formation. Just as the sects were secretly colluding and preparing to join hands to attack Jinling's territory and investigate what kind of treasure Jinling had discovered that was worth activating the pulse-suppressing spirit-locking formation, the newly merged Blue Sea sect suddenly received a shocking piece of news from Jinling's inner circle. The pulse-suppressing spirit-locking formation was actually protecting a mid-sized spirit stone mine. This time the sects were completely boiling. A mid-sized spirit stone mine. Before this, Xianling sect was the only sect in the entire North Sea that had once occupied a mid-sized spirit stone mine. Furthermore, it was the most barren mid-sized spirit stone mine that had been severely damaged by the demon race. Moreover, they had obtained the other half of the mine from Jinling through a game of chance. Even so, Xianling sect's barren spirit stone mine was still the envy of countless sects in the North Sea. Now, Jinling had also occupied a complete mid-sized spirit stone mine, and under the noses of the sects for dozens of years without outsiders knowing about it. For a time, the sects felt as if they had been played by Jinling. Judging from the ratio of high-grade ores produced in the large-sized spirit stone mine on Frost Island, the spirit stone mine Jinling had occupied was very likely to be a high-grade mine. This fact provoked the fragile nerves of the sects even more. For a time, the sects were filled with righteous indignation and demanded that Jinling hand over the mid-sized spirit stone mine that they had occupied. However, Jinling's reaction was also extremely fast. After discovering that the news of the spirit stone mine had been leaked, Jinling's Fornax Laozu had swiftly rushed to Frost Island from Heaven Spirit Mountain. Accompanying him were 8 late-stage core forging cultivators of the second generation led by spiritual master Jinling Guxianshan. Other than that, there were almost 20 third-generation disciples who had reached the core forging stage. Jinling's sudden increase in defensive strength caught the sects off guard for a time, but it also indirectly proved that the news that Jinling had occupied a mid-sized spirit stone mine was true. It was only now that the sects remembered that ever since Mei Tianqin had returned to Jinling, Jinling had gathered as many as 9 Dharma manifestation cultivators under Jinling's family. Right now, no sect in the North Sea cultivation world dared to go against Jinling head-on, not even Xianling sect. The cultivators of the sects who had calmed down momentarily became cautious. Meanwhile, Junling took advantage of the moment when the other forces on Frost Island were hesitant and the sects had yet to send reinforcements to quickly build a complete defensive formation in the area that they had occupied on Frost Island, using the warning formation as the foundation, to protect this area even more firmly. When Lu Ping arrived at Frost Island, the atmosphere on the island was already extremely grim. At this time, the sects had already reacted, and the cultivators of the sects who had sent reinforcements to Frost Island had also arrived one after another. With Xianling sect's Feng Shutao and the merged Blue Ocean sect's Donghua Laozu as the leader, Ocean Flame sect's Zhongli Laozu, Shui Yen Pavilion's Yan Ming Laozu, and Flying Feather sect's Fei Han Laozu, a total of 5. Laozu led nearly 30 late-stage core forging cultivators and nearly 50 early-stage core forging cultivators to surround Junling's territory on Frost Island. Linggu sect, which had always been affiliated with Xianling sect, did not send any Dharma manifestation cultivators to help this time. This made Feng Shutao very angry, but Linggu sect used the excuse that their sect's strength was insufficient and that Dharma manifestation Laozu could not free himself, so they only sent 3 late-stage core forging cultivators and 5 early-stage core forging cultivators to provide reinforcements. Feng Shutao was displeased, and his attitude towards the cultivators of Linggu sect became even more unpleasant. Fortunately, Yujin sect and Chongming Sword sect were still on Junling's side, and they were the closest allies. Yujin sect's Copper Sword Laozu brought 10 core forging cultivators to provide reinforcements, while Chongming Sword sect's Saming Laozu also brought 8 core forging cultivators. Even so, Junling was still at a disadvantage. At least on the surface, Junling only had 4 Dharma manifestation cultivators, while Junling and the Songhai sect had 5 Dharma Laozu cultivators. Moreover, Songhai sect's Donghua Laozu was a peak early Dharma manifestation cultivator, and he was only 1 step away from passing the Thunder Trial before he could become the 4th mid-Dharma manifestation cultivator of the Songhai sect. Then he would be able to match the number of mid-Dharma manifestation cultivators of Junling, and even surpass Xianling sect in terms of strength to become the 2nd sect in the North Sea. After Lu Ping came out of the teleportation portal, he heard a familiar voice say, "I thought you would be here soon." This time all the 3rd-generation disciples of our sect who have advanced to the late core forging stage have arrived, and there are more than 10 mid-core forging stage experts who have also arrived. I heard that you have been in seclusion ever since you returned from the East Sea, but I think you won't miss out on the excitement this time. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw Ji Xianxian and a few 3rd-generation disciples guarding near the teleportation portal, smiling as they watched him walk down from the teleportation portal. Lu Ping smiled and said, "This time, our sect has become the target of public criticism. The North Sea cultivation world thinks that this time, our sect will give in under the pressure of the various sects and give up the medium spirit mine under our feet. Yet you still have the mood to joke here?" Ji Xianxian spread out his hands indifferently and said, "Looking at the comparison of the strength of both sides, we really won't be able to fight this time. Although the combined strength of the Xianling sect and the Azure Sea sect is far above us, the Azure Sea sect and the Xianling sect are not on good terms on the surface, and the Shui Yen Pavilion and the Hai Yen sect also have their own plans. On the other hand, our sect, the Chongming sect and the Jade Sword sect are united against a common enemy, and our cohesiveness is much stronger than that motley crew. Moreover, our sect has the power of the formation that we can rely on. If the other party really wants to fight to the death, then we will injure 1,000 of us, and they will also die 800 of us. It is not worth it for a medium spirit mine." Lu Ping looked at the surrounding cultivators who were quietly listening to Ji Xuanxuan's words, and thought to himself that Ji Xuanxuan's mind had grown quite a bit over the years. He knew how to use this method to dispel the pessimism of his own side, so he smiled and said, "Although what you said is right, but since both sides have set up such a big battle, if we don't really fight a few rounds, wouldn't that make the entire North Sea cultivation world laugh at us? Therefore, fighting is still necessary. Everyone should be mentally prepared for this. When it is time to fight with your life on the line, don't hold back. If we really fight with all our might, then naturally those Dharma phase Laozu will have a headache." Looking at the thoughtful expressions on everyone's faces, Lu Ping asked Ji Xianxian in a low voice, "Who are the core forging cultivators from our sect this time? Who is in charge of the core forging cultivators? I want to pay my respects." Ji Xianxian said with some curiosity, "It's strange. This time Martial Uncle Gua Xianshan is also here. Logically speaking, the core forging cultivators of our sect should be led by Martial Uncle Gua, but for some reason the leader of our sect's core forging cultivators this time is Martial Uncle Shenju, the deputy pavilion master of the Shen Talisman Pavilion. Chapter 596. Lu Ping could guess why Taoist Xianzhu was able to become the leader of Jinling's core forging stage cultivators. However, he could not reveal the news of Taoist Guoxianshan advancing to core forging stage to Ji Xianxian. He could only say, "I'll go greet Martial Uncle Xianzhu first." Taoist Xianzhu Lu Ping had seen Taoist Xianzhu during the high-level meeting of Jinling's core forging stage. He was one of the few powerful late-stage core forging stage cultivators in Jinling. His position was similar to that of Taoist Enigma Flames in the Artifact Refining Hall. Taoist Xianzhu was also Taoist Xianzhu's teacher who went with Lu Ping and the others to Phantom City to participate in the auction. Taoist Xianzhu was also a female cultivator. Among the second-generation disciples of Zhenling sect, there were 4 female cultivators who were the most famous. Lu Tianling and Mei Tianqin were the 2 old ancestors. The other 2 were Taoist Xianqin, who was famous for his formations, and Taoist Xianzhu, who was famous for making talismans. Taoist Xianzhu's eyes lit up when he saw Lu Ping. "I didn't expect you to come as well. Our chances of winning have increased." Taoist Xianzhu's words puzzled Lu Ping. At present, only a few people knew that he had advanced to late-stage core forging stage. With Taoist Xianzhu's cultivation, it was impossible for him to see through Lu Ping's concealment. Even with his late-stage core forging stage cultivation, he would not be able to do much in a battle. Not to mention Huang Bingqiao had 9 Dharma characteristics Laozu with him. Without waiting for Lu Ping to ask, Taoist Xianzhu continued. "Right now, the high-level cultivators of the various sects are discussing the situation in the North Sea and how to defend against a possible siege. You are a cultivator who has participated in the sect's decision-making. Now come with me to the Profound Ice Temple. This time, all late-stage core forging stage cultivators must attend." Only then did Lu Ping find out that this sage Xianzhu was an impatient person. After finding her, Lu Ping had only said a few words to her before he was hastily brought to a palace that Tianling Laozu and Sage Enigma Flame had worked together to create using the 1,000-year-old ice from this place. At this time in the palace, the 2 Laozu of Jinling's Tianjiang and Qianlu were at the top. On the 2 sides were Yujian Laozu of Yujian School and Saming Laozu of Chongming School. Below these 4 Laozus were 12 seats. These 12 seats were prepared for the highest-ranking core forging cultivators of each sect. Among the 12 seats, Guotianshan Laozu sat in the seat of honor. However, his cultivation base had clearly been sealed by a secret technique. Lu Ping probed him with his divine sense and found that Guotianshan's cultivation base was only at the peak of the core forging realm. Seemingly aware of Lu Ping's probing, Guotianshan raised his head and saw Lu Ping walking into the Profound Ice Palace. Instead, he smiled at Lu Ping. In addition to Sage Guoxianshan, there were 3 other people occupying the 12 seats in Jinling. One of them was an old acquaintance of Lu Ping's. It was Sage Xianchang, who had just been stripped of his position as a law enforcement disciple. As for the remaining 8 seats, there were 3 late-stage core forging cultivators from Chongming School and Yujian School. Clearly, they were the higher-ranking cultivators of the 2 sections. In addition, around the Profound Ice Palace, there were a total of 10 late-stage core forging cultivators. However, the status of these cultivators was different from the 4 Laozus. Those 12 cultivators had the right to make suggestions, while the cultivators sitting in the Profound Ice Palace obviously did not have this right. Lu Ping looked around at the various late-stage core forging cultivators and found that Xian Hui, Li Xuanru, Zhang Xianbei, Xianzhu, and Xianyu, who had just broken through to the late-stage core forging cultivators, were among them. During the trip to Fantasy Spirit City, Li Xuanru, Xianzhu, and Xianyu had obtained suitable spiritual items. Afterwards, in the Great Fallen Archipelago, Tianqin Laozu had obtained 2 high-grade Earth Step spiritual items of the Fire Attribute and Wind Attribute. After returning, these 2 spiritual items naturally fell into the hands of Xian Hui and Zhang Xianbei. It was a pity that Taoist Shantian and Taoist Xuanzu's cultivation was no less than these 5 people, especially Taoist Shantian, as the eldest disciple of Tianlin Laozu, had the deepest accumulation among all of them. Unfortunately, he did not obtain a high-grade Earth Step spiritual item of the Wood Attribute, so he could only postpone his breakthrough to the late-stage core forging realm. At this time, 10 of the 12 seats were already filled, leaving only 2 empty seats. Lu Ping followed behind Taoist Xuanzhu and entered the Profound Ice Palace. Taoist Xuanzhu went straight to the seat next to Taoist Guoxianshan and sat down. Lu Ping was also not polite. After Taoist Xuanzhu sat down, he also sat down on the seat at the end of Jinling's side. At this point, all 12 seats were filled with cultivators. After Lu Ping sat down, the other late-stage Jinling core forging realm cultivators who were sitting on the other 5 seats all had a look of surprise on their faces. The other late-stage core forging realm cultivators were also surprised. Naturally, the cultivators from the various sects were also whispering among themselves. They did not know why this mid-stage core forging realm cultivator of Jinling was able to sit on one of the 12 seats. Even Xian Hui, Li Xuanru and the others were surprised. They did not know that Lu Ping had participated in the high-level decisions of Jinling. Moreover, Lu Ping had concealed his cultivation. In the hall, besides the 4 transcendents Laozu and Taoist Guxianshan, no one else could see that Lu Ping's cultivation had actually broken through to the late-stage core forging realm. When the Jade Sword sect's Copper Sword Laozu saw that all 12 people had arrived, he turned to Tianjiang Laozu and said, "Brother Tianjiang, since everyone is here, let's begin. But who is this little friend that the old man does not recognize?" Tianjiang Laozu glanced at Lu Ping and said, "This kid is the 9th disciple of Tianling martial niece, Lu Xianping." "Oh, so it's the famous water sword immortal." Copper Sword Laozu's expression made Lu Ping's scalp tingle. Copper Sword Laozu continued, "Not bad, not bad. Sure enough, a great teacher produces a great disciple. Presumably Lu Xiaoyo's swordsmanship must be very good." Copper Sword Laozu's words of praise had a different meaning in Lu Ping's ears. The Jade Sword sect was a sword sect in the North Sea, but the title of Sword Immortal had been taken by him. As soon as Copper Sword Laozu's voice fell, Lu Ping could clearly feel the burning gazes of the surrounding late-stage core forging cultivators on him. Some were provocative, some were disdainful, some were contemptuous, some were jealous and some were envious. In particular, several late-stage core forging cultivators from the Jade Sword sect looked at Lu Ping with eyes full of fighting spirit. Lu Ping was startled. He was not afraid of others challenging him. At this time, his cultivation had just advanced to the late-stage core forging, and he was bursting with confidence. Maybe he would dare to fight with an 8th-stage or 9th-stage core forging cultivator to test the limits of his strength. But if there were so many cultivators coming at him at once, even if it was a one-on-one battle, Lu Ping would not be able to withstand it. So Lu Ping quickly said, "Laozu is too kind. In front of the seniors of the Jade Sword sect, I don't dare to call myself Sword Immortal. It's just that all of you are flattering me." On the side, Chongming sect's Sanming Laozu smiled and said, "Brother Copper Sword, don't add to the trouble. Now that Xianling sect and Songhai sect are pressing in, we should first get down to business." Copper Sword Laozu looked at Lu Ping and laughed evilly. He didn't say anything else. Seeing this, Qianlu Laozu coughed and said, "This time I'm afraid it won't be good. News came from the sect that Dao Sheng and Dongji have arrived at Tianling Mountain together. Senior brother Tian Fan and senior sister Tian Shui, as well as martial nephews Tianling and Tianlin can't be touched. Dao Yen from Huanyu Island has also found senior brother Tian Kong. Huangli Island is now guarded by martial niece Tian Qin. It is said that Ao Chuang from Golden Dragon Island has recently appeared in the sea near Huangli Island, so martial niece Tian Qin can't be touched." Sanming Laozu frowned and said, "This time all the major sects have moved. Other than the few Laozu who are guarding the sect, the rest have taken action. My Chongming sect and Brother Copper Sword's Jade Sword sect have also been visited by Laozu using various reasons. Now only Brother Copper Sword and I can come to Frost Island to help." Tong Sword Laozu's expression was also a little serious. He said, "That's right. This way we have no backup on Frost Island. The other side has gathered 5 Dharma adepts and many late core forging adepts. Even if we have the formation, it will be beyond our power to block the cultivators of the various sections." Tianjiang Laozu smiled and said, "Brother Copper Sword, you have missed one person." "What?" Tong Sword Laozu followed Tianjiang Laozu's gaze and looked at perfected Guxianshan who was below. He suddenly patted his head and said, "Look at this old man's memory. This way the strength of both sides will be much closer. This time, it is not impossible for us to defend this medium-sized spirit stone mine." Many of the late core forging adepts in the Dark Ice Temple did not know what Tianjiang Laozu and Tong Sword Laozu were talking about. Tong Sword Laozu, who had been a little worried before, suddenly seemed to have infinite confidence. Some of the more quick-witted cultivators could naturally think that at this time, only a Dharma adept could affect the balance of attack and defense between the two sides with the power of one person. Could it be that their side actually had another Dharma adept as backup this time? If this was true, both sides had 5 Dharma adepts. With the power of the formation, the possibility of Jinling's side winning this battle was much higher. Sanming Laozu thought for a moment and said, I'm afraid that the other side also has a backup plan. If that is the case, we will face a difficult situation again. Tong Sword Laozu nodded and said, this is not impossible. After all, the other side's strength far exceeds ours. If one or two of the Dharma adepts from the various sects come to help us, we will not be able to handle it. The Fornax Furnace ancestor chuckled and said, everyone don't worry. Even if the other side has a backup plan, we have the confidence to deal with it. Unless the other side really wants to fight us to the death for this medium-sized spirit mine, we will make sure that all sects return empty-handed. Tong Sword Laozu's eyes lit up and was about to say something, but Sanming Laozu stopped him with a look. Tianlu Laozu and Tianjiang Laozu looked at each other with a hint of relief in their eyes. At this time, suddenly there was a loud cheer outside the Dark Ice Temple. Everyone in the temple curiously looked outside the Dark Ice Temple. Tianlu Laozu smiled and said, it seems that both sides are starting to fight again. I will go out and watch the fun. Chapter 597. Just as he was following the crowd in the direction of the cheers, Tianjiang Laozu suddenly sprinkled a white powder around his body. After the powder drifted away, it slowly weaved into a thin gauze-like mist in the sky. This layer of light mist slowly enveloped the late core forging stage cultivators who came out of the Dark Ice Temple, as well as Laozu, and slowly disappeared into the sky. Lu Ping looked up into the void in the distance. There seemed to be some faint fluctuations of spiritual qi coming from there. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Ping's divine will had advanced to the late core forging stage and could barely be compared to the early Dharma stage cultivators, it would have been extremely difficult to detect this slight fluctuation. However, Lu Ping's attention was quickly attracted by the two people fighting in the field below. A flame suddenly sprang up from below. The flame shook its head and tail in midair, and suddenly turned into a fierce giant flaming tiger. The giant tiger silently roared at a cultivator on the ground. It pounced down with its four limbs and immediately pounced towards a Blue Sea sect disciple who was fighting against Yao Yong. The Azure Sea Order disciple who was in the midst of fighting Yao Yong was already in a disadvantageous position. When the gigantic flaming tiger roared down from the sky, the Azure Sea Order disciple hastily brought out a defensive magic treasure to block the incoming attack, and his figure collided against the gigantic flaming tiger. With a muffled bang, the giant flaming tiger hit the treasure head-on. The Songhai sect disciple's face was full of joy, but before the smile on his face could bloom, a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. However, without waiting for the Songhai sect disciple to prepare, the giant flaming tiger suddenly exploded in midair. The defensive treasure in front of the giant tiger was immediately blown away by the power of the explosion, and flew towards the Songhai sect disciple, whose face was bright red as if blood was about to drip out. However, Yao Yong did not give up. Without waiting for the heavily damaged defensive treasure to be controlled by the Songhai sect disciple again, he had already rushed forward, grabbed a fireball in each hand, and slapped it towards the Songhai sect disciple. At this time, the Songhai sect disciple had already been unable to catch his breath from the self-explosion of the Songhai sect disciple. Seeing that Yao Yong was holding a fireball in his hand again, the Songhai sect disciple had no choice but to raise his hands, and a cloud of cold mist condensed in each of his palms. However, before the cold mist could form, Yao Yong's fireball had already exploded in the cold mist. The Songhai sect disciple could no longer resist Yao Yong's fierce attack. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, and quickly retreated back to his own camp. Yao Yong did not chase after him. Instead, he stood in the middle of the field and laughed loudly, saying, "Previously your voice was quite loud, saying that you wanted to replace my ranking on the North Sea rookie list. But unfortunately your strength is so weak that you can't even withstand one of my Flame Spirit Transformation's small sacred arts. Although the Songhai sect's two sects have merged into one and are known as the third largest sect in the North Sea, your disciples are only SOSO." Although the cultivators of the Songhai sect looked angry, the cultivator who was defeated by Yao Yong was on par with Yao Yong in terms of cultivation or cultivation age. However, he did not expect that the difference in strength would be so great that he was so easily beaten by Yao Yong to the point of vomiting blood and being seriously injured. Although the cultivators of the Songhai sect hated Yao Yong for spouting such arrogant words, there was nothing they could do. A few disciples of the Songhai sect advised a cultivator who was sitting cross-legged at the side, "Senior brother Shangwu, that fire tiger, Yao Yong is too arrogant." Senior brother Shangbing was seriously injured in less than 10 moves by him. "I'm afraid only you, senior brother Shangwu, can defeat him now." The cultivator called Jianghu slowly opened his eyes and looked at Yao Yong, who was being cheered by the cultivators of his sect, and said, that Yao Yong is only at the 4th level of the core forging stage, and is only ranked 19th on the North Sea rookie list. The one I want to challenge is Jinling, the Water Sword Immortal, Lu Xianping, who has dominated the first place on the North Sea rookie list for decades. A cultivator at the side smiled apologetically and said, Senior brother Jianghu has great ambitions and is far from what we can compare with. However, this fire tiger is too arrogant. Senior brother Xianghui and Xiangming didn't come this time. If senior brother Jianghu doesn't make a move, among the 3rd-generation disciples of our sect who have cultivated for less than 100 years, no one is a match for him. Spiritual Master Jianghu pondered for a moment and said, What you said makes sense. Xiangming is one thing, but senior brother Xianghui is stronger than me and is ranked 6th on the rookie list. This fire tiger is no match for him. The cultivator from the Azure Sea sect who was smiling apologetically saw that spiritual master Jianghu was showing signs of letting up. He knew that this senior brother in front of him usually didn't get along with senior brother Xiangming, so he quickly followed along and said, Senior brother Xiangwu's foresight is far above us, so what he said is naturally not wrong. If we can suppress that fire tiger immortal again, I'm afraid that senior brother Xiangwu's ranking on the North Sea rookie list in half a year's time won't be impossible for him to make it into the top 10. Spiritual Master Jianghu was proud of himself. He stood up and was about to walk towards the arena. However, at this moment, after Yao Yong hooted in the arena for a while and realized that no one else was coming out to fight, he began to walk towards his own group. Spiritual Master Jianghu panicked and momentarily forgot to stop Yao Yong. Instead, he raised his hand and threw a hooped sea hoop towards Yao Yong's head. Spiritual Master Jianghu's true strength was not weaker than Yao Yong's, and Yao Yong had never expected that someone would launch a sneak attack from behind under the watchful eyes of the crowd. For a moment he was also caught unprepared. Seeing that Yao Yong was unable to withstand Spiritual Master Jianghu's powerful attack in his haste, and just as the hooped sea hoop was about to land on Yao Yong's head, a figure suddenly appeared beside Yao Yong and pushed him away with a slap. As the hooped sea hoop fell, this figure took Spiritual Master Jianghu's attack in place of Yao Yong. Crack! The hooped sea hoop suddenly shrunk, and the figure was instantly crushed into pieces by the huge force of the hooped sea hoop. That figure was a puppet. Just now, it had taken Spiritual Master Jianghu's unexpected sneak attack in place of Yao Yong, but it itself had turned into pieces on the ground. Looking at the pieces on the ground, Yao Yong's back was already drenched in cold sweat. He then cursed, "Which bastard is so despicable to use such a trick? Aren't you afraid that the North Sea cultivators will poke at your sect's back?" Yao Yong's words were extremely vicious. The cultivators of Shanghai sect around Spiritual Master Jianghu were momentarily stunned. Then their faces burned. The cultivators who persuaded Spiritual Master Jianghu to make a move now looked at Spiritual Master Jianghu with a hint of blame in their eyes. Spiritual Master Jianghu's face turned red from Yao Yong's scolding. Although it was a sneak attack, it was really an unintentional move. However, under the watchful eyes of the various sects in the North Sea, Spiritual Master Jianghu's explanation would be futile. For a moment he was in a dilemma. The Blue Sea sect had made perfected Jianghu lose a lot of face today. Spiritual Master Jianghu's blood surged when he thought of the ridicule from the various sects' cultivators, the anger of the sect's elders, and the cold eyes of his fellow disciples behind his back. Yao Yong saw that in the Shanghai sect's camp, the dozen or so third-generation disciples who were originally standing together had used an undetectable clever method to place themselves in a formation that did not leave their own camp but completely isolated Spiritual Master Jianghu. Spiritual Master Jianghu naturally noticed the actions of his fellow disciples. How could he not understand their intentions? He, who was already blaming himself, suffered another blow in his state of mind. The true essence in his bloodline instantly lost its restraint and began to rampage in his body. Deviation? Yao Yong saw the cultivator from Shanghai sect standing in front of him staring at him. He did not attack nor did he say a word. Inexplicably he became impatient from waiting. Just as he was about to open his mouth to ask what the other party meant, he saw the person's face suddenly turn purplish gold and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Yao Yong was shocked. His eyes widened and he said, "No way, you've become like this after I scolded you a few times? This is too ridiculous. That sneak attack of yours just now almost took my life." A cultivator in his 30s suddenly appeared behind Spiritual Master Jianghu. The cultivator first looked at Yao Yong with a gloomy gaze. Yao Yong felt a pair of sharp swords directly piercing into the space in his heart. Yao Yong unconsciously took 2 steps back. Only then did he realize that the cultivator's gaze was so sharp that he was actually afraid. The cultivator in his 30s slammed his palm on Spiritual Master Shang Wu's chest. Spiritual Master Shang Wu screamed and immediately woke up from the demonic barrier. Looking at the person in front of him, Spiritual Master Shang Wu's face turned pale. He said in a low voice, "Uncle Master Shi, I'm incompetent." The cultivator in his 30s waved his hand and said, "You don't have to say anything. Uncle Master Shi, have seen everything that happened just now. That attack of yours was just an unintentional move. It's just that a man should be magnanimous. What's done is done and what's wrong is wrong. How can you let someone say that you've gone mad with just a few words and almost destroyed your cultivation? With such a poor mental state, how could the old man not be angry?" Spiritual Master Shang Wu looked ashamed. The cultivator in his 30s waved his hand and said, "When you go back, go to the law enforcement hall to receive your 5 years of punishment. After that, go to Shishui Cliff to reflect on your past. If you have any problems with your cultivation in the future, you can ask me at Shi's cave." Spiritual Master Shang Wu looked excited and quickly said, "Thank you, Uncle Master." When the surrounding Canghai sect disciples heard that Spiritual Master Shang Wu was punished to go to Shishui Cliff to reflect on his mistakes, their faces showed envy. However, when they saw Spiritual Master Shi's gaze sweeping over, they all looked ashamed and lowered their heads, not daring to look at him. Spiritual Master Shi turned to look at Yao Yong and suddenly smiled, "You're Chu Xuanqing's disciple?" Yao Yong was previously frightened by Taoist Master Shi's gaze, and was secretly feeling that he had lost face. Hearing Taoist Master Shi's question, he immediately stood up straight and said, "Yes, may I ask who Senior is? Are you acquainted with Junior's master?" Spiritual Master Shi smiled and said, "That's right, I didn't expect Chu Xuanqing to teach a disciple who might be above him in the future." When Yao Yong heard that the other party actually looked down on his teacher, Spiritual Master Chu Xuanqing was also a cultivator who was about to succeed, Yao Yong immediately said angrily, "Senior, you have a big tone. My teacher is now in seclusion and when he comes out he will be Dharma idol Laozu. I wonder what ability Senior has." After a pause, Yao Yong blushed and said, "I wonder if Senior dares to give me some advice?" Spiritual Master Shi looked at the indignant Yao Yong and laughed involuntarily, "You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You're really similar to Chu Xuanqing in the past, but you're far from qualified now." Yao Yong still wanted to say something, but his vision blurred and Spiritual Master Shi suddenly disappeared. In the void on Jinling's side, Spiritual Master Guoxianshan said with a somewhat solemn expression, "Zhang Shi? I didn't expect him to also come?" Lu Ping saw that many of the late core forging adepts around him had ugly expressions on their faces, so he asked, "Uncle Master, who is this Zhang Shi?" Spiritual Master Guoxianshan looked at Lu Ping and said, "This person is a peerless genius among the 2nd generation of the Canghai sect. Back then, among the North Sea adepts of the same generation, this person was once on par with the North Sea Gemini. Later, I heard that he committed some kind of mistake and was suppressed by the East Pole Laozu. There hasn't been any news of him for decades. This time he's already at the peak of the core forging stage, and he's only 1 step away from the Dharma stage." Lu Ping said disapprovingly, "Although this person is strong, he's too arrogant. Didn't Uncle Master also advance to the Dharma stage before him?" Spiritual Master Guoxianshan shook his head and said, "It's not the same. Even though I'm stronger than him now, once this person advances to the Dharma stage, I'm afraid he'll be able to overpower me. In this confrontation between the two sides, Uncle Master, I'm a surprise weapon to be used against the opponent's Dharma adepts. However, with Zhang Shi here, whether it's the Shenling sect or our own sect, no core forging adepts are a match for him. This person has such strength? Could it be that even if Uncle Master sealed his Dharma stage cultivation, he still wouldn't be a match for him?" Lu Ping did not quite believe it. Spiritual Master Guoxianshan looked at Lu Ping and said, "If Senior Tianlin had not advanced to the Dharma stage, he would definitely be able to overpower him. Before Senior Tianling and Junior Tianqin had advanced to the Dharma stage, they could also be on par with him. However, the 3 of them have been held back by others and could not come. Now that they're all Dharma adepts, there's no way they can compete with him." However, Spiritual Master Guoxianshan thought for a moment and said, "If Senior Liang Shenfeng was here, he might be able to deal with Zhang Shi. However, he would only be able to deal with him and it would be impossible for him to win. I can rely on my defense to escape from him, but I'm afraid I'll be injured." When Junior Chu fought with him in the past, he lost to him. Lu Ping heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Looks like after this person advances to the Dharma stage, Feng Shutao from Xianling sect will most likely not be a match for him." Spiritual Master Guxianshan could not help but say, "Feng Shutao only trained 100 years earlier than us. Even with my current strength compared to Feng Shutao before he advanced to the Dharma stage, I'm not that far off." Before Feng Shutao advanced to the Dharma stage, his strength was only on par with Senior Liang Shenfeng. Chapter 598. Seeing Zhang Shi's appearance, not only perfected Master Guxianshan, but even Tianjiang Laozu and the others frowned. Lu Ping stared in the direction where Zhang Shi had disappeared, deep in thought. Yao Yong retreated from the arena. Immediately after, a few more third-generation disciples from both sides joined in the battle. However, the intensity of the battles was much lower, disappointing many of the late core forging cultivators. Just as a Chongming sect disciple and a Feiyu sect disciple finished their battle, a flying sword suddenly flew out from Xianling sect's camp. The flying sword spun in the air, and countless gusts of cool wind swept out from it. In an instant, ice shards flew everywhere, and a cold mist was blown in all directions by the cool wind. The potholes on the ground caused by everyone's battle were immediately leveled by the flying sword, and a smooth, mirror-like ice field appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Hee flowing wind sword. Lu Ping chuckled as he looked at the flying sword in the arena. "Oh," perfected Master Xianju suddenly turned his head and asked, "Do you recognize this sword, Martial Nephew Lu?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "This person is one of the best of Xianling sect's third-generation disciples, Ouyang Weijian." Perfected Master Xianju smiled and nodded. "So it's the Wind Sword Immortal that Xianling sect has been promoting." Back then, Lu Ping was called the Water Sword Immortal, because of his battle achievements. The younger generations of the North Sea cultivators were willing to call him by this title. Perhaps Zhenling had secretly pushed for this title, but that was all. Xianling sect was on par with Zhenling in every aspect, and Ouyang Weijian was indeed a rare genius. Therefore they also came up with the title, Wind Sword Immortal, to promote it in the North Sea. However, this title was given by Xianling sect itself, and it couldn't be compared to Lu Ping's Water Sword Immortal. In fact, Ouyang Weijian had been defeated by Lu Ping several times. In fact, from Lu Ping's point of view, Wind Sword Immortal and Water Sword Immortal were secondary. The key was that Zhenling sect already had Water Sword Immortal, so why would Xianling sect have to create a Wind Sword Immortal? Not only would Zhenling sect copy someone else's ideas without any originality, they would also be looked down upon. Sure enough, Xianling sect had Ouyang Weijian. As the leader of the third generation of Xianling sect disciples, Ouyang Weijian had cultivated for less than 100 years, but his cultivation was already at the peak of core forging stage 6. He was only one step away from advancing to the late core forging stage. Ouyang Weijian swept his long sword horizontally and glanced at Xianling sect's camp, but he didn't see the person he wanted to see the most. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, but he still shouted, "I wonder if Brother Lu Xianping has arrived? It's been a long time since we last met. I wonder what realm Brother Lu's swordsmanship has reached? Today I'm here to learn from you." As soon as Ouyang Weijian appeared, the third-generation disciples in both camps were in an uproar. Ouyang Weijian was ranked second on the North Sea rookie list, second only to Lu Ping. Just like Lu Ping, Ouyang Weijian's position on the rookie list was also extremely stable. No one had been able to shake his position for more than a decade. Among the rising stars in the North Sea, Ouyang Weijian's reputation was second only to Lu Ping's. Coupled with Xianling sect's deliberate promotion, Ouyang Weijian challenged many mid-stage core forging stage experts from various sects in the North Sea. He even challenged late-stage core forging stage cultivators several times. Although he didn't achieve the same result as Lu Ping, who killed a 7th-layer core forging stage demon cultivator with a cultivation of 5th-layer core forging stage, he was able to escape unscathed from a late-stage core forging stage cultivator regardless of the outcome. The Wind Sword Immortal challenging the Water Sword Immortal was something that the third-generation disciples were very interested in. All along, the Water Sword Immortal, Lu Ping, had been a lofty existence in the rookie list. Cultivators like Shanghai sect's perfected Jianghu who wanted to challenge Lu Ping were undoubtedly ridiculous in the eyes of the cultivators in the top 10 of the rookie list. It wasn't impossible to challenge Lu Xianping, but one had to have the strength to challenge a late-stage core forging stage cultivator first. In the North Sea's rookie list, the only one who could challenge Lu Xianping was Ouyang Weijian. Ouyang Weijin was very disappointed when he didn't see Lu Ping in Jinling's group. He smiled and said, "What a pity. I thought I could have a chance to spar with Brother Lu's swordsmanship, but it seems I won't have the chance. It's a pity that other than Brother Lu, no one in Jinling is worthy to spar with me." In the void above Jinling's group, not only the late-stage core forging stage second-generation disciples, but even Xian Hui, Xian Zhu, and the other late-stage core forging stage third-generation disciples also looked at Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, Lu Ping just smiled and acted as if he didn't hear Ouyang Weijin's provocation. Xian Zhu Daoist couldn't help but say, "This Ouyang Weijin is too arrogant. He really thinks he's a sword immortal. Junior brother Lu, are you going to let this Ouyang Weijin continue to be so arrogant?" Lu Ping looked at Xian Zhu Daoist and couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, "It's not worth it." Xian Zhu Daoist was stunned. He didn't know what Lu Ping meant. However, the other late-stage core forging stage cultivators looked a little disappointed. Only the four Laozu and Daoist Guoxian Shan, whose cultivation was sealed, knew what Lu Ping meant by, "It's not worth it." Before Lu Ping advanced to the late-stage core forging stage, his cultivation had always been lower than Lu Ping's. At that time he was already not Lu Ping's opponent. Now that Lu Ping's cultivation had surpassed Ouyang Weijin and advanced to the late-stage core forging stage, Ouyang Weijin was no longer qualified to be called an opponent in Lu Ping's eyes. When Lu Ping came to Frost Island, many cultivators in Jinling had seen it. Although they didn't know why Lu Ping didn't come out to fight, Ouyang Weijin's repeated provocations had long since aroused the indignation of the cultivators in Jinling. Ji Xinshin jumped out from Jinling's group, pointed at Ouyang Weijin and said, "Ouyang Weijin, you sure talk big. As far as I know, you've lost to senior brother Lu more than once. Now you're shamelessly boasting that no one in the same generation can spar with you. May I ask Brother Ouyang, do you know what shame is?" Ji Xinshin usually looked obedient and quiet, but when he flew into a rage, his mouth was never ambiguous when it came to insulting others. These insults that seemed to expose one's past immediately angered Ouyang Weijin. Back then, during Laozu Lu Tianling's Dharma Manifestation Assembly, Ouyang Weijin, who had advanced to the mid-stage core forging stage, was defeated by Lu Ping, who had merely reached the third level of core forging stage. Although Ouyang Weijin's previous words were meant to provoke Lu Ping, they were still arrogant words. Ji Xinshin was delighted when he saw that his words had angered Ouyang Weijin to the point that his entire body was trembling. He continued to say, "With senior brother Lu's current cultivation, I'm afraid it's beneath him to fight you. If you continue to provoke me, then I'll reluctantly fight you." Ouyang Weijin laughed out of extreme anger and said, "Ji Xinshin, you sure have a good plan. Do you think you can take advantage of me by angering me? Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I, Ouyang Weijin, might not have improved in challenging the experts of the Northern Sea in these past few decades, but it hasn't reached the point where I'll lose my reason with just a few words from you." Ji Xuanxuan's heart sank, yet he still said, "Ha, it's not the first time we've fought. Today, allow me to experience Brother Ouyang's great moves once more." Ouyang Weijin glanced at Ji Xinshin in disdain and said, "It's not that I'm looking down on you. If Yin Xinshu was here, then the two of you might really be able to fight me together. But now that Yin Xinshu has been expelled from the sect by Jinling, only you, Ji Xinshin, are left of the so-called Jinling twin heroes. I, Ouyang Weijin, really can't look down on you." On the Northern Sea's rookie rankings, Ji Xinshin was ranked 10th, and Yin Xinshu was ranked 9th. Although the two of them were also in the top 10 of the rookie rankings, they'd only started to be ranked in the last 5 or 6 years, whereas Lu Ping and Ouyang Weijin had occupied the top 2 positions on the rookie rankings for over 10 years. In these 10 years, how many cultivators who had cultivated for more than 100 years had lost their qualifications to be ranked on the rankings? At the very least, Ji Xinshin knew that his sect originally had 2 cultivators who were ranked in the top 10. Daoist Xian Shang and Daoist Xian Lei had lost their qualifications to be ranked because they had cultivated for more than 100 years. Ji Xinshin and Yin Xuanchu's positions on the rookie rankings had risen again and again. Admittedly, it was due to their own hard work that had greatly increased their strength, but there was still a gap between them and Daoist Xian Shang and Daoist Xian Lei. However, it was precisely because of people like Daoist Xian Shang and Daoist Xian Lei that Lu Ping and Ouyang Weijin had forcefully suppressed their positions on the rookie rankings for over 10 years. Ouyang Weijin wasn't boasting when he said that Ji Xinshin didn't have the qualifications to challenge him. Ji Xuanxuan's expression was gloomy. Suddenly, 2 tall puppets appeared on both sides of his body. One was in human form with golden armor, and the other was in beast form with black armor. The two puppets flanked Ouyang Weijian from both sides. Ouyang Weijian laughed lightly and said, "Ji Xianxian, when will you learn to use your own strength to defeat your opponent?" Ji Xuanxuan's expression shook. His teacher, Taoist Shen Huai, had also said these words before. Ji Xianxian was a genius at making puppets that was rarely seen in Jinling for hundreds of years. Ji Xianxian himself was also obsessed with making puppets. When he was in the middle stage of core forging, he was already able to make puppets that were on par with his own strength. Moreover, he was able to skillfully control two puppets that were on par with his own cultivation. This also caused Ji Xuanxuan's strength to always be at the top amongst cultivators of the same level. However, there was one day when Taoist Shen Huai looked at Ji Xianxian and could not help but advise him. Although puppets are sharp weapons in battle, they are still external objects in the end. True experts still rely on themselves to gain a foothold in the world. You're so obsessed with puppets and blindly use them as your ability to survive. In the end, you won't be able to compete with the true experts of the cultivation world. Unfortunately, Ji Xianxian didn't listen to his teacher's kind words at all. Today, when he heard Ouyang Weijian say words that were similar to his teacher's, Ji Xuanxuan's heart was immediately thrown into chaos. Sometimes, what people could truly listen to and believe without a shred of doubt was the words of their opponents. With Ouyang Weijian's eyesight, he saw that the two puppets that were flanking him suddenly stopped midway for no reason at all. This flaw was immediately seized by Ouyang Weijian. The flowing wind sword turned into a real flowing wind and disappeared in front of Ouyang Weijian in an instant. Chapter 599. In a battle between experts, everything was decided by the slightest hair. Ouyang Weijian had accurately pointed out the biggest flaw in Ji Xuanxuan's cultivation, causing him to feel as if he had been struck by lightning. Ouyang Weijian took the opportunity to turn the flowing wind sword into a flowing wind, and when it appeared again, it was already in front of Ji Xuanxuan's chest. Ji Xianxian turned pale with fright, and a huge shield immediately appeared in front of him, shielding his entire body behind it. Ding! A crisp sound rang out. Although the flowing wind sword was only a slender flying sword, the force on the sword caused Ji Xuanxuan's body to sway uncontrollably. The two puppets on his left and right were also affected by this, causing them to stumble. Ji Xuanxuan's strength was originally inferior to Ouyang Weijian's, and now that he had lost the initiative, he was immediately suppressed by Ouyang Weijian. Fortunately, Ji Xuanxuan's strength had increased over the years, and with his cultivation at the 5th level of core forging, Ouyang Weijian wouldn't be able to completely defeat him in a short period of time. Even so, the cultivators in both camps could see that Ji Xuanxuan's defeat was only a matter of time. Lu Ping frowned as he watched the battle between Ouyang Weijian and Ji Xianxian below. At this moment, although Ji Xuanxuan's cultivation had already advanced to the 5th level of core forging from the aura around him, it was obvious that he hadn't advanced for long. Ji Xianxian and Yin Xuanchu's cultivation had always been similar, but in the past few years Yin Xuanchu's growth and strength in the Eastern Sea had far surpassed Ji Xuanxuan's. Ji Xianxian, on the other hand, was clearly somewhat infatuated with the creation of puppets, and didn't attach much importance to the growth of his own strength. However, this was more or less the tradition of the puppet pavilion. During the early stages of cultivation, the strength of the cultivators of the puppet pavilion increased extremely quickly due to the use of puppets. Often, they could rely on the strength of puppets to jump ranks and challenge opponents. It was precisely because of this that the cultivators of the puppet pavilion were infatuated with refining even more powerful puppets, neglecting that the growth of one's own cultivation was the foundation for a cultivator to gain a foothold in the cultivation world. With the growth of a cultivator's cultivation base, a cultivator's strength would become more reliant on their mastery of magic techniques and life-bound magic treasures. Puppets, which could only be used for fierce attacks, would become increasingly less useful to cultivators. As for the cultivators from the puppet pavilion, they gradually lost their advantage when compared to cultivators of the same level. Not only did Ouyang Weijian's flying sword turn into a stream of wind, his body had also turned into a stream of wind that was everywhere, causing Ji Xianxian to have no way of grasping his whereabouts. The two puppets in his hands were being toyed with by Ouyang Weijian in mid-air, while Ji Xianxian himself had become the target of Ouyang Weijian's flowing wind sword. He could only rely on the huge shield in his hand to desperately block. However, under the piercing attacks of the flowing wind sword, the shield in Ji Xuanxuan's hand finally couldn't hold on any longer. Cracks began to appear on the surface. Ji Xianxian knew in his heart that if this continued, then he would lose without a doubt, so he called back the two puppets to protect his left and right, whereas he himself retreated towards Jinling's side, yet he said, "Ouyang Weijian, consider yourself formidable today. Once I return to cultivate for a while, I'll surely beat you to the point of kneeling and begging for mercy next time." Ouyang Weijian let out a cold snort. The flowing wind sword in his hand suddenly turned into 18 streams of wind, intercepting the retreating Ji Xianxian from all directions. This was one of the two great divine abilities contained within the merry 18 swords of wind that Ouyang Weijian grasped, and it was called the Great Wind Divine Ability. Obviously, he didn't want Ji Xianxian to escape so easily. What Ji Xianxian said just now was actually admitting defeat. It was just that Ji Xuanxuan's mouth had always been vicious and he wasn't willing to admit defeat. If he called the cultivators from the other sects, they might stop on account of Jinling, but Xianling sect wouldn't, and Ouyang Weijian even more so. Ji Xianxian was an outstanding figure amongst Jinling's third-generation disciples, so Ouyang Weijian had already made up his mind that he wouldn't let Ji Xianxian escape unscathed. Countless sword whistles came from all around Ji Xianxian as 18 different wind swords attacked Ji Xianxian. Ji Xuanxuan's expression changed greatly, and one of his shields suddenly turned into 6 pieces that revolved around Ji Xianxian, protecting him within. However, the two puppets around him didn't even wait for him to withdraw before they were smashed into pieces by the tyrannical sword intent contained within the omnipresent flowing wind. 70% of Ji Xuanxuan's abilities were on his puppets. Seeing that 2 of his puppets had been destroyed, blood immediately flowed out of Ji Xuanxuan's mouth. Under the protection of the 6 small shields, his body quickly flew towards Jinling's camp. However, after Ouyang Weijian destroyed Ji Xuanxuan's puppets, he still didn't defend himself. The flowing wind sword chased after Ji Xuanxuan's back and stabbed towards his heart. Just as the flowing wind sword was about to pierce Ji Xuanxuan's back, countless trees and brambles suddenly rose from the ground behind Ji Xianxian. In an instant they turned into a wall of trees, blocking all of the whistling wind outside the forest. Seeing that Ji Xianxian had taken the opportunity to escape back to Jinling's camp, Ouyang Weijian knew that he no longer had a chance. Thus he extended his hand and waved. Countless streams of wind retreated from the forest and once again gathered in his hand, gradually transforming into a green flying sword. From Jinling's camp, a cultivator in his 30s who was dressed like a scholar walked out. When Ouyang Weijian saw this person, his eyes narrowed. The cultivator cupped his hands towards Ouyang Weijian and said, "Both sides are fighting without killing each other. My junior brother Ji has already admitted defeat, yet you are still chasing after him. Clearly you want to kill my junior brother Ji. I am untalented. Although I am still a third-generation disciple, I have cultivated nearly 100 years more than Spiritual Master Ouyang. I would like to shamelessly seek guidance from Spiritual Master Ouyang. I hope that you will not be stingy with your guidance." Ouyang Weijian looked at the person in front of him. He could feel that although this person's cultivation level was the same as his, the person's true essence was incomparably thick. It was obvious that he was Jinling, a cultivator who had been stuck at the 6th layer of the core forging realm and had yet to break through. There were a few cultivators like this in Xianling sect, but most of them were like this cultivator in front of him because they wanted to find a high-grade and more suitable heaven and earth spirit treasure to help them advance to the late core forging realm in preparation for advancing to the transcendence realm in the future. These cultivators didn't do so because they were weak. On the contrary, these cultivators didn't hesitate to lower their cultivation speed for their future achievements. After enduring for decades, their foundation was unfathomable, and Ouyang Weijian had no choice but to treat them with caution. At this time, a cultivator from Xianling sect who already knew this person told Ouyang Weijian about his background. Ouyang Weijian's heart trembled, but he still smiled and said, "I was wondering who it was. So it's Jiang Tianlin, Laozu's eldest disciple, Spiritual Master Xiantian." Spiritual Master Xiantian. 100 years ago, he was also an all-powerful figure on the North Sea's rookie list. He was also one of the top 10 on the rookie list. However, back then the rookie list wasn't as competitive as it was now. The top 25 cultivators on the list were all in the mid-core forging realm. This was something that wouldn't have happened in Spiritual Master Xuantian's time. Spiritual Master Xiantian smiled faintly. Although he thought that his cultivation level was only on par with Ouyang Weijian's, he had accumulated more than 100 years of cultivation. Even if he defeated Ouyang Weijian, he would still lose face. It was just that today he heard that junior brother Lu Xianping had arrived, but he still hadn't shown up. Under such circumstances, The only people who could be on par with Ouyang Weijin were the few third-generation disciples who had delayed advancing to the late core forging realm because they were waiting for a suitable heaven and earth spirit treasure. Just as spiritual master Xiantian was about to attack, he suddenly heard a sigh coming from the sky. Spiritual master Xuantian's face lit up. He smiled at Ouyang Weijin and retreated. Ouyang Weijin remembered the person who sighed. He looked up at the sky and coldly said, "So Brother Lu has arrived long ago. Why didn't you show up? Why did you watch your junior brother be defeated by me? Could it be that with Brother Lu's cultivation, you want to make your junior brother consume my Zhenyuan first and then win?" Lu Ping's figure still hadn't appeared in the sky. Lu Ping didn't care about Ouyang Weijin's sarcasm. He faintly said, "I originally didn't want to pay attention to you, but Brother Ouyang kept forcing me, so I had to make a move. Since Brother Ouyang has just fought with junior brother Ji, I don't want to take advantage of Brother Ouyang. Let's decide the outcome with one move." Ouyang Weijin was furious when he heard Lu Ping's words. Deciding the outcome with one move meant that Lu Shenping was confident he could defeat him in one move. Not only Ouyang Weijin but the spectators from Zhenling, Xianling and other sects were also in an uproar. Deciding the outcome with one move? This Lu Shenping was really arrogant. Ouyang Weijin was already arrogant, but now someone even more arrogant had appeared. In the sky shrouded in green mist, spiritual master Shenju frowned and said, "Junior brother, how confident are you?" Lu Ping looked up and found that it wasn't just spiritual master Shenju, but the other cultivators also had ugly expressions. They all felt that Lu Ping was being too arrogant. Spiritual master Guoxianshan thought for a moment and said, "If that's the case, it'll be a bit unfair." The crowd didn't know what spiritual master Guoxianshan meant, but Lu Ping and the four Laozu knew what he meant. Spiritual master Guoxianshan was saying that if Lu Ping fought with his late core forging cultivation, it would be an unfair win. Lu Ping flashed a reassuring smile at Guoxianshan and pointed his finger at Ouyang Weijin. A golden light flashed and disappeared. Although Lu Ping's words were arrogant, after Lu Ping finished speaking, all the cultivators looked expectantly in the direction where Lu Ping's voice came from. They all wanted to see if the famous Water Sword Immortal could defeat the Wind Sword Immortal in one move. Suddenly, a golden light flashed in the sky. He made his move. Ouyang Weijin's heart tightened. All he could focus on was the golden light in the sky. He made his move. The cultivators from the various sects were excited. This was definitely a clash between Zhenling and Xianling sect's most outstanding third-generation disciple. Perhaps, it would also be a preview of the final outcome of the battle between Zhenling and Xianling sect in the future. The golden light didn't move as fast as lightning, but as it got closer, it looked more and more majestic. As it got closer, Ouyang Weijin's expression became more and more solemn. At this moment, the cultivators from the various sects suddenly exclaimed. When everyone looked at the sky again, the golden stream of light had turned into a golden torrent. It was like a heavenly river descending from the sky, charging towards Ouyang Weijin with an unstoppable momentum. Ouyang Weijin's countenance changed slightly. He saw the loud sound of flowing water slapping against the reefs suddenly ring out in the golden sky. As it expanded and contracted, it seemed as if it was scouring the invisible banks on both sides of the river. Piles of golden waves rolled up, bringing with them the chill of sword light. Rocks pierced through the sky, waves beat against the shore, and 1,000 piles of snow were swept up. This was the true power of the Great River Flows East sword technique. This was the true power that Lu Ping had comprehended from the process of celestial phenomenon Laozu fighting against the lightning tribulation river. The true Great River Flows East was a combination of rocks piercing sky sword technique, raging waves crashing shore sword technique, and 1,000 piles snow sword technique. Only then could the true power of this set of sword techniques be unleashed and become a powerful sword technique. In the past, Lu Ping hadn't completely figured this out. Lu Ping had only used the 6 sword techniques recorded in the North Sea Wave Listening Formula to practice, and Lu Ping had indeed made a name for himself with these 6 sword techniques, gaining the illustrious reputation of the Water Sword Immortal. However, at this moment, Lu Ping suddenly realized that he had been completely wrong. His own swordsmanship had taken a detour. These 6 sword techniques were learned step by step. Although Lu Ping practiced them from easy to difficult, he had always neglected the connection between them. Lu Ping hadn't even comprehended the true Great River Flows East sword technique before he started to practice the 100 Rivers into the Sea sword technique that he shouldn't have practiced in the first place. What's more, he had even practiced the 100 Rivers into the Sea sword technique into a powerful sword technique. This couldn't be blamed on Lu Ping. The creation of these 6 sword techniques was obviously the process of the growth of a river. Small streams accumulated into a big river, and the ocean converged into 100 rivers. However, Lu Ping was born in the North Sea. There was no river here for Lu Ping to observe and comprehend. There was only the vast ocean, the surging wind and waves. Although Lu Ping hadn't seen the true vastness of the great river flows east, he had first comprehended the 100 rivers into the sea from the boundless ocean. It was unknown whether it was Lu Ping's fortune or misfortune. However, at this moment, Lu Ping's desire to go to the Central Plains was extremely strong. What kind of scene would the true great river flows east look like? How was it different from the boundless ocean? Was the true 100 rivers into the sea sword technique really the power of a powerful sword technique? With just the great river flows east sword technique, Lu Ping hadn't seen the true majestic scene of the great river flows east. He had only observed the celestial river formed by the tribulation lightning and was able to comprehend such a powerful divine power. If Lu Ping could personally go to the Central Plains to take a look at the winding flowing flower river and the setting sun river, which was known as the longest river in the Central Plains, how much would his swordsmanship improve? If he could go to the estuaries of the flowing flower river and the setting sun river to see the true scene of the 100 rivers into the sea sword technique, to what extent would his 100 rivers into the sea sword technique improve? Lu Ping suddenly had a premonition that the 100 rivers into the sea sword technique wasn't something that could be reached with just a single great divine power. A muffled groan suddenly came from below, interrupting Lu Ping's thoughts. Lu Ping looked down and saw that Ouyang Weijian had long been submerged in the golden celestial river. A strange smile appeared on Lu Ping's face. Under the shocked gazes of Taoist Shenju and even Taoist Guxianshan, he waved his hand and dissipated the golden celestial river. Ouyang Weijian came out in a sorry state. His eyes were filled with disbelief and fear. The surrounding cultivators were completely silent. He really defeated Ouyang Weijian in a single move. They were both at the 6th layer of the core forging realm. Chapter 600. The water sword immortal Lu Xuanping's shocking sword had ended the battle between the 3rd-generation disciples of both sections. With such a precious gem right in front of them, anyone else's battle would be nothing more than broken bricks and broken tiles. Even if someone was thick-skinned enough to challenge them, no one would be in the mood to watch. Everyone was thinking about the same question. Both of them were at the 6th level of core forging, and both of them had great sword arts. How could Lu Xianping defeat Ouyang Weijian in one move? One should know that Ouyang Weijian also had the title of Wind Sword Immortal, and the 18 Merry Swords of Wind was also Xianling sect's famous sword technique in the North Sea. Ouyang Weijian's record of challenging cultivators from various sects in the North Sea was not fake, so how could the Water Sword Immortal be so much stronger than the Wind Sword Immortal? They couldn't figure it out. The 3rd-generation disciples weren't the only ones who couldn't figure out what was going on. In the Mystic Ice Palace, everyone was silent with their heads lowered. No one knew what they were thinking. Lu Ping didn't mind, but the crowd was still immersed in Lu Ping's sword strike. As a junior, he didn't want to be the first to gain the upper hand. Although enlightened Master Shenju and the others were surprised, they were mostly happy and envious. As for the late-stage core forging cultivators, Guxianshan and the other avatar Laozu were deep in thought. Although they knew Lu Ping's true cultivation, Lu Ping had clearly suppressed his cultivation to the 6th level of core forging, not revealing that he was at the 7th level of core forging. On the morning of the 2nd day, the sky on Frost Island was already very late. A huge ray of light streaked across the sky and landed on Zhenling's camp. An almost invisible barrier rose from the camp of Zhenling's sect, firmly enveloping them in it. The light landed on the barrier and exploded, lighting up the dark sky. Countless rays of light rose from the inside and outside of the barrier. The battle between Xianling sect and Blue Sea sect for Zhenling's medium-sized spirit stone mine had finally begun. More than 100 core forging cultivators from both sides were engaged in a chaotic battle. There were even 9 Dharma adepts, Laozu. In such a huge battle, even early core forging disciples had to be careful, for fear of accidentally becoming cannon fodder. Xianling sect and Songhai sect had gathered the strength of the 6 sects of the North Sea, so they had the advantage in numbers. On the other hand, Zhenling sect, Chongming sect, and Yujin sect had the power of formations. At this time, the mid and early core forging cultivators had already started fighting. Although Zhenling's side did not have the advantage in numbers, with the support of the defensive array that Jinling had set up beforehand, they were barely able to resist the enemy's attack. Zhenling sect's defensive array was designed by Taoist master Taoist Xianqin. At the beginning, it was just an early warning array to prevent the cultivators he sent into Zhenling sect's territory to discover the secret of the mid-sized spirit stone mine. However, Zhenling sect had already anticipated that the secret of the spirit stone mine would be revealed sooner or later. While Taoist master Taoist Xianqin was designing the early warning array, the nodes of the array also served as the foundation of a profound ice array. Therefore, after Zhenling and the other sects discovered the secret of the spirit stone mine, Zhenling was able to quickly change the warning array to a profound ice array, disrupting the sneak attack plan of Canghai sect and Xianling sect. The profound ice array was set up at the entrance of the spirit stone mine under the ice cliff. This place was originally set up by Lu Tianling and Laozu as a garrison. He led a spirit vein that was found on the island there. After all these years, under Zhenling's careful management, the spirit vein here had grown to the point where it was half a medium-sized spirit vein. Lu Ping was speechless after feeling the density of the spirit energy in the profound ice temple. He had been operating on Huangli Island for 70 to 80 years, and he had only just upgraded the spirit vein there to a medium-sized spirit vein. It would still take a year for it to completely form. Zhenling had casually operated on Frost Island for more than 10 years, and he had nearly 2 medium-sized spirit veins. An individual couldn't be compared to a sect. Of course, the black ice formation that was supported by 2 medium spiritual meridians was barely enough to defend against a core forging adept's attack. However, if a Dharma adept were to attack, the formation would most likely not be able to hold out. Therefore, when the 5 Fa Xiang Laozu from Xianling sect and Canghai sect appeared, the 4 Laozu, Qianlu, Tianjiang, Tongjian, and Saming rose into the air and directly went out of the array to meet the other party. Of course, the reason why the profound ice array was placed here was because the spirit vein was gathered here. Another reason was that when the cultivator's attack reached saturation and the spirit vein was no longer able to support the array, the cultivator guarding the array would inlay high-grade spirit stones on the array and use the spirit stones to replenish the power of the spirit vein. Next to the array was the entrance to Zhenling's medium-sized spirit stone mine. The mine spirit stones were continuously sent to the entrance to supply the array at any time. This could be considered a favorable position. Moreover, once Zhenling's defense was broken, this spirit stone mine would fall into the hands of other sects sooner or later. Therefore, it was better for Zhenling to overload the spirit stone mine now. If the defense succeeded, then it would be fine, but even if it failed, it wouldn't leave any benefits for the other sections. Just as the 4 Laozu exited the array, 4 ice crystal-like shields separated from the profound ice array and formed a crystal shield that protected the 4 Laozu in the center. This was one of the functions of the profound ice array. It allowed some cultivators to borrow the protective power of the array after they exited the array. This way, the cultivators could avoid being attacked passively behind the protective array. This way, the cultivators could be more flexible in dealing with attacks from other places. However, this method of borrowing the power of the array would not only reduce the protective power of the array, but the cultivators who left the array would also not be able to fly too far away. Otherwise, the crystal shield around the cultivator would be broken and it would be difficult to borrow the protective power of the array. After the 4 Laozu from Zhenling's side flew out of the array, 4 faintly discernible crystal lines extended out from the profound ice array and connected with the crystal shield around the 4 Laozu's bodies. It was as if the 4 crystal lines were the foundation of the crystal shield around the 4 Laozu's bodies. After the 9 Laozus disappeared into the sky, the entire sky suddenly changed. One moment, it became fiery red as if fiery meteors were about to fall. The next moment, it became pitch black as if the darkness had returned. A moment later, dark clouds rolled in the sky. A moment later, the clouds were about to disperse. In an instant, a clap of thunder fell from the clear sky. However, after the lightning, it was followed by bowl-sized snowflakes. When the Dharma idol Laozu attacked, it was always accompanied by various celestial phenomena. The moment the Dharma idol Laozu made his move, the cultivators on both sides stopped their attacks. However, a moment later, no one knew who made the first move, but the array surrounding Zhenling's side was once again thrown into chaos. A few cultivators from Xianling sect and Canghai sect, who thought they were smart, saw the 4 crystal lines that connected the crystal shield around Dharma idol Laozu's body. Their eyes darted around and they thought that if they cut the 4 lines, the Dharma idol Laozu's side would lose a layer of protection. Without the crystal shield, the Dharma idol Zhenling's side would have one less person to rely on. Wouldn't the Dharma idol Laozu's side lose a layer of protection? The Dharma idol Jinling's side was already down by one person. Wouldn't the Dharma idol Laozu's side be completely defeated? At that time, wouldn't they have made a great contribution? The few cultivators looked at each other and immediately realized what they were thinking. They shouted in unison, shook the Dharma treasures in their hands and slashed at the four lines. Zhang Shi of the Shanghai sect, who was looking for perfected Guxianshan to fight, saw the foolish actions of these people and hurriedly shouted, "No!" However, it was already too late. The few mid-core forging adepts who dreamed of making a great contribution and receiving a reward from the Dharma idol had just landed their Dharma treasures on the lines when they felt an irresistible inner yuan attached to the lines. The inner yuan bounced back at their Dharma treasures. The expressions of the few cultivators changed. Without waiting for them to do anything, they retracted the Dharma treasures in their hands. These few Dharma treasures were shattered by the strong inner yuan that bounced back at them. The few cultivators instantly suffered serious injuries because their Dharma treasures were destroyed. The three mid-core forging adepts who were afraid that they would not be able to cut the lines even used their own Dharma treasures. Their injuries were even more serious. The few cultivators on Jinling's side had originally seen these people trying to cut the four lines and had hurriedly rushed over to stop them. However, they were one step too late. They did not expect that although the four lines looked thin, they were actually the inner yuan of a Dharma adept. How could they possibly cut them? The few cultivators on Jinling's side did not manage to stop them in time. Instead, they ran into the enemy cultivators who had been injured by the inner yuan of a Dharma adept. How could Jinling and the other cultivators let go of such an opportunity? Instantly, they rushed forward and chopped the more heavily injured cultivators into meat paste. Zhang Shi wanted to go forward to help them, but unexpectedly, perfected Guixuanshan's strength had suddenly increased and he was actually able to slow Zhang Shi down. Zhang Shi made a sound of surprise and said, "After not seeing each other for decades, I was already surprised that you, Guxianshan, had reached the peak of the core forging stage. I did not expect you to have hidden your true strength. This is really impressive." Perfected Guxianshan smiled slightly and said, "Brother Zhang, you have not been bad all these years. All these years, Xianshan has only relied on the early arrival of the clumsy birds. How can I compare to a peerless genius like Brother Zhang?" Zhang Shi's 5 fingers twirled in mid-air, and a small hill that had appeared above his head was instantly smashed into pieces. He casually waved his sleeves, and the dust that had fallen from mid-air was instantly swept away. Then he sighed softly and said, "What peerless genius? Originally, I was confident that I would not lose to Jiang Tianlin, but in reality, I was on par with Lu Tianling and Mei Tianqin." Unexpectedly, after not seeing each other for decades, the three of them have already reached the Dharma stage and I am still one step behind. Perfected Guxianshan did not speak anymore and began to focus on the battle with Zhang Shi. Although perfected Guxianshan had sealed his own cultivation and could only fight with Zhang Shi at the peak of the core forging stage, he was still a true Dharma adept Laozu. Even if he was fighting with the peak of the core forging stage, his strength was still much stronger than when he was at the peak of the core forging stage. However, the truth was that Zhang Shi had the upper hand at this moment. When the cultivators on Jinling's side saw that the 4 threads that connected Laozu to their side could not be cut off, many of the more courageous cultivators flew out of the formation and were immediately covered by a layer of crystal shields. The cultivators on Jinling's side were overjoyed, and with the help of the crystal shields, they launched a counterattack against the cultivators of Xianling sect and Shanghai sect. Lu Ping immediately flew out of the crystal shield and covered himself with a crystal shield. Then he directly pounced on a Xianling sect cultivator at the 6th stage of the core forging stage. Chapter 601. Lu Ping's interest was piqued. He immediately flew out from the crystal barrier and covered himself in a crystal barrier. Then he pounced on a Xianling 6th layer core forging realm cultivator. The Xianling sect cultivator had just defeated a Jinling cultivator and had just cast a spell on the Jinling formation. Just as he was about to cast a second spell, he sensed that someone was charging at him. The Xianling cultivators hurriedly cast out their mystic treasures and prepared to fight the newcomer. But when they looked up and saw Lu Ping flying towards them, they shivered in fright. They hurriedly cast out their mystic treasures and attacked Lu Ping with all their might, but at the same time, they hurriedly retreated to their own camp. What a joke. Fighting someone who could defeat Ouyang Weijian in one move, isn't that courting death? Lu Ping slashed the flying Dharma treasure away with his sword, and the fleeing cultivator's body swayed. Even if this Dharma treasure wasn't his natal Dharma treasure, it must have been refined for a long time. However, the cultivator still didn't dare to stop. He didn't even have time to retrieve the Dharma treasure that Lu Ping slashed away. He flew straight towards his own camp. Lu Ping seemed to suddenly remember something. With a flash of light, a small boat suddenly appeared under his feet. Then, with a flash of light, Lu Ping appeared behind the Crystal Palace cultivator. The fleeing cultivator suddenly felt a cold wind blowing at his back. Turning his head, he saw nothing but golden light. The cultivator only had enough time to close his eyes. After that, he did not open them again. The golden scale sword flicked the cultivator's storage Dharma treasure into Lu Ping's hand. Then he heard a shout from the side. "Arrogant brat, let me fight you." When Lu Ping turned around, a 7-stage core forging sect cultivator from Songhai sect flew to Lu Ping's side with a sinister smile. Lu Ping narrowed his eyes. This person had a good plan. Not only did he target Lu Ping's 6th-stage core forging realm cultivation, but before he shouted, he had already pounced towards Lu Ping. When Lu Ping turned around, the Dharma treasure in his hand was already inches away from Lu Ping. In the friar's view, Lu Ping couldn't escape. As long as he killed this person, it didn't matter if he was bullying the weak. Don't forget that this person had once killed a 7th-stage core forging realm cultivator. Although the friar was a 2nd-generation disciple of the Songhai sect, it wasn't too much for him to make a move now. However, the Songhai sect cultivator saw Lu Ping's contemptuous smile. His heart sank, but his expression became colder. The flying shuttle that was about to pierce Lu Ping's body suddenly accelerated and went straight towards Lu Ping's core space. Lu Ping's divine sense was tyrannical. How could this Songhai sect cultivator's sneak attack escape his detection? However, even though Lu Ping had the protection of the crystal array formation, it wasn't to the point where it would waste the spiritual power of the array formation to be attacked wantonly. A golden light flashed in an instant, and the golden scale sword, which was launched later, arrived first. The sword slashed at the tail of the flying shuttle, immediately deviating the flying shuttle's piercing direction. The flying shuttle evaded Lu Ping and directly pierced towards a Linggu sect disciple in the distance. The Songhai sect cultivator was startled and hurriedly used his divine sense to recall his flying shuttle. However, just as his divine sense spread out, he suddenly felt as if he had suddenly hit an iron wall. Lu Ping's divine sense was like a hammer that fiercely struck the Songhai sect cultivator's divine sense. Just as the Songhai sect cultivator was dizzy from Lu Ping's divine sense attack, he vaguely saw a blue brilliance suddenly flash in front of him. Then, the cultivator suddenly felt like he had become a deflated balloon. Whether it was spiritual essence, blood meridians, or life force, they all dissipated at an extremely terrifying speed. Lu Ping made a withdrawing motion in the air with satisfaction, but there was nothing in front of him. Nothing appeared. Although everyone had heard that Jinling's water sword immortal had once killed a demon cultivator who had just advanced to the 7th core forging realm with a cultivation of the 5th core forging realm, most people didn't believe it at first. However, in the end, with many witnesses on Huangli Island, they had no choice but to believe it. However, today they saw Lu Ping kill a late core forging realm cultivator with their own eyes. This Songhai sect cultivator was not someone that Master LV Hai, who had just advanced to the 7th core forging realm, could compare to. Not to mention, a few years ago Lu Ping had risked his life to kill Master LV Hai, but now it had become so easy. How fast did Lu Xuanping's strength grow? Due to Lu Ping's ferocity, cultivators below the 7th core forging realm began to avoid him. As for the 8th and 9th core forging realm cultivators, they were entangled with the late core forging realm cultivators on Jinling's side. They had no time to pay attention to anything else. As a result, it gave Lu Ping the impression that he could go on a rampage on the battlefield. At this time, the number of cultivators from Xianling sect and Songhai sect attacking Jinling was more than double the number of cultivators from Jinling. However, Jinling relied on the power of the array formation to resist the combined attack of the 6 sections. Especially with the help of the profound ice array designed by Master Xian Qin, many of the cultivators from Jinling's side had no worries, and in a short period of time, they were able to counterattack. Lu Ping used the speed of the spirit-nurturing treasure under his feet to quickly shuttle around Jinling's defensive array formation, saving 3 cultivators on his side. At the same time, he killed 2 mid-core forging realm cultivators and severely injured a 6th core forging realm cultivator. However, at this time, a cultivator who was not afraid of death finally slashed at the thin threads of the profound ice array formation with his magic treasure. Bang! Although the cultivator's magic treasure was repelled, this time the rebound force was unable to cause any damage to him. The coldness in Lu Ping's eyes instantly turned cold and he wanted to rush forward to kill him. However, this person was very vigilant. When he saw Lu Ping rushing over, he quickly retreated back to his own camp. No matter how confident Lu Ping was in himself, he didn't think that he would be able to escape unscathed from the encirclement of the other party's camp. When the Linggu sect disciple who retreated to the camp saw that Lu Ping didn't chase after him, he immediately relaxed. At the same time he shouted, "Not all of the array formation's threads are invincible. The strength of the threads is determined by the cultivator's cultivation." Since the beginning of the battle, Junling's side had not fallen into a disadvantageous position by relying on their protective array formation. However, after that Linggu sect cultivator guessed the function of the threads, the opposing cultivators all surged forward, preparing to attack the threads of the array formation. They would first shatter the profound ice barriers of the other cultivators. Taoist Master Xianju, who was in charge of the affairs of the core forging cultivators, saw that the other party had already noticed the effect of the thread. At this time, there were still many cultivators who turned a blind eye to the dissipation of their protective barriers. The disciples whose threads have been cut quickly returned to the array formation. All the cultivators below the mid-stage core forging stage quickly returned to the sect. The operation of the array formation is too strenuous. The array formation is about to weaken. Bang bang bang. The threads behind several mid-stage core forging cultivators were cut. Without the protection of the array formation, the cultivators on Junling's side quickly suffered casualties. After a cultivator from the Ocean Flame sect avoided the relentless pursuit of a few Junling disciples, he coldly looked at the protective array formation in front of him. The magic treasure in his hand whistled through the air, causing the entire array to shake. The eyes of the cultivator from the Ocean Flame sect lit up and he immediately shouted, "Attack their array formation. Ignore those who walk out of the array formation. The more cultivators that walk out, the weaker their array formation will be." By now, Junling's side had also realized the problem. When the mid-stage core forging cultivators heard Taoist Master Xianju's words and heard the clamor of the Ocean Flame sect cultivators, they all returned to the mystical ice array. Without these cultivators weakening the array formation, the power of the mystical ice array increased once again. A cultivator from the Shui Yen Pavilion also broke through the blockade of Junling's side. He struck the mystical ice array with his magic treasure, but it only caused a shallow ripple. It was far less effective than the attacks of the Ocean Flame sect cultivators. As a result, the cultivators on Junling's side who went out to fight were only the four Laozu, the late-stage core forging cultivator, and Lu Ping. The other cultivators obediently returned to the mystical ice array, relying on the protection of the array formation to resist the enemy's attacks. Just as the two sides were once again in a stalemate, a powerful pressure suddenly rose from Xianling's camp, pressing down on the cultivators on Junling's side in the mystical ice array. Even with the protection of the array formation, many of the mid-stage and early-stage core forging cultivators turned pale from the pressure. A Dharma adept. Not only did Junling's side have a Dharma adept hiding in Xianling's camp, even the cultivators from Songhai sect were not in a good mood. Xianling's sect had gained another Dharma adept, which meant that Songhai sect's dream of replacing Xianling's sect as the second-largest sect in the North Sea would have to be delayed again. Who was this person? Just when everyone was guessing, a green sword light tore through the sky and slashed one of the threads in the middle. Oh no, it's Uncle Fornax's mystical ice shield. Senior Brother Gua. Enlightened Master Xianju cried out to Enlightened Master Gua Xianshan for help, obviously asking him to release the seal on his cultivation. However, Enlightened Master Gua Xianshan did not seem to hear him. He was still focused on fighting Zhang Shi with his peak core forging cultivation. Just then a clear whistle sounded. A middle-aged cultivator with a long beard flew out from Xianling's camp. He pointed his finger and the green sword light slashed at another thread. That was Yujin sect's mystical ice shield, Laozu's mystical ice shield. Lin Xuqing. Enlightened Master Xianju was not the only one who cried out in shock. Even Lu Ping recognized this late core forging cultivator from Xianling sect, the one who made things difficult for him at Tianling's master's wedding. He did not expect this late core forging cultivator to reach the Dharma stage so quickly. Chapter 602. Lin Xuqing had already reached the Dharma stage and Xianling sect now had 7 Dharma adepts, Laozu. The moment Lin Xuqing appeared, the Xianling sect cultivators cheered and their morale soared. On the other hand, the cultivators on Jinling's side were filled with despair. Under these circumstances, the appearance of a Dharma adept Laozu in a local camp meant something that all the core forging cultivators knew very well. Just as Lin Xuqing's green flying sword was about to slash at the thread connecting Laozu's profound ice shield, perfected Master Guxianshan, who was fighting Zhang Shi, suddenly released an aura that was even stronger than Lin Xuqing's. Dharma Adept. Our sect has also hidden a Dharma Adept. Jinling's fall caused him to climb to the highest peak. This time, Guotianshan Laozu no longer hid his cultivation base. He pushed his palms towards Zhang Shi, and each of his palms turned into a small mountain that slammed towards Zhang Shi. After unleashing this attack on Zhang Shi, a Dharma treasure the size of a mountain suddenly rose above Guotianshan Laozu's head and collided with Lin Xuqing's green flying sword. So even you have reached the Dharma stage. Zhang Shi let out a strange cry. It was hard to tell if his voice was filled with disappointment or envy, but he didn't dare to slow down. Even though he was facing a Dharma adept Laozu's attack, Zhang Shi wasn't afraid at all. Suddenly, a pair of Dharma treasures that looked like knives and swords appeared in his hands. Zhang Shi threw the two Dharma treasures into the air. Immediately, the two mountains formed from Guotianshan Laozu's inner yuan danced rapidly in the air. Seeing but not seeing was exasperating, hearing but not hearing was exasperating. The two rapidly dancing blades did not make any sound, nor did any divine power come from the two blades. However, every time the blades moved, a ridge would be cut off from the two mountains. As the blades moved faster and faster, more and more ridge was cut off from the mountain, and the two mountains shrank rapidly. However, these two mountain peaks were, after all, spells cast by Fa Xiang Laozu. Although Zhang Shi's cultivation was second to none in the core forging stage, as the mountain continued to shrink, it became more and more difficult for the two sharp blades to cut through the mountain peaks. Lin Xuqing's green flying sword was hit by the flying peak, a spirit-nurturing magic treasure of Guotianshan Laozu. It hurriedly used the flying sword's agility to dodge. However, the flying peak had already condensed a second spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Although the green flying sword was also a spirit-nurturing magic treasure, before it could dodge, the flying peak, which was originally 1 foot tall, suddenly grew to 3 feet tall. A yellow light poured down from the flying peak, enveloping the green flying sword in one fell swoop. The green flying sword dashed left and right in the yellow light, but it couldn't break free from the flying peak. On the other side, Zhang Shi saw that he was about to be hit by the two mountains, but he suddenly put his hands together, and the two flying swords that were dancing in the air like gyroscopes suddenly merged together, turning into a sharp blade. The sharp blade shot out a blade light that was 180 feet long and 3 feet wide. Zhang Shi raised his hands high and slashed at the two mountains that were close at hand. The huge blade light in the sky also silently slashed down. Silently, one of the two mountains formed by Zhen Yuan condensed Gen Earth essence was suddenly cut in half. Before the mountain fell into the sea, the Gen Earth essence dissipated in the air. The other mountain whistled down, but Zhang Shi didn't have time to recover enough Zhen Yuan to slash out a second blade light. He suddenly let out a loud shout and quickly waved his hands twice. The sharp blade light once again slashed at the last mountain, but the power was not the same as the first one. Two large mountain ridges were cut down, but the mountain was only reduced by 1/3. The remaining mountain finally came crashing down on Zhang Shi's head. Zhang Shi's hands drew a semicircle in the air again. The two blades, which were originally joined together, separated and turned into a rapidly spinning cone, drilling towards the bottom of the falling mountain. Zhang Shi jumped up and followed the two light blades towards the falling mountain. The two blades quickly drilled a passage in the middle of the mountain, and Zhang Shi followed the light blades and drilled up the passage. With a loud bang, the mountain fell to the ground, but the top of the mountain was also broken by the two blades. Zhang Shi flew out of the mountain, his face covered in dust. At the same time he coughed repeatedly. Obviously, although he had just resolved the blow of Gudian Mountain Laozu, he had paid a heavy price. However, without waiting for Zhang Shi to calm down, a shout sounded, and a talisman appeared on top of Zhang Shi's head. Suddenly, a clap of thunder sounded in the sky, and a lightning bolt as thick as a bucket suddenly fell down. Spiritual Master Xuanju, who had been commanding the cultivators of Jinling to defend against the enemy's attacks, had appeared on the battlefield at some point. It was obvious that he was going to beat the enemy when they were down. On the other side, Lin Xuqing Laozu, who had been acting as a surprise attack, had not expected that Jinling's side would also have a hidden Laozu. Now, it seemed that although Guotianshan Laozu had not reached the Dharma plane earlier than him, his strength was obviously higher than his. Caught off guard, Lin Xuqing's green flying sword was firmly locked in the air by Guotianshan's flying sword, unable to break free. Guotianshan Laozu had originally hidden his cultivation because he wanted to seriously injure one of the opponent's Dharma plane Laozu. This way, Jinling's siege on Frost Island would almost be easily resolved. However, after the battle with Zhang Shi, Guotianshan Laozu thought that even if he could not seriously injure one of the opponent's Laozu, as long as he could kill Zhang Shi, it would at least be a huge blow to the Blue Sea sect. However, Guotianshan Laozu and Jinling's side did not expect that Xianling sect also had a hidden Dharma plane Laozu, which completely messed up Jinling's original plan. When Lu Tianling Laozu's Dharma plane meeting was held, Lin Xuqing was only at the 8th level of the core forging realm and was about to step into the 9th level. At that time, Guotianshan and the others were already preparing to form a 7th level golden core. It had only been a few years, but Lin Xuqing had already advanced to the Dharma plane before Chu Xuanqing, Liang Xianfeng and the others. Moreover, it seemed that he had advanced through the normal path of forming a 7th level golden core. He did not use any secret arts or external forces. Guotianshan Laozu immediately thought that this must be the Crystal Palace's support for Xianling sect. Then he remembered that when Tianqin Laozu returned to Jinling, he brought news from the East Sea that Xianling sect had followed the Crystal Palace into the secret area of the Fallen Archipelago. He suddenly realized that this Lin Xuqing must have also entered the secret area and used the violent spirit energy there to trigger an opportunity to advance. However, judging from Lin Xuqing's current strength, he was only an ordinary 7th level golden core. After all, he did not have hundreds of years of accumulation like Guotianshan Laozu, so his strength was still slightly lower. Guotianshan Laozu held Lin Xuqing's flying sword in place and pressed down on the Feilai Mountain. Obviously, he wanted to destroy this spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Lin Xuqing had been tricked by Guotianshan. At this moment he could not care less about anything else. He stretched out his hand and shot out a green beam of light. With a loud bang, the Feilai Mountain was hit by the green beam of light and shook. Even the yellow light that held the green flying sword in place was shaken. Lin Xuqing was overjoyed. He hurriedly shook the flying sword, trying to break free from the Feilai Mountain's suppression. However, after Guotianshan Laozu had advanced to the Dharma plane, his Feilai Mountain had once again formed a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. In terms of quality, it was a level higher than the green flying sword. Even though it was hit by the green beam of light, the green flying sword still could not break free from the Feilai Mountain's suppression. Lin Xuqing was about to shoot out another green beam of light, but he heard Guotianshan Laozu snort coldly. Guotianshan clenched his right hand into a fist and punched Lin Xuqing. A yellow inner yuan flew out of his right fist and formed a huge golden fist in mid-air, smashing towards Lin Xuqing's body. Mountain-shaking fist. Lin Xuqing let out a strange cry and hit his chest with his right hand. A gust of green wind flowed out of his chest and turned into a huge dark green giant cicada in mid-air. The giant cicada flapped its wings and a piercing cry came from its body. It caused all the core forging cultivators within a 5-kilometer radius of the giant cicada to feel a stabbing pain in their heads. Guotianshan Laozu snorted coldly and formed a spell with his left and right hand. He shouted, "Go!" A yellow giant turtle suddenly appeared in front of Guotianshan Laozu. The giant turtle raised its head to the sky and let out a silent roar. It moved its 4 limbs and actually merged with Guotianshan Laozu's mountain-shaking fist. The green beam of light was released from Lin Xuqing's hand again. The giant cicada let out a clear cry and the beam of light turned into 9 beams of green light. The giant cicada merged with the beams of light and disappeared. The 9 beams of light were like 9 halos that surrounded Lin Xuqing. The mountain-shaking fist shattered 8 beams of light in a row, but it was barely blocked by the last beam of light. The giant yellow fist retracted and turned into a beam of light that pierced into Guotianshan Laozu's chest. Lin Xuqing's last ray of rainbow light also shattered into countless phosphorescent lights. After a green ray of light entered the core space, Lin Xuqing's face turned pale. Clearly, he had suffered a loss in the attack that had been infused with their respective Dharma idols. Guotianshan Laozu was about to take advantage of the situation and attack Lin Xuqing Laozu with one blow when a green beam of light suddenly fell from the sky. By the time Guotianshan Laozu noticed it, the beam of light had already joined forces with the green flying sword and overturned the Feilai Peak. The green flying sword took this opportunity to escape from the suppression of the Feilai Peak and returned to Lin Xuqing Laozu's hand. Guotianshan Laozu snorted coldly. When he looked up, the sky had already turned into two colors. The green side had dyed 2/3 of the sky, while the remaining 1/3 was firmly guarding the remaining 1/3. The Feilai Peak crashed into the sky, and a pitch-black crack appeared. Guotianshan Laozu followed closely behind the Feilai Peak and disappeared. Lin Xuqing's pale face was filled with anger. The green flying sword cut through the air and disappeared. Chapter 603. The disappearance of the two Dharma powers, Laozu, allowed the core forging stage cultivators on both sides to fight freely again. Xianzhu Jinren took the opportunity to sneak attack Zhang Shi. At first, she was quite embarrassed, but Xianzhu Jinren had just advanced to the 9th level core forging stage. Compared to Zhang Shi, who had condensed a high-grade golden core and accumulated hundreds of years of cultivation, she was still far inferior. Xianzhu Jinren did not expect Zhang Shi to be able to withstand a blow from a Dharma adept and not be seriously injured. Instead, it was just a large loss of vital energy. Although she had the upper hand because of the surprise attack at the beginning, as Zhang Shi withstood her continuous attacks, he began to slowly turn the situation around. Xianzhu Jinren soon fell into a disadvantage. Junling's side was originally at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. He was only relying on the Mystic Ice Array to resist the opponent's attack. Xianzhu Jinren was at a disadvantage in the battle with Zhang Shi. The other late core forging stage cultivators wanted to help, but they were entangled by the opponent's cultivators. Xianzhu Jinren could only barely resist Zhang Shi's attack. Boom! The Mystic Ice Array suddenly shook. Zhang Shi slowly withdrew his palm and blocked Xianzhu Jinren's attack. Taoist Xianzhu, on the other hand, looked a little angry. Zhang Shi could actually find the time to attack Jinling Sect's Profound Ice Grand Array while he was fighting with her. This made Taoist Xianzhu feel like he had suffered a great humiliation. In fact, Taoist Master Xianzhu was secretly bitter at this moment. This Zhang Shi is worthy of being a genius cultivator who was as famous as Senior Sister Tianling and the others in the past. Not only did he take a blow from Senior Brother Guotianshan, but he was also able to divert his attention to other things. Xianzhu Jinren knew that she was no match for Zhang Shi. But now, Jinling was already struggling to deal with the opponent's attack. No one could help her. But if she let go and let Zhang Shi attack the Mystic Ice Array, it would be a disaster for Jinling. Taoist Xianzhu took out 9 talismans in a row. Driven by his own unique talisman secret technique, the power of each talisman was no weaker than a minor magical power. The 9 talismans flew towards Zhang Shi together, but Zhang Shi casually threw out a sharp blade and smashed the 9 talismans into pieces. Boom! Zhang Shi sent another palm strike towards the Profound Ice Array. Although the Profound Ice Array was mysterious, under the attack of a peak core forging cultivator like Zhang Shi, how long could it last? Originally, Xianling Sect and Songhai Sect had 2 hidden aces up their sleeves. One was naturally Lin Xuqing, who had been hidden, and the other was Zhang Shi. Unfortunately, Jinling had also hidden Guotianshan Laozu, so the main task of breaking Jinling's Profound Ice Array fell on Zhang Shi. As long as Jinling's Profound Ice Array was broken, then Xianling Sect and Songhai Sect's advantage in numbers would be fully exerted. By then, Jinling would no longer be able to keep the Spirit Stone Vein. As long as the North Sea Sect successfully suppressed Jinling this time, then the next step would be to suppress Jinling repeatedly. They must stop Jinling's rising momentum. Jinling's rise was too fast. Guotianshan was already Jinling's 10th Dharma adept, Laozu. If they didn't suppress Jinling, it was highly possible that Jinling Sect would become the next Fei Ling Sect in the North Sea. Fortunately, although Jinling had many Dharma adepts, there were no peak Dharma adepts. Otherwise, Jinling's position in the North Sea would be even more stable. If that was the case, Songhai Sect would probably have to be like Xianling Sect and rely on the East Sea or other external forces. Zhang Shi resisted Xianzhu Spiritual Master's crazy attacks while thinking about the situation in the North Sea. At the same time, he would occasionally take out his hands to attack Jinling's Profound Ice Array. However, he didn't notice that one of Jinling's mid-core forging stage cultivators was already close to the battle between Zhang Shi and Xianzhu Spiritual Master when he was chasing a mid-core forging stage cultivator from Linggu Sect. At this time, Zhang Shi was getting more and more annoyed with Xianzhu Spiritual Master's pestering. He didn't want to offend Jinling too much, but Xianzhu Spiritual Master's persistent pestering had quickly worn out his patience. This couldn't go on like this. Zhang Shi had a feeling that all along Jinling's arrangements in the North Sea couldn't be said to be flawless, but at least he hadn't suffered any major losses. This time, the various sects had joined forces to force Junling, but now, other than Guotianshan, Junling didn't seem to have any other backup. This was extremely abnormal in his opinion. The ownership of a medium-sized spirit or vein, Junling definitely wouldn't let it go so easily. He had to break the profound ice array as soon as possible, repel Junling, occupy the spirit or vein, and make it a fait accompli. Otherwise, the various sects' joint action this time was very likely to be like drawing water with a bamboo basket. Zhang Shi's thoughts rose, and the gaze he looked at Xianju's spiritual master had an additional trace of ruthlessness. Xianju's spiritual master had been closely watching Zhang Shi's every move. Seeing Zhang Shi's aura suddenly explode, how could Xianju's spiritual master not know that Zhang Shi already had the intention to kill? A purple talisman suddenly appeared from Xianju's spiritual master's chest. Xianju's spiritual master pulled with both hands, and the originally palm-sized talisman suddenly expanded. The talisman floated above Xianju's spiritual master's head, and a purple brilliance hung down, enveloping Xianju's spiritual master within. This talisman should be Xianju's spiritual master's life talisman. Xianju's spiritual master's hands waved in succession, and another 9 slightly smaller talismans were sent out, surrounding the talisman in the center of his head to form a formation. Xianju's spiritual master's heart relaxed, and just as he raised his head, he saw Zhang Shi's mocking smile. Xianju's spiritual master was startled, but he saw Zhang Shi's palms come together, and the 2 sharp blades that had previously been used to block Guotianshan and Laozu's magical techniques once again combined into a 5-foot-long sword, chopping down towards Xianju's spiritual master's head. Xianju's spiritual master patted the purple talisman above his head, and the surrounding 9 child talismans each emitted a ray of light, and after connecting with the life talisman in the center, they formed a huge purple true essence net. However, the huge sword waved down and 2 purple rays of light were cut down, and the purple true essence net immediately disintegrated. Xianju's spiritual master flew back, but there was a look of disbelief on his face. Zhang Shi's strength was actually so tyrannical. This was a kind of 9-child origin talisman that he created himself, and it formed a true essence net with his life talisman. Its defensive power was not under ordinary great magical power, but he didn't expect that it would be broken by Xianju's spiritual master with just 1 sword. Zhang Shi was about to chase after him, but his face suddenly changed. His body didn't move forward and instead retreated. He didn't have time to withdraw the flying blade sword in front of him, and he didn't have time to cast a defensive magic treasure, but his protective aura burst out from his body. However, before the 8 protective aura bursts out from Zhang Shi's body, they were cut down by an invisible magic treasure. Zhang Shi's previously changed expression became incomparably calm, and he moved sideways to avoid the vital parts of his chest. The clothes on his left shoulder were suddenly torn, and the layer of light armor covering it was also pierced. However, this layer of light armor seemed to have played its due protective role, and a wisp of blood flowed from his shoulder, but the wound was not deep. Immortal Zhang Shi turned a blind eye to Xianju's spiritual master, who had retreated dozens of feet away from him. Instead, he solemnly turned around and looked at a young cultivator beside him. He frowned and said, "What a brilliant invisible sword technique, so you have broken through to the late stage of core forging state." Lu Ping looked at the mysterious peak core forging state cultivator in front of him, then turned to the surprised Xianju's spiritual master on the other side and said, "Martial uncle, disciple's cultivation has just broken through, and I want to ask Senior Jiang for advice. At this time, the battle needs martial uncle to personally preside over. Leave this place to disciple." "Nonsense." Xianju's spiritual master refused and said, "This person's strength is not before your master entered the law phase stage. Although you hid your cultivation of the late stage of core forging state, but the day of advancement is still short, how can you be his opponent?" A blue light flashed in Lu Ping's eyes. He stretched out his hand and pointed to the void on the left. The golden scale sword turned into a golden light and slashed towards the void on the left. With a crisp sound, the golden scale sword flew back, and a sharp blade suddenly appeared in the void, swaying as if it had lost control. Ignoring the surprised look on Zhang Shi's face, Lu Ping continued to say to Xianju's spiritual master, "Martial uncle, although Senior Zhang's strength is far superior to disciple, I am afraid it will not be easy to kill disciple. Although disciple is far inferior to Senior Zhang, it will be extremely difficult for Senior Zhang to make disciple stay." Xianju's spiritual master still wanted to say something, but Jiang Shi coldly snorted and said, "In that case, neither of you will leave." At this time Jiang Shi really wanted to kill. Needless to say, Xianzhu's spiritual master, if he didn't kill him, he wouldn't be able to break Xinling's profound ice formation, and the appearance of Lu Ping made Jiang Shi even more afraid. This cultivator, who was still ranked first on the rookie list, was now at the late stage of core forging state. If it was an ordinary cultivator it would be fine, but to be on the rookie list, there was a hard rule that a cultivator must not have cultivated for more than 100 years. A late-stage core forging state cultivator who was less than 100 years old, and through the exchange between the two of them, Jiang Shi had experienced the strong Jin Yuan contained in the nether water sword by Lu Ping. How could he have imagined that his foundation would be unstable because his cultivation rose too fast? This child cannot be left alive. In time, this person will become another Jiang Tianlin. No, he will be a greater threat than Jiang Tianlin. The sharp-edged giant sword suddenly separated in mid-air again. Jiang Shi pushed Xianzhu's spiritual master with one hand and twisted his other hand toward Lu Ping. The two sharp blades formed two sharp blade storms, one for Xianzhu's spiritual master and the other for Lu Ping. Jiang Shi's two sharp blades were very strange. When they were separated, each sharp blade was a spiritual magic treasure condensed with 6 treasured restrictions. Once they were combined, their power was no different from a spiritual magic treasure. This made Lu Ping think of a magic treasure that he had relied on when he had just advanced to the core forging state, the ice and fire rings. Unfortunately, the refining method of this magic treasure should be a secret of the Crystal Palace. As the strength of Lu Ping and his spirit pets gradually increased, this set of magic treasures was rarely used. Lu Ping did not know if the treasured restrictions that Jiang Shi used to refine this set of double-edged flying swords would be helpful to the refining of the ice and fire rings. Looking at the sword storm that filled the sky, the golden scale sword in Lu Ping's hand suddenly vibrated cheerfully. With the gradual growth of the strength of Lu Ping and his spirit pets, this set of magic treasures was rarely used. Lu Ping did not know if the treasured restrictions that Jiang Shi used to refine this set of double-edged flying swords would be helpful to the refining of the ice and fire rings. Looking at the sword storm that filled the sky, the golden scale sword in Lu Ping's hand suddenly made bursts of joyful vibrations. Lu Ping flipped his hand and the golden scale sword sprinkled sword lights that filled the sky, forming a huge golden sword light vortex in front of him. Countless sword lights were arranged in an orderly manner, forming a huge sword array. Jiang Shi's sword storm swept over, but it was surrounded by Lu Ping's great sword array. The intensive sound of metal colliding covered all the sounds made by the nearby cultivators. Many early and middle core forging state cultivators looked in the direction of Lu Ping with a horrified expression. As Taoist Xianzhu blocked Jiang Shi's strike, she looked a bit tired. Obviously, the battle with Jiang Shi over this period of time had consumed a lot of her true essence. However, when Taoist Xianzhu turned to look, her face once again showed an inexplicable affection. Obviously, the battle with Jiang Shi had consumed a lot of her qi. However, when Taoist Xianzhu turned to look, her face once again showed an inexplicable emotion. She saw a golden streamer of light shooting out from the sword array that destroyed Jiang Shi's sword storm, and with lightning speed, it stabbed towards Jiang Shi. He was actually able to fight back under Jiang Shi's full power attack. Taoist Xianzhu had a complex expression as she felt the qi in her body dissipating. In a short period of time, no matter how hard she tried, she could not gather enough qi to send out a great magic that could threaten Jiang Shi. Jiang Shi looked at the golden sword light with a dignified expression. He casually stretched out his hand, and a sharp blade pierced through the air, blocking the golden scale sword. His other hand shot out an invisible qi at the other sharp blade. This sharp blade avoided the golden scale sword and slashed at the back of the golden scale sword. Dang! A touch of blue light flashed behind the golden scale sword. After the golden scale sword was parried by one of the sharp blades, the flying sword made a turn in mid-air, like a big golden fish leaping out of the water. The sharp sword tip swayed toward Jiang Shi, and countless golden lights peeled off from the golden scale sword, shrouding Jiang Shi all at once. Lu Ping and Jiang Shi exchanged dozens of moves at lightning speed. Although Lu Ping was at a disadvantage, he was still able to defend and attack at the same time. He seemed to be getting stronger as the battle dragged on. Jiang Shi and Lu Ping watched as the two of them exchanged dozens of moves. Although Lu Ping was at a disadvantage, he was able to defend and attack at times. Taoist Xianzhu sighed with a lonely expression. He didn't expect that this martial nephew really had the strength to be on equal footing with the top core forging stage cultivators. Feeling the qi in his body that had been smoothed out, Daoist Xianzhu knew that even if he joined forces with Lu Ping, at most he would only be able to suppress Zhang Shi. It was impossible to seriously injure him, let alone kill him. At this time, Junling's defense of the profound ice array was repeatedly in danger. Daoist Xianzhu saw that even if Lu Ping was at a disadvantage, Zhang Shi would not be able to do anything to him in a short period of time. Daoist Xianzhu returned to the profound ice array and commanded the cultivators on Junling's side to resist the attacks of the cultivators of the various sections. Chapter 604. The Battle of Frost Island was destined to make the two famous in the North Sea cultivation world. One was naturally Junling's third-generation disciple, number 1 on the North Sea rookie ranking, and the proud disciple of Junling's first sect master, Lu Tianling Laozu, Pill Master Spiritual Master Lu Xianping. During the Great Battle of Frost Island, this spiritual master had used his sealed cultivation at the 6th level of the core forging realm to defeat Xianling sect's genius sword cultivator, Ouyang Weijian, who was ranked second on the rookie ranking with the Great River Flow's East Sword Art. This had cemented his position as the strongest third-generation disciple of the North Sea cultivation world. After that, he killed a 7th-stage core forging cultivator from the Azure Sea sect. However, what was even more shocking was that during the battle against Zhenling sect, enlightened Master Lu Xianping, who had just broken through to the 7th-stage core forging realm, fought against enlightened Master Zhang Shi from the Azure Sea sect, who truly represented the peak of the North Sea's core forging realm. Although perfected Lu Xianping was at a disadvantage in this battle, perfected Zhang Shi could not do anything to perfected Lu Xianping. After this battle, the title of Water Sword Immortal was well deserved and was no longer limited to the younger generation of cultivators in the North Sea cultivation world. The second famous person was Junling's formation master, spiritual master Xianchen. The great profound ice formation she set up on Frost Island allowed Junling's side to firmly defend the medium-sized spirit mine under Junling's feet with less than half the strength of the other 6 sections. This prevented the other 6 sects from successfully suppressing Junling by seizing the spirit mine. The most special thing about the great profound ice formation was that in a battle of great disparity in strength in the cultivation world, the weaker side could only rely on the power of the formation to passively defend. In the past, when two sides fought, if there was a great disparity in strength, the weaker side could only passively defend inside the formation. Once they attacked, it was very likely that they would be surrounded and attacked. Therefore, the weaker side rarely had the chance to turn defeat into victory. However, the mystical ice formation that spiritual master Xianchen had designed greatly alleviated the predicament of the defending side. Although a cultivator could not leave the mystical ice formation to fight from a distance, they could freely enter and exit the mystical ice formation and fight with the enemy under the protection of the mystical ice formation. This greatly weakened the advantage of the attacking side, giving the weaker side another trump card to turn defeat into victory. Unfortunately, this magic array was the creation of the current cultivation world sage Xianchen. Even if the other sects wanted to learn it, they would not be able to. In fact, the moment the mystical ice shield appeared, the cultivators from Xianling sect and Songhai sect quickly discovered that the only flaw of the mystical ice shield was the spiritual energy threads that maintained it. As long as the spiritual energy threads were cut, the mystical ice shield would not be able to sustain itself without the spiritual energy supply from the mystical ice formation. Of course, the defending side naturally wouldn't let the opponent succeed so easily. Moreover, the threads of spiritual power weren't that easy to cut. At the very least, the threads of spiritual power behind a transcendent stage cultivator couldn't be cut by a mid-core forging stage cultivator. Because of the protection of the mystical ice shield, Lu Ping had an additional protective talisman that was no less powerful than a spirit summoning treasure. This allowed Lu Ping to face Zhang Shi's storm-like attacks, reducing the pressure on his defense by a lot. This allowed Lu Ping to find the right time to counterattack. Relying on his exquisite swordsmanship, the golden scale sword and the aqua sword, he was able to temporarily restrain Zhang Shi's attacks. The water-controlling flag fluttered in the wind above Lu Ping's head. White lotus flowers floated down from the water curtain hanging down from the flag. Combined with the mystical ice shield, each lotus flower was able to withstand a sudden attack from Zhang Shi's sharp blade. Lu Ping, who no longer had to worry about his defense, unleashed his swordsmanship with the water nether sword and the golden scale sword to the extreme, launching a battle with Zhang Shi that could be said to be at the peak of the core forging realm. The Great River Flow's East Sword technique, the 100 Rivers Flow into the Sea Sword technique, the true chi sword technique, the torrent of sword technique, the green dragon disturbing the sea sword technique, the shapeless sword technique, and so on. Each of these sword techniques was at least at the level of a minor magical power, especially the shapeless sword technique. After the aqua sword's quality had risen to the level of a spirit summoning treasure, the power of the shapeless sword technique had gone a step further. In Lu Ping's hands, the power of the shapeless sword technique was no weaker than a great magical power sword technique. However, because of the innate strangeness of the shapeless sword technique, the power of the shapeless sword technique was weaker than a real great magical power sword technique. In addition, there were various swordsmanship techniques that Lu Ping had studied and learned, and their power was also quite impressive. Although there was still a gap between them and a real great magical power sword technique, Lu Ping was able to use these sword techniques under the most appropriate circumstances, and he was able to achieve an effect that was similar to a great magical power sword technique. The more Jianghu fought, the more shocked he became. In terms of swordsmanship alone, Lu Ping's current achievements were already comparable to those of a true grandmaster swordsman. Jianghu was able to suppress Lu Ping only because he had a much higher level of cultivation than Lu Ping. Furthermore, Jianghu could feel that once Lu Ping advanced to the 8th stage of the core forging stage, the one who would be suppressed would be Jianghu himself. Who was Jianghu? He was a person who could take a blow from a Dharma adept as a peak core forging stage adept and come out unscathed. How many people like that were there in the North Sea, and how many in the entire world of cultivation? Jianghu had the intention to kill Lu Ping. Killing Lu Ping might mean killing Jinling's future powerful adept. However, Jianghu had to admit that at this moment he no longer had the ability to kill Lu Ping. Even without the Dark Ice Shield, with Lu Ping's strength, Jianghu would not be able to stop him if he wanted to leave. Jianghu could call for help from other adepts to encircle and kill Lu Ping, but Jianghu could not bring himself to be so thick-skinned. Not to mention Jianghu's status in the North Sea cultivation world, just Lu Ping's identity as a third-generation disciple alone made Jianghu's face burn. Moreover, Lu Ping was not a fool. Once Jianghu called for help, would he wait for others to encircle and attack him? Just as Jianghu was racking his brains on how to make Lu Ping stay, he suddenly noticed from the corner of his eye that Shui Wuhuan, the spiritual master of Shui Yen Pavilion, was fighting with Jinling, a late core forging stage adept. Intentionally or unintentionally, he was constantly moving closer to the area where the two were fighting. Ever since the battle between Lu Ping and Jianghu, although the spiritual energy storm caused by their battle couldn't affect the other cultivators like Transcendence cultivators, the power of their sword techniques still caused some weaker cultivators to hide far away, leaving the battlefield between Jianghu and Lu Ping completely empty. Jianghu's heart moved and he suddenly remembered a rumor from decades ago in the cultivation world. It was said that when Lu Tianling had just become a Transcendence cultivator, he once took revenge for his disciple Lu Xianping, and destroyed a great ability that Shui Wuhuan had painstakingly cultivated. Finding Lu Tianling for revenge, Shui Wuhuan naturally didn't even think about it. At this moment, Shui Wuhuan was taking advantage of the chaotic battle to get closer and closer to the battlefield. Her goal was naturally self-evident. Jianghu was just worrying about how to use others to surround and kill Lu Ping, so seeing Shui Wuhuan like this was exactly what he wanted. Looking at Lu Ping who was focused on attacking him, Jianghu pulled himself together and threw himself into the battle with Lu Ping with all his strength. He had to attract all of his attention, only then would Shui Wuhuan have the chance to succeed in her sneak attack. Ever since Shui Wuhuan's great ability was destroyed by Lu Tianling, her cultivation foundation had been greatly damaged. In these past few years, Shui Wuhuan's cultivation could be said to have stagnated. She had been working hard to repair her foundation, hoping that there would be a chance for her to enter the transcendent stage in the future. Shui Wuhuan's hatred towards Jinling could be said to be unforgettable. This time, when all the sects of Frost Island joined forces to encircle and kill Jinling, Shui Wuhuan didn't care that her cultivation hadn't fully recovered and insisted on following her sect's Misty Laozu to Frost Island. She wanted to take the opportunity to kill a few cultivators of Jinling and also vent the resentment in her heart. However, she didn't expect that the person who had almost destroyed her cultivation all those years ago had also come to Frost Island. Ever since she discovered Lu Ping, Shui Wuhuan deliberately hid her figure to prevent Lu Ping from noticing her. However, what shocked Shui Wuhuan was that in just a few decades, Lu Ping's cultivation had already reached a level that left Shui Wuhuan dumbfounded. How many core forging stage cultivators in the North Sea cultivation world could fight evenly with Jianghu? At least, Shui Wuhuan knew that she couldn't do it, and after her great ability was destroyed by Lu Tianling, she couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't let this kid grow any further. This person must die. Shui Wuhuan's thoughts coincided with Zhang Xi's at this moment, and they were highly similar, even more so than Zhang Xi's. Zhang Xi watched as Zhang Xi intentionally or unintentionally changed her position, gradually exposing Lu Ping's back to spiritual master Shui Wuhuan's eyes during the battle with Lu Ping. Seeing that spiritual master Shui Wuhuan had suddenly broken away from the Jinling cultivators she was fighting and was rushing towards Lu Ping's back, Zhang Xi didn't hold back anymore. Her figure suddenly exploded, and the two sharp blades formed a whirlwind of blades in the air, just like how she had blocked Guo Tianshan and Lao Zu's divine arts before, and pierced towards Lu Ping's profound ice barrier. Shui Wuhuan was overjoyed. The water mist muslin in her hand shot out, and like a spirit snake, it shot towards Lu Ping's body to bind him. However, what the two of them didn't know was that, in terms of cultivation, Lu Ping was the weakest of the three. In terms of strength, Lu Ping couldn't compare to Zhang Xi, but in terms of divine sense cultivation, the two of them were far beyond Lu Ping's reach. Even Zhang Xi's peak core forging cultivation wasn't enough. With such a divine sense cultivation, Lu Ping could see everything around him, so how could he not discover the sneaky Shui Wuhuan behind him? The reason why he pretended not to discover her was because Lu Ping had a bold idea. He wanted to use this opportunity to kill Shui Wuhuan in one fell swoop. Just when Shui Wuhuan thought that under her and Zhang Xi's joint attack, Lu Ping would definitely be seriously injured, she saw the moment her water mist muslin bound Lu Ping's entire body suddenly turned into a ball of flowing water. Shit, I've been tricked. Shui Wuhuan panicked, and then she heard a sudden clap of thunder above her head. Chapter 605. The art of sea deception was able to fool the vengeful and weakened Shui Wuhuan, but it couldn't fool Zhang Xi. Just as Lu Ping moved his body, Zhang Xi's blade storm slashed towards an empty place in the void. The golden scale sword abruptly appeared in the void, and Zhang Xi activated the great divine ability of the sword art of 100 rivers into the sea. The entire void turned into a golden sea, and layers of golden sparks rose in the sky to meet Zhang Xi's sharp blade storm. The sound of popping rose one after another, attracting the attention of all the core forging cultivators within a radius of several miles. However, after Zhang Xi's blade storm fused with the two blades, it had risen to the level of a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Although the golden scale sword had reached the peak of the spirit-nurturing magic treasure, it was still only condensed with 6 treasured restrictions. In addition, Lu Ping's strength was slightly weaker than Zhang Xi's, so Lu Ping's sword art great divine ability was broken by the blade storm. Even so, Zhang Xi's blade storm was still weakened by a lot. However, at this time, Lu Ping didn't care about Zhang Xi's weakened blade storm. Instead, he pointed one hand to the sky and the other to the ground, muttering an incantation. Suddenly, a deafening clap of thunder resounded in the sky. At the same time, Shui Wuhuan Shui Yensha had just stirred up the water statue left behind by Lu Ping. Her shocked expression was awakened by the sudden clap of thunder in the sky. When she looked up, her face was covered with a layer of panic. A bucket-thick 7-colored lightning opened up a zigzagging path in the sky, and finally fell on Shui Wuhuan's head. Lu Ping didn't dare to summon the 7-treasure thunder calabash in front of everyone. However, after the 7-treasure thunder calabash had condensed 3 spirit-nurturing magic treasures, although Lu Ping didn't have time to use the corresponding natural treasures to enhance the 7-treasure thunder calabash's power, the power of the 7 treasures thunder calabash's 7 thunder fusion magic treasures was much more tyrannical than ordinary great divine abilities. The blade storm shredded Lu Ping's profound ice shield in one fell swoop, and the water curtain hanging down from the water control flag grew dimmer and dimmer. Just as it was about to be broken, a snow-white lotus suddenly appeared under Lu Ping's feet. The lotus bloomed into 9 petals, and when each petal bloomed, 6 dense chi floated out from the petals and floated into the water control flag's water curtain. Although the storm of sharp blades was crazily slicing at the water curtain hanging down from the flag, it seemed like there was only a thin layer of light left before it could completely kill Lu Ping. However, this thin layer of light was still as tough as iron. It firmly blocked Zhang Xi's powerful spells from reaching it. Zhang Xi helplessly withdrew his artifact. Right now he had already tried his best. If he attacked again, he wouldn't be able to pose a threat to Lu Ping in a hurry. He could only look at spiritual master Shui Wuhuan below with a slightly regretful expression, and just happened to hear Spiritual Master Shui Wuhuan's great divine ability screams spread across the entire Frost Island. Spiritual Master Shui Wuhuan, who couldn't withdraw his natal artifact in time, was suddenly covered by a layer of green mist. The moment the green mist formed, it turned into a 5 feet thick layer of solid ice on top of Spiritual Master Shui Wuhuan's head. Lu Ping's expression changed. This layer of green mist was obviously a kind of ice fiend that had been formed for more than 3,000 to 5,000 years. This kind of ice fiend was of a much higher quality than the profound ice fiend that Lu Ping had obtained on Frost Island. It was just right for Lu Ping to use to condense the 7 Thunder Treasures calabash to advance his spirit channeling artifact. However, the solid ice formed by this layer of ice fiend was far from being able to withstand the 7 Thunder fusion art of the 7 Thunder Treasures calabash. The solid ice was blasted apart by the lightning, and amidst Spiritual Master Shui Wuhuan's blood-curdling screams, half of Spiritual Master Shui Wuhuan's body was charred black by the 7-colored lightning. However, this degree of injury was still far from being able to kill Shui Wuhuan. Although Shui Wuhuan's body was already heavily injured, his consciousness was still intact. The light beneath his feet continuously flickered as he attempted to flee towards the Water Mist Pavilion's camp. At this moment, Zhang Shi couldn't just watch as Lu Ping died. His twin blades struck out once again, attacking towards the left and right of Lu Ping with the intention of stopping Lu Ping from intercepting Shui Wuhuan. However, a small boat suddenly appeared beneath Lu Ping's feet. The small boat flashed across the sky and disappeared. While Zhang Shi was still in a daze, his twin blades struck empty air. Ocean-crossing boat. Isn't this the flying artifact that Jinling Heavenly Phenomenon Laozu used back then? How did it end up in his hands? Zhang Shi muttered to himself. A bad premonition seemed to be growing clearer and clearer in his mind. Seeing that she was getting closer and closer to the Water Mist Pavilion's camp, Shui Wuhuan had long since lost all thoughts of vengeance. At this moment, there was only a single thought in her mind, and that was to escape. She had to escape with her life first. Seeing the Water Mist Pavilion's cultivators rushing over to receive her, Shui Wuhuan's heart was instantly filled with the joy of survival. However, at this moment, before her pitch-black face that no longer listened to her orders revealed even the slightest twitch, she saw the gazes of the Water Mist Pavilion's senior and junior sisters suddenly filled with shock and fury. There were even a few of them who shouted out furiously. "This is..." Daoist Shui Wuhuan instantly came to a realization. When he raised his head with great difficulty, he saw a large silver jade seal descending from the sky. At the bottom of the large seal, the 2 words "landslide" were inscribed. The desire to survive caused Daoist Shui Wuhuan to erupt with the last of his potential. He raised his hands upwards, and the true essence in his entire body flowed in the opposite direction. The half of his body that had long since been charred continuously disintegrated into black powder, while the other half of his body that was still in good condition had blood continuously bursting from the surface of his skin. However, at this moment, Landslide was no longer an ordinary magic treasure. Instead, it was a spiritual magic treasure that had condensed 2 spiritual treasure restrictions. Even though the heavily injured Daoist Shui Wuhuan had reversed his true essence, it was still like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The iron seal that descended with a loud rumble smashed Daoist Shui Wuhuan into a pile of meat paste. A famous Water Mist Pavilion's 8th layer core forging stage cultivator had fallen just like that. Landslide flew backwards, turned into the size of a palm, and fell into the hands of Lu Ping, who had just rushed over. The Water Mist Pavilion's cultivators were riled up, and surrounded Lu Ping. Lu Ping was startled. At this time he had just gone through a series of battles. Although he had plotted against Shui Wuhuan during his battle with Zhang Shi to take advantage of him, Lu Ping's spirit was still somewhat exhausted. It wasn't that Lu Ping's true essence was insufficient. After successively refining a portion of Profound Essence Heavy Water and 2 portions of 10,000 Wonder Jade Nectar, and advancing to the late stage of core forging stage, the density of the true essence in Lu Ping's body could only be described as inhuman. Although this battle was fierce, it was still too far away from exhausting his true essence. It was just that this kind of mental exhaustion caused Lu Ping to have a feeling of weariness for the battle. Therefore, before the Water Mist Pavilion could surround him, Lu Ping had already jumped out of the encirclement and returned to the Profound Ice Array. Lu Ping turned to look at Zhang Shi, who was on the other side. He was somewhat baffled as to why Zhang Shi would allow him to return to the Profound Ice Array without making a move to intercept him. However, Lu Ping's attention was immediately attracted by Jinling's situation behind the Profound Ice Array. The battle between Lu Ping and Zhang Shi, and the killing of the Water Mist Pavilion's veteran late core forging cultivator, Shui Wuhuan, had greatly boosted the morale of Jinling's side. When Lu Ping returned to the Profound Ice Array, Xianzhu, Xianhui, Zhang Xianbei, Xianyu, and Li Xuanru, the 5 third-generation disciples who had just advanced to the late core forging realm, rushed out of the Profound Ice Array under the leadership of Taoist Xianzhu. They blocked all the Water Mist Pavilion cultivators who had chased after Lu Ping outside the Profound Ice Array. In fact, this time Jinling's third-generation disciples and Lu Ping had advanced to the late core forging realm. This was an achievement that all the sects in the North Sea were envious of. Other than Jinling, although Xianling's sect and the other sects had also participated in the Fantasy Spirit Cities auction, their harvest was far inferior to Jinling's. According to Jinling's understanding, even with the help of Xianling's sect and the Crystal Palace, only 3 third-generation disciples had advanced to the late core forging realm this time. This was far from being comparable to Jinling's. Other than Lu Ping, these 5 people had also performed quite well in this battle on Frost Island. They were able to contend against some of the second-generation disciples who were at the late core forging realm from other sections. However, the attention that these 5 people had originally attracted was completely stolen by Lu Ping. However, Lu Ping's brilliance was unable to cover up the fact that Jinling was at a complete disadvantage and could only defend passively. Although Jinling had used the Profound Ice Barrier's defensive ability to unexpectedly injure several late core forging cultivators from other sects, and Lu Ping had even killed a late core forging cultivator from Blue Sea sect, Shui Wuhuan from Shui Yen Pavilion, and 2 middle core forging cultivators, the number of cultivators from other sects far exceeded Jinling's side. After the initial panic, all the sects had finally regrouped. The cultivators that Jinling had used to go out to fight with the Profound Ice Barrier had no choice but to retreat back into the Profound Ice Formation under the encirclement of the other sects and start to defend passively. However, what worried Jinling was not just how long the Profound Ice Formation could last under the attacks of the other sects, but also the 11 Dharma adepts who were fighting in the sky, Laozu. Although Jinling had Guotianshan Laozu on his side, Xianling's sect had also hidden Lin Shuqing. Xianling's sect and Blue Sea sect had always maintained the advantage of 1 Dharma adept, and it was this Laozu's advantage. At this time, the spirit energy cloud map occupied by Jinling's side had shrunk from 1/3 of the sky to 1/4 of the sky. Haha, Jinling, fellow Taoists of Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect, are you still planning to resist stubbornly at this point? I think it's best for you to retreat from Frost Island and preserve your strength. Otherwise, once we completely fall out, don't blame us for being ruthless. A middle-aged cultivator's voice carried a trace of pride in the sky as his voice spread throughout the entire Frost Island. Oh. A calm voice suddenly came from the direction of the transportation formation behind Jinling. You're Donghua, aren't you? If you want to be ruthless to me, Jinling, why don't you try it on the old man first? Lu Ping was overjoyed. When everyone looked behind him, they saw a familiar figure. He looked like an ordinary old man, and there was not a trace of spirit energy on his body as he slowly walked through the air towards them. Chapter 606. Donghua, if you want to be cruel to me, Jinling, why don't you try it on the old man now? The old man floated down from the sky. There was not a single trace of spiritual energy around him, as if he was just an ordinary person. However, when the old man appeared, not only was there not a trace of spiritual energy around him, even the spiritual energy storm that had been stirred up by the hundreds of cultivators on Frost Island gradually calmed down. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. It's Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. He's back from the East Sea. This is bad. Xianling sect and Songhai sect are in for it this time. The arrival of Celestial Phenomenon Laozu made the cultivators of Jinling overjoyed, and the cultivators of Chongming sect and Yujian sect also relaxed. On the side of the Songhai sect, Zhang Shi looked at the old man in the sky, whose sleeves were fluttering in the wind. His expression was unusually ugly. A late Dharma adept. Celestial Phenomenon has actually successfully passed the tribulation of the mid-Dharma stage and become a great adept. He's the second great adept in the North Sea. With the 10 Dharma adepts of Jinling, which sect in the North Sea can still take him down? Celestial Phenomenon Laozu waved his sleeves, and the sky was instantly filled with the sound of wind and thunder. The 2 clouds of spiritual energy that had covered the sky instantly dissipated, and the 11 Dharma adepts in the sky slowly descended from the sky in 2 camps. Tianjiang Laozu, Tianlu Laozu, and Guotianshan Laozu saw that it was Celestial Phenomenon Laozu, but their expressions did not change. It was obvious that they already knew that celestial phenomenon Laozu would appear. Sanming Laozu and Tongjian Laozu, on the other hand, were full of surprise. They looked at each other and saw a trace of joy in each other's eyes. Junling was now like the sun in the sky in the North Sea. Now that celestial phenomenon Laozu had advanced to the late Dharma stage, Junling was undoubtedly the #1 sect in the North Sea. This time, Chongming sect and Yujian sect stood on Junling's side without hesitation. The two hurriedly went forward with Tianjiang and Tianlu Laozu. First brother. Uncle. Tianjiang Laozu, Tianlu Laozu, and Guotianshan Laozu stepped forward and greeted him. Tongjian of Yujian sect and Sanming of Chongming sect pay their respects to Celestial Phenomenon Adept. Congratulations to Senior Brother Celestial Phenomenon for overcoming the tribulation and advancing to the next level. After Celestial Phenomenon Laozu had advanced to the late Dharma stage, Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu had subconsciously lowered their statuses, as if they were half a generation lower in front of Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu returned their greetings with a smile and said, "This time, Junling was able to overcome this tribulation thanks to the help of the two of you and your disciples. When you return, I hope that the two of you can express my gratitude to Brother Yujian and Brother Shouming." After Celestial Phenomenon Laozu exchanged greetings with the few Laozu on his side, he turned around to look at the 6 early Dharma adepts. His gaze lingered on Lin Xuqing for a moment before shifting to the 2 Laozu leaders, Feng Shidao and Donghua Laozu. When Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's gaze landed on Lin Xuqing, he felt as if his body had been pierced by a pair of sharp swords. He had only felt such a feeling from Daoxing Laozu. After Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's gaze moved away from him, Lin Xuqing could vaguely feel that his back was already soaked in cold sweat. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's arrival seemed to have instantly become the center of attention of the entire Frost Island. Even Donghua Laozu, Feng Shidao, and the rest did not dare to act rashly in front of him. They were all Dharma adepts, but no one would have thought that the difference between an early Dharma adept and a late Dharma adept would be so huge. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu looked at Donghua Laozu and said with a smile, "Donghua, does the old man still remember what you said earlier?" At this moment, Donghua Laozu no longer had the same high spirits as before. When he heard Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's words, cold sweat instantly flowed down his forehead and down his face. However, he did not dare to wipe it away. His mouth moved, but he did not say a word. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's expression immediately darkened. He snorted coldly and said, "Donghua, how dare you? Even the East Pole and East E would not dare to act so presumptuously in front of the old man. What are you trying to do, Donghua?" Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's cold snort was no less than a clap of thunder in Donghua Laozu's divine sense. Every word that came out of Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's mouth was like a talisman that was deeply imprinted in Donghua Laozu's divine sense. Then it exploded. By the time Celestial Phenomenon Laozu had finished speaking, Donghua Laozu was already bleeding from his nose and mouth. His face was pale and he looked like he was about to collapse. The entire Frost Island fell silent after Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's words fell. The 6 Xianling sect and Blue Sea sects Laozu actually did not dare to move in the slightest in front of Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's prestige. After a while, 2 awkward laughs suddenly rang out. Yanming Laozu of the Water Mist Pavilion and Songli Laozu of the Sea Flame sect cupped their fists at Celestial Phenomenon Laozu and said, "Congratulations, Brother Celestial Phenomenon, for becoming the 2nd Dharma cultivator in the North Sea cultivation world. Since there is a Dharma cultivator in Jinling, it is only natural for them to occupy a mid-sized spirit mine. Our sects will not participate in today's matter." After that, Patriarch Smoke Dragon and Patriarch Tsongli each took their disciples and withdrew from the alliance with Xianling sect and Songhai sect. All the sects secretly cursed these 2 sects for being shameless, but these 2 sects had always been swaying in the North Sea. Moreover, these 2 sects advanced and retreated together in the North Sea cultivation world. Even large sects like Xianling sect and Zhenling sect usually didn't want to offend them too much. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu suddenly raised his head and said, "Are Brother Daoxing and Brother East Pole here? The old man has been waiting here for a long time." As soon as Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's voice fell, the cultivators from the various sects were in an uproar again. Among them, when the Xianling sect cultivators heard that their Dharma cultivators had arrived, their faces instantly lit up with joy. The Blue Sea sect cultivators also looked much better. At first, the cultivators on Jinling's side were a little restless, but when they saw Celestial Phenomenon Laozu standing there calmly, the cultivators on Jinling's side quickly calmed down and followed Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's gaze to the rear of Xianling sect and Blue Sea sect's camp. Dao Xing Laozu and East Pole Laozu's faces were a little unsightly. This time, the two sects had meticulously laid out a plan to contain more than half of Jinling's forces in the North Sea, but they never expected that Celestial Phenomenon would overcome the lightning tribulation in the East Sea, suddenly appearing at the critical moment when Jinling was about to be forced to submit. In one fell swoop, the two sects' plan was foiled, and on the contrary, it once again helped Jinling's power in the North Sea. When Dao Xing Laozu arrived in front of Celestial Phenomenon, he suddenly let out a sound as if he had discovered something. After which, he looked at Celestial Phenomenon in front of him strangely and said coldly, "At this time, I'm afraid that Tianfan and Tianshui are about to arrive. This time, since your sect has the upper hand, we will admit defeat." East Pole Laozu saw that Dao Xing Laozu had a strange look on his face, and he was stunned for a moment. After which, he seemed to have discovered something and looked at Donghua Laozu, who had been injured by Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. He thought to himself that this time, junior brother Donghua's advancement to the mid-Dharma stage might have to be delayed once again. Fortunately, Celestial Phenomenon also had his reservations and did not injure junior brother Donghua's foundation. Otherwise, even if the Blue Sea sect became the spearhead of the other sects, they would still make Jinling pay the price. Although that was the case, when East Pole Laozu saw Donghua Laozu's pitiful appearance, he was still secretly shocked. The means of a late Dharma adept was indeed hard to predict. A door of ice and snow was formed. After the door opened, a gentle breeze blew in, and then Tianshui and Tianfan, the two Jinling Laozu, walked out from the door. When the various sects saw the arrival of these two, their hearts sank even more. In the eyes of the other North Sea cultivators, these two joining forces actually represented the strength of a great cultivator. "Since everyone is here, then let's talk." Tianxiang Laozu's voice was still calm. After Tianfan and Tianshui Laozu arrived, the two of them first closed their eyes and hovered in the air, as if they were performing some kind of secret technique. After a while, Tianshui Laozu said with some surprise, "I was wondering why senior brother called the two of us over. So there's actually such a relic hidden under this frost island." When Tianshui Laozu's words reached the ears of the many cultivators on the island, it caused another commotion. Even Tianlu Laozu, Donghua Laozu, and the others revealed surprised expressions. Lu Ping stood among the Jinling cultivators. When he heard Tianshui Laozu's words, he used his divine sense to permeate the ice and snow beneath his feet. However, even when he reached the limit of his divine sense, he still did not find anything. It should be known that the current Lu Ping's divine sense was no longer below that of an ordinary early Dharma adept. When Lu Ping raised his head to look, he realized that it was not only him. Even Gua Tianshan Laozu, Tianjiang Laozu, Sanming, Tongjian Laozu, and the others had confused expressions on their faces. Clearly, they did not find any clues about the relic that Tianshui Laozu mentioned. However, immediately after that, Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He recalled that when they first discovered the large spirit mine on Frost Island, the various sects cultivators were attacked by the Ice Shura. After that, they followed the Ice Shura's tracks and found a long-distance teleportation formation that had been destroyed. At that time, some cultivators who were proficient in teleportation formations discovered that this teleportation formation should be connected to the Central Plains. Unfortunately, the teleportation formation that connected to the Central Plains had also been destroyed. Even if they repaired the abandoned teleportation formation, they would not be able to reach the Central Plains. After that, the various sects regretfully gave up on this matter. Naturally, the various sects cultivators also thought that this teleportation formation would not have been built here for no reason. They suspected that there should be some relic left here. Unfortunately, the Dharma adepts of the various sects, including Lu Tianling and Laozu, were unable to find any traces of the relic left on Frost Island. After that, they continued to mine the spirit mine. Even after a few decades, they still did not find anything. In the end, they could only leave it at that. From the looks of it now, it was obvious that at that time, Laozu's strength was not enough to discover the relic that had been hidden on Frost Island. There were many cultivators who knew about the teleportation formation on Frost Island back then. Seeing how certain Laozu was, everyone quickly connected the matter of the relic with the teleportation formation back then. "Brother Tianxiang, what is your plan?" Although Dao Xing Laozu and Dongji Laozu had lost in this scheme, Dao Xing Laozu was, after all, the #1 cultivator in the North Sea. Even if Tianxiang Laozu had become a great cultivator, His strength was definitely not a match for this cultivator who had been in the late Dharma stage for more than 100 years. At that moment, after exchanging glances with Dongji Laozu, Daoxing Laozu stepped forward to negotiate with Tianxiang Laozu. Tianxiang Laozu smiled slightly and said, "This medium spirit mine is recorded under Jinling's name. Previously, it has already been approved by the Haiyan sect and the Shuiyan Pavilion. I believe the two of you have no objections." Chapter 607. Tianxiang Laozu smiled and said, "This medium spirit mine is under Jinling's name, and it has already been approved by both the Haiyan sect and the Shuiyan Pavilion. I believe the two of you have no objections." On the periphery of the confrontation, although the Haiyan sect and the Shuiyan Pavilion had expressed that they would no longer participate in the matter of the medium spirit mine, the people of these two sects did not retreat, but stood far away on the periphery. Especially after Daoxing Laozu and the others arrived, Yanming Laozu and Songli Laozu keenly sensed something. As expected, after Tianshui Laozu said that there was a relic hidden in Frost Island, the two naturally did not dare to delay and hurriedly sent the news back to their sects, informing the mid-Dharma adepts of their sections. At this time, the only ones who were qualified to participate in the matter were the guardian Laozu of each sect. The other sects such as Chongming, Jade Sword, Linggu, and Feiyu cultivators also informed the mid-Dharma adepts of their sects, Laozu. Naturally, Patriarch Celestial and the others noticed what the cultivators from the other sects were doing. However, they did not say anything about it. Instead, they used the Water Mist Pavilion and Ocean Flame sect as shields to occupy the mid-sized spirit mine first. At this time, Yanming Laozu and Songli Laozu looked a little embarrassed. Daoxing Laozu glanced at the two of them and said coldly, "Since Brother Tianxiang insists on this spirit mine, then this spirit mine will be given to your sect. There are so many cultivators here today and they can be witnesses. We should wait for the other friends to arrive, and then we can discuss how to excavate this relic." "No hurry." Daoxing Laozu's face turned cold, but Tianxiang Laozu smiled and said, "This spirit mine originally belonged to our sect. It was your sect who was jealous and joined forces with other sects to snatch it. Now that your sect has failed, how can you say that it will be given to us? Brother Daoxing, are you muddle-headed?" Daoxing Laozu said coldly, "Then what does Brother Tianxiang mean? Could it be that your sect wants compensation from us? Brother Qianxiang, do you really think that no one in the North Sea can deal with your sect?" Daoxing Laozu deliberately said this, but it made Yanming Laozu and Songli Laozu, who originally planned to stay out of this matter, change their expressions. Both of them looked at Tianxiang Laozu with bright eyes, waiting for his answer. Tianxiang Laozu looked at the Ocean Flame sect and Water Mist Pavilion in the distance, and said unhurriedly, "Brother Daoxing, you think too much. This time the other sects besieged our Frost Island spirit mine. I think the other sects were just fooled by Brother Daoxing and Brother Eastern Pole. Junior Brother Dongwa of the Blue Sea sect has already been punished by the old man, so this matter is over with the Blue Sea sect. I wonder if the old man thinks so. How about Brother Eastern Pole, Water Mist Pavilion and Ocean Flame sect?" Daoxing Laozu's expression changed, but before he could say anything, another two doors opened in the void in the sky, and two voices came from the doors saying, "Brother Tianxiang is right, the matter of Water Mist Pavilion and Ocean Flame sect working together with Jinling on Frost Island is over." Daoxing Laozu's expression changed, and before he could say anything, two mid-Dharma adepts walked out of the door. This mid-Dharma adept Laozu walked straight to the Ocean Flame sect and Water Mist Pavilion cultivators, and Yanming Laozu and Songli Laozu hurriedly went forward to greet him. Tianxiang Laozu was obviously trying to drive a wedge between the two sects, but these two sects had always been seeking benefits. Previously they had only allied with Xianling sect and Blue Sea sect because of the benefits promised by the two sections. Now that they could not get any benefits, and they might even offend the powerful Jinling, they naturally had to quickly draw a clear line between Xianling sect and Blue Sea sect. At this time East Pole Laozu spoke, "Ah, so it's Sister Yinyu from Water Mist Pavilion and Brother Tsangqi from Ocean Flame sect. Nice to meet you." After greeting the two mid-Dharma adepts, East Pole Laozu turned a blind eye to Daoxing Laozu's piercing gaze, and turned to Tianxiang Laozu saying, "Since Brother Tianxiang no longer wants to pursue the matter of the spirit mine, then the Blue Sea sect will also write off the injury of Brother Dongwa from our sect." Daoxing Laozu said angrily, East Pole Laozu turned to Daoxing Laozu and said indifferently, "Brother Daoxing, I'm really sorry. After all, our Blue Sea sect has just merged and it's really not good to make too many enemies. I East Pole have to be responsible for the thousands of cultivators in Blue Sea sect. Good. Dao Xing Laozu was so angry that he laughed and turned to Tianxiang Laozu saying, Brother Tianxiang is really good. With just a simple gesture, you dissolved the alliance between our sections. Dao Xing really admires you. Tianxiang Laozu said indifferently, Brother Dao Xing, you flatter me. The old man is just stating the facts. But speaking of your sect, this time I Jinling would like to talk about the loss that Brother Dao Xing has suffered. Dao Xing Laozu calmed down at this time and said, Brother Tianxiang, if you have any ideas, please say it. I Dao Xing will accept it. Tianxiang Laozu smiled and said, In that case, old man will not be unreasonable. This time the loss that your sect has caused to our sect is really huge. Apart from the dozens of disciples who died, there is also a large amount of spiritual stones spent in the profound ice formation. My request is not too excessive. Our two sects will take 25% of the large spirit vein. Originally, it should be divided equally, but now I think I Jinling will take 15%, and the remaining 10% will belong to your sect. What do you think, Brother Dao Xing? Dao Xing Laozu's expression changed. He stared at Tianxiang Laozu and said, Tianxiang, don't go too far. The large spirit vein on Frost Island could be said to be an important source of spiritual stones in the cultivation world of the North Sea. Therefore, it was also an important foundation for the cultivation of the North Sea cultivators. It could be said that every bit of the share was a large amount of spiritual stones, enough for all sects to fight for it. This point could actually be seen from Jinling's medium-sized spirit vein. For the ownership of a medium-sized spirit vein, the top 10 sects of the North Sea were actually involved. Only one last step was left for a great battle in the North Sea cultivation world. However, the importance of a large spirit vein was not only in this aspect. The more important significance of a large spirit vein was that it could produce extremely stable top-grade spiritual stones, and the top-grade spiritual stones were an important foundation for the cultivation of Dharma manifestation cultivators. Tianxiang Laozu's expression immediately darkened when he saw Dao Xing Laozu's anxiety. He said coldly, So, Brother Xing, you don't agree? Tian Shuer and Tian Fan, who were standing behind Tianxiang Laozu, immediately took a step forward and stood behind Tianxiang Laozu, glaring at Dao Xing Laozu like a tiger watching its prey. It looked like they would start a fight if there was any disagreement. Dao Xing Laozu looked at the three people in front of him with cold eyes. Tianxiang and the others were also calm and unruffled. Feng Shutao, who was standing behind Dao Xing Laozu, could no longer hold it in and said angrily, You Jinling have gone too far. That fellow Taoist Dongguo was injured by you, so we can call it even. The other sects besieged you Jinling, and we can also let bygones be bygones. But you want to target my Xianling sect? When you returned from the East Sea, my uncle Master Daoyan was also injured by you. Lin Shuqing, who was standing beside Feng Shutao, hurriedly pulled on his clothes, telling him to stop talking. However, in his rage, Feng Shutao did not think that there was anything wrong with his words. Dao Xing Laozu suddenly turned his head and said angrily, Shut up, idiot. Feng Shutao stared blankly at the enraged Dao Xing Laozu. After a while he finally reacted. When he looked around, he saw that Laozu from the other sects were looking at Feng Shutao with hostility. Instantly, he knew that he had fallen into Tianxiang's trap. Lu Ping looked at Feng Shutao, this Laozu, with amusement. Jinling had used his own strength to force the North Sea sects to clean up their own mess. His goal was to isolate Xianling sect from the other sects in the North Sea. It could be said that this had caused some of the cultivators from the other sects to sympathize with Xianling sect, making it difficult for Jinling to control the situation. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough, and it was very likely that the sects in the North Sea would unite again. At that time, the one who would be forced to give in might be Jinling. However, to everyone's surprise, Feng Shutao had no filter on his mouth. Not only did he put Xianling sect in the position of the victim, he also treated the other sects as if they were betraying their allies and adding insult to injury. How could the other sects not be angry? Before Feng Shutao could feel regret in his heart, East Pole Laozu said indifferently, Brother Dao Xing, does this martial nephew Feng Shutao mean the same thing as your sect? Shui Yin Pavilion's Yanyu Laozu and Ocean Flame sect's Zhangqi Laozu didn't look too good either. The cultivators from the other sects looked at Xianling sect in a different light. How could the situation in the surroundings escape Dao Xing Laozu's eyes? Laozu sighed inwardly. Suddenly he felt unusually tired both physically and mentally. He turned around and looked at the smiling Tianxiang Laozu and said, "Very well, we will do as Brother Tianxiang says. From now on, Xianling sect will only take 10% of the Spirit Stone mine on Frost Island. The remaining 15% will go to your sect." Feng Shutao looked very anxious. He wanted to say something but was stopped by Lin Xuqing, who was next to him. Although the other sects were envious of Jinling, they felt much better when they thought about Xianling sect's share being reduced. Especially Songhai sect's East Pole Laozu. After Songhai sect and Songlang sect merged, Songhai sect's share of the large Spirit Stone mine had increased to 10%. East Pole Laozu had long been ambitious. Although he didn't manage to drag Jinling down, at least Xianling sect was weakened this time. As for Jinling, from East Pole Laozu's point of view, the moment Tianxiang Laozu appeared, Songhai sect would have no hope of catching up to Jinling for at least 100 or 200 years. Then, with Jinling's strength, it was only natural that he would occupy such a large share of the Spirit Stone mine. Lu Ping saw all this and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Everything in the cultivation world was based on strength. When you were weak, others bullied you. When you were strong, they joined forces with others to suppress you. When you were strong, they abandoned their allies to please you. When Jinling suppressed Xianling sect at this moment, the other sects obviously felt that it was reasonable. This was the logic of the strong accepted by the weak. Those who fell behind would be beaten. This was the truth of the weak. It was because the strong always had the right to bully the weak, and this right was perfectly normal in the eyes of the weak. Chapter 608. The four mid-Dharma adepts of Chongming, Jade Sword, Feiyu, and Linggu sects also arrived one after another. After the leaders discussed for a while with Laozu, the order was quickly passed down. Other than guarding the areas that their sects had divided on Frost Island, the core forging adepts of the other sects all returned to their own sections. Lu Ping was curious about the Frost Island relic, so he informed Xianju spiritual master and stayed on Frost Island. Xian Hui, Xianju, and the others were also curious about what the Frost Island relic was, but they did not have the status that Lu Ping had in Jinling. Moreover, in the Battle of Frost Island, Lu Ping had fought against Zhang Shi and killed Shui Wuhuan. It could be said that he had truly established his position in the North Sea cultivation world. Many third-generation disciples were convinced by Lu Ping. Even many second-generation disciples who had advanced to the late core forging stage did not have the same strength as Lu Ping. At least, Xianju's spiritual master himself was not Zhang Shi's match. Not long after, a huge restrictive formation rose in the sky above the battlefield where everyone had fought, completely enveloping the entire area. Following that, the entire Frost Island began to shake violently. Muffled sounds came from the ground far away, echoing throughout the entire world. For half a day, Frost Island passed in this kind of rumbling. Lu Ping stood in the middle of the profound ice formation and looked at the restrictive formation from afar. His eyes flashed with green light, but he still could not see through this layer of restrictive formation. Lu Ping shook his head helplessly and returned to the profound ice hall. Half a day later, Guotianshan Laozu returned from the restrictive formation. Lu Ping's eyes brightened, and he hurriedly went forward to ask. Guotianshan Laozu shook his head and said, "I did not think that there would be such a place on Frost Island. It looks like this spirit mine on Frost Island had already been discovered by Fei Ling sect and Ying Tian sect 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, and these two relics were left on this island." Ying Tian sect? Lu Ping asked with some confusion. Guotianshan Laozu nodded and said, Ying Tian sect is a large sect in the Middle Plains, or rather an allied sect of Fei Ling sect. Fei Ling sect's treasured ship departed from the North Sea to Ying Tian sect, and set up the teleportation formation to the Middle Plains at Ying Tian sect. Lu Ping realized something and asked in shock, since these two sects owned the ruins back then, Ling Tian sect and Ling Heaven and sect didn't come to excavate after 4,000 or 5,000 years. Ling has already, Tianshan Laozu and said, Ying Tian sect and sect, Ling Tian sect and Ling Tian sect and Ling sect and Bai and Wu and sect, Ling Laozu Tianyang sect Bai Yulong, and sect, Ling Tian sect and Ling sect, Gua sect after. At the same time? Lu Ping's expression was one of shock as he murmured, two large sects, Ying Tian sect's power should not be weaker than Fei Ling sect's, and Fei Ling sect itself had 18 Laozu, 3 of whom were late Dharma adepts. With the combined power of these two sects, even a large sect like the Crystal Palace would not dare to act rashly. What kind of power could destroy these two large sects at the same time? Guotianshan Laozu shook his head and said, after Fei Ling's sect was destroyed, the North Sea cultivation world was basically cut off from the Middle Plains. I do not know how Ying Tian sect was destroyed, but the destruction of Fei Ling's sect was not the work of one sect or sect. Almost all the sects in the North Sea participated in the destruction of Fei Ling's sect. I do not know if there were any forces in the East Sea and the South Sea that participated, but from the way the old man sees it, without the intervention of external forces, how could the sects in the North Sea be a match for Fei Ling's sect? However, all the sects in the North Sea are very secretive about these matters, and I am afraid that only the first-generation Laozu of Tianxiang, Tianfan, and Tianshui know a little about this. Fei Ling's sect was the most glorious sect in the North Sea cultivation world. Although it had been destroyed for more than 4,000 years, it still attracted the attention of many practitioners in the North Sea cultivation world. Lu Ping had also tried to find the reason for the destruction of Fei Ling's sect, but there were too many different opinions about the reason for the destruction of Fei Ling's sect, and Lu Ping could not tell which was true and which was false. However, after Lu Ping filtered through the reasons of these legends in the cultivation world in detail, he found that the destruction of Fei Ling's sect was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. There might be many reasons that were not known to outsiders, but these secrets might be like what Guotianshan Laozu had said, only the leaders of the various sects in the North Sea would know. This might be an opportunity. Guotianshan Laozu's expression showed a hint of excitement, interrupting Lu Ping's thoughts. Lu Ping could not help but be a little surprised and asked, "What opportunity?" Guotianshan Laozu looked around. Only Lu Ping and him were in the profound ice temple. Although spiritual master Jianghu also stayed on Frost Island, after the battle, a lot of the spirit stones in the medium-sized spirit mine under the profound ice temple had been excavated by Jinling because of the profound ice formation. Spiritual master Jianghu and a few core forging cultivators were now in the underground spirit mine, supervising the repair of the spirit mine by Jinling's disciples. Before Fei Ling's sect was annihilated, they activated their sect's mountain ceiling formation and sank Fei Ling Mountain to the bottom of the sea for thousands of years. Although the sects in the North Sea know where Fei Ling Mountain sank, many cultivators have tried to reopen it for thousands of years, but to no avail. They could only send some early blood condensation disciples there every 500 years to collect some spirit herbs and excavate the cave abodes of Fei Ling sect's core forging cultivators. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, and he could not help but ask, "Martial uncle, are you saying that Ying Tian sect did the same?" Guotianshan Laozu nodded his head confidently. That must be the case. It is rumored that Fei Ling sect and Ying Tian sect are equally strong. Although Ying Tian sect is located in the North Ice Plains, it is still connected to the Middle Earth's cultivation world. Their strength is actually stronger than Fei Ling sect. Since Fei Ling sect was able to activate the mountain ceiling formation at the last moment, then Ying Tian sect must have a way to conceal their sect's location, causing the cultivators from the other sects to be in vain. Lu Ping nodded his head thoughtfully. He had to admit that Guotianshan Laozu's guess was reasonable. Thus he asked, "Does that mean that this time, the sects in the North Sea will have a chance to find the true location of the two sects' training grounds through the ruins left behind by these two sects? How can it be that easy?" Tianshui Laozu's figure flashed as she entered the profound ice palace. As she walked, she said, "Earlier Laozu had done a rough search of the various sections. Although I found some clues in the outer perimeter of the ruins, it is still extremely difficult to enter the sealed training grounds of Ying Tian sect. We can only use the already destroyed Ying Tian sect's teleportation array to determine the approximate location of the sealed training grounds." Guotianshan Laozu's face lit up. "Then what about Fei Ling's sect?" "Don't even think about Fei Ling's sect." Tianshui Laozu shook her head. At this moment, Tianxiang, Tianfan, and the rest of Laozus broke through the void and descended into the profound ice palace. Tianshui Laozu glanced at everyone before looking at Lu Ping who was standing below. She said, "Fei Ling sect's forbidden grand array isolates everything. Maybe after 400 years, when Fei Ling Island's forbidden grand array weakens again, there might be a chance. But now there's no chance to enter." Guotianshan Laozu shook his head regretfully and asked, "Since we can't even enter Fei Ling Island, how are we going to enter Ying Tian sect's training grounds? Ying Tian sect's sect protecting grand array is different from Fei Ling's sect." At this moment Tianxiang Laozu spoke. "The Ying Tian sect's reverse grand array is indeed powerful. However, after activating the final defensive method, which is mainly used to conceal oneself in space, its defensive capabilities are far inferior to the Forbidden Grand Array. Although this type of Grand Array makes Ingtian sect's training grounds not as profound as the Seven-Star Cave Heavens, in these thousands of years, I have never heard of any sect in Middle Plains obtaining the inheritance of Ingtian sect. Tian Fan Laozu continued, the Northern Sea sect's Laozu's intention is to gather the formation masters and masters of the various sections. After we have completely opened up the ruins of these two sects on Frost Island, we can use the destroyed teleportation formation to determine the approximate location of Ingtian sect. After that, each sect will secretly send Dharma Plane cultivators to Middle Plains to search for Ingtian sect's training grounds. At this moment, Tian Shui Laozu seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, she asked Lu Ping, do you still remember Qingjian Laozu? Lu Ping did not know why Tian Shui Laozu would mention this person, so he nodded his head in confusion. However, he heard Qingjian Laozu continue, just now, after the Laozu of the various sects worked together to break through the protective formation set up by these two sects and opened up the ruins, the Eastern Pole Laozu of the Blue Sea sect revealed a secret. He said that Qingjian Laozu was originally a remnant of Ingtian sect after was annihilated. Originally, he wanted Fei Ling sect to take him in so that he could make a comeback. Unexpectedly, perhaps because Qingjian was afraid that his identity would be exposed along the way, he was not well informed. It was only when he reached the North Sea that he found out that Fei Ling sect and Ingtian sect had been annihilated at almost the same time. Completely disheartened, Qingjian Laozu wandered around the North Sea. In the end, he was unintentionally taken in by Laozu of the Blue Sea sect and found out about his background. Lu Ping's face was filled with shock, but his heart was in turmoil. The first thing that came to Lu Ping's mind was Qingjian's cave dwelling. There was an extremely well-hidden Middle-earth teleportation formation. Where was its destination? Could it be Ingtian sect's hidden training grounds? Tian Shui Laozu didn't know what Lu Ping was thinking. Seeing his shocked expression, she thought that he was surprised by the strangeness of the matter. Thus, she continued, after that, Qingjian was wary of Songhai sect and took the opportunity to leave. Unexpectedly, Songhai sect happened to lose the flowing sword, of the thin water flowing sword, a pair of flying swords left behind by their founder. Songhai sect once slandered Qingjian Laozu for stealing the sword. This matter was left unsettled, but it became the fuse that caused Songhai sect to split. After that, Zhongxian Laozu launched a sneak attack on Songhai sect and stole the other thin water sword. After that, all the sects in the Northern Sea rejoiced in Songhai sect's misfortune. Only Songhai sect realized that Zhongxian Laozu launched a sneak attack on Songhai sect because he received the news and came specifically for Qingjian Laozu. Unexpectedly, Qingjian Laozu had become an influential figure in the Northern Sea's cultivation world. How would Zhongxian Laozu dare to meet him? A remnant of Fei Ling sect and a descendant of Ingtian sect. In the end, the two of them were unable to work together. Perhaps they knew that they had lost their power and were powerless to reverse the situation. Chapter 609. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, Laozu, can this disciple go to the outer perimeter of the ruins to take a look? This disciple is very curious about the items left behind by the two large sects. Tian Shui Laozu giggled and said, I think you are just pretending to look at the ruins. You are just trying to fish in troubled waters. Lu Ping smiled embarrassedly. He really did have such a plan. After Debao advanced to the core forging realm, his talent had been strengthened. Although Lu Ping didn't know what level Debao's spiritual seeking talent had reached, it was still good to be able to pick up some Transcendence Realm items that Laozu didn't like. Tian Shui Laozu saw Lu Ping's embarrassed expression and laughed again. Brat, don't even think about it. Not to mention that the sect's Laozu have already made an agreement to keep this matter a secret. Only Transcendence Realm cultivators from the sects are allowed to enter. Even if we let you in, what ability do you have to pick up our leftovers? Lu Ping smiled embarrassedly and didn't say anything else. At this time, Qianlu Laozu suddenly laughed and said, However, there is still a place where you can be of use. Lu Ping looked at Qianlu Laozu in astonishment, only to see Qianlu Laozu saying, There are actually 4 mid-sized spiritual veins hidden in the ruins. In these thousands of years, there are quite a number of spiritual herbs that have matured. Especially in this special environment, there are quite a number of ice attribute spiritual herbs that are growing and blooming. It would be a pity to directly pluck them. I wonder if your group of amethyst bees are with you? Old man, you can take them and use them. The various Laozu looked at the amethyst bee king in astonishment. The amethyst bee king was only a foot in size. It was grabbing Lu Ping's ear and trying its best to hide behind Lu Ping's head. After Lu Ping summoned the amethyst wasp queen Zilan, she didn't wait for Zilan to start dancing in the air before she discovered that there were several towering auras in the hall, making it hard for her to breathe. She could only desperately hide behind Lu Ping. Fornax Laozu was surprised at first, and then he was pleasantly surprised. He said anxiously, This is the Amethyst Bee King? A core forging stage Amethyst Bee King? Tian Shui Laozu looked at Tianlu Laozu in astonishment. Smiling, she said, Junior brother Tianlu, you can be considered as one of the most knowledgeable alchemists in the Northern Sea. Why are you so excited about a mere shapeshifted demon cultivator? Tianlu Laozu assessed his own emotions and said, Senior sister, you don't know this. Since ancient times, there have been many cultivators who have tamed the Amethyst Bee King. However, the number of cultivators who have been able to cultivate the queen bee into a shapeshifted demon cultivator in the past tens of thousands of years is less than a handful. Oh, Tian Shui Laozu blinked and asked, could it be that this Amethyst Bee King that has transformed has something special about it? It actually made you, an alchemist grandmaster, so excited? Tianlu Laozu nodded solemnly and said, that's right. All these years, the number of Dharma stage elixirs consumed by this senior brother, senior sister, and martial nephews has increased a lot. Firstly, it's because of our sect's painstaking efforts over the years. That girl, Tianqin, has also brought back quite a lot from Phantom City. Secondly, it's because of the amethyst royal jelly in this kid's hands that the success rate of Dharma stage elixirs has increased a lot. Tianxiang Laozu also laughed and teased, this old man has also heard of this matter, but I heard more about junior brother Qianlu complaining that this kid is stingy, using the amethyst royal jelly in his hands to extort a lot of spirit herbs and elixir recipes from your hands. Qianlu Laozu looked at Lu Ping angrily, causing Lu Ping to feel a little embarrassed. Qianlu Laozu continued, that's right. However, because the amethyst royal jelly is only at the blood condensation stage, although it's rare, it can only increase the success rate of Dharma stage elixirs by 10%. However, the amethyst royal jelly brewed by the core forging stage queen bee can at most increase the success rate of Dharma stage elixirs by 20%. As soon as Qianlu Laozu finished speaking, other than Tianxiang Laozu, the other Laozu in the Mystic Ice Temple gasped. Even Lu Ping didn't know that the core forging stage queen bee's royal jelly could have such an effect. The spiritual herbs required to concoct Dharma stage elixirs were already scarce. In addition to the low success rate, most of the Dharma stage cultivators in the cultivation world were in a state where elixirs were scarce. This was also why the amethyst royal jelly, which could increase the success rate of Dharma stage elixirs by 10%, was known as the holy elixir in the cultivation world. This time, when Laozu heard that the core forging stage queen bee could brew royal jelly with a success rate of 20%, it was enough to make all of the Laozu go crazy. The few Laozu's gazes towards the amethyst queen bee on Lu Ping's shoulder became even brighter. The amethyst queen bee, who was previously no longer afraid after being comforted by Lu Ping, was suddenly frightened. Her eyes were tearing up, and her small hands grabbed Lu Ping's ears even tighter, causing Lu Ping to grimace in pain. At this moment, Tian Shui Laozu seemed to have thought of something. Stretching out her hand, she opened up a spatial rift. After rummaging through it for a moment, an exquisite jade essence bottle appeared in her hand. Tianlu Laozu looked at the jade essence bottle in Tian Shui Laozu's hand, and his eyes lit up. Clear spirit pill? Senior sister, this junior brother has been asking you for this for over 100 years, and you were unwilling to give me a single pill. Now you're willing to take it out? Tian Shui Laozu rolled her eyes at Tianlu Laozu. These 3 clear spirit pills were given to me by a Taoist from the Spirit Beast sect when I was roaming the Central Plains. This Taoist gave me these 3 clear spirit pills before we parted. Every single one of these 3 clear spirit pills are exceptionally precious. Your junior brother Qianlu doesn't have any precious spiritual beasts with him, so it's fine if he wants them to look at them. However, if you take them, you will definitely try to imitate them. Furthermore, there's a high chance that you won't be able to imitate them. You'll just be wasting a clear spirit pill. Tianlu Laozu smiled awkwardly. At the very least, I'll be able to know the composition of the clear spirit pill, right? This sentence undoubtedly admitted that it was extremely difficult to imitate such a miraculous pill. Lu Ping had heard of the Spirit Beast sect before. This sect was equivalent to a large sect in the Central Plains. However, the traces of this sect in the Central Plains were extremely elusive. This was because this sect had quite a huge controversy among both humans and demons. Hence, the cultivators from this sect rarely revealed themselves in the cultivation world. However, the moment they did, they would definitely be the strongest of their generation. Very few people would dare to look down on them. The clear spirit pill was the exclusive secret medicine of the spirit beast sect. It was a miraculous pill that was no less beneficial to the demon race than the clear spirit would. It was also one of the reasons why the experts of the demon race had a love-hate relationship with this sect. To the spirit beast sect, the clear spirit pill was similar to the spiritual forging pill to the Fei Ling sect. Tian Shui Laozu poured out a golden pill the size of a grape from the jade essence bottle and placed it on her palm. She smiled at Zilan, who was hiding on Lu Ping's shoulder, but her attention was already attracted by the pill in Tian Shui Laozu's palm. "My good daughter, come here. Grandma will give you something delicious." Lu Ping could feel the current amethyst Queen Bee Zilan's emotions. That clear spirit pill had given her an unlimited amount of temptation. However, the tyrannical aura from the owner of the clear spirit pill had caused this queen to be extremely afraid. She could only look towards Lu Ping for help. Lu Ping smiled at the queen bee and sent her a message with his divine sense. "Go." He said, "Go." Zilan hesitated for a moment. She first circled around Lu Ping's head once before flying off in the direction of Heavenly Snow Grand Ancestor, looking back 3 times with every step she took. It was as if she was afraid that she would never see Lu Ping again. Only when she arrived in front of Tian Shui Laozu, Zilan carefully stood on top of Tian Shui Laozu's palm and looked at it. Only then did she pick up the clear spirit pill with both her hands. She placed it under her nose and sniffed it. An intoxicated expression appeared on her face as she smiled sweetly at Tian Shui Laozu. "Thank you, Grandma." Finished speaking, she held onto the clear spirit pill and quickly flew back to Lu Ping. When Qianlu Laozu saw how easily Lu Ping obtained the clear spirit pill, his expression couldn't help but become gloomy. Thus he said, "Brat, for this queen bee to be able to advance into the core forging realm, you must have had a fortuitous encounter. That clear spirit pill isn't that easy to obtain. Quickly take out some of your royal jelly." Furthermore, this queen bee's cultivation has already reached the peak of the first layer of the core forging realm. You must have some royal jelly brewed by this queen bee after she advanced into the core forging realm. Don't take out royal jelly from the blood condensation realm to fool the old man. When Lu Ping heard this, he knew that Qianlu Laozu probably didn't know the difference between the royal jelly brewed in the core forging realm and the royal jelly brewed in the blood condensation realm. Thus, he took out 3 jade bottles from his storage ring and handed them over to Qianlu Laozu. When Qianlu Laozu saw that Lu Ping had actually taken out 3 bottles of royal jelly, he was immediately overjoyed. "Ah, 3 bottles of royal jelly? Brat, why are you so generous this time? Don't tell me you're planning something again?" Senior sister Tian Shui gave that bee a clear spirit pill. That thing's effect on the demon clan is no less than a spirit forging pill. After your amethyst bee queen advances to the core forging stage, I'm afraid that it will be difficult for them to progress any further. With this clear spirit pill, things will be different. So it's best for you to be careful. As Qianlu Laozu spoke, he opened the bottle of royal jelly in his hand. He couldn't wait to know the difference between the royal jelly brewed by the royal jelly brewed by the royal jelly of the blood condensation realm and the royal jelly of the core forging realm. However, after opening the first bottle, Qianlu Laozu frowned. He immediately opened the second bottle and looked at Lu Ping before opening the third bottle. Qianlu Laozu couldn't help but curse. "Brat, this third bottle is the real royal jelly of the core forging realm, right? The first 2 bottles were for the blood condensation realm. Why is there only half a bottle for the core forging realm's royal jelly?" Lu Ping helplessly explained, "Martial uncle, don't be angry. The amethyst royal jelly of the core forging realm is different from that of the blood condensation realm. Although it's more effective, the difficulty of brewing it is also much higher." Ever since Zilan advanced to the core forging realm, she has been busy consolidating her cultivation and didn't brew this royal jelly again. This royal jelly was brewed using the reserves of the amethyst bee colony. Qianlu Laozu looked at Lu Ping suspiciously and said, "That can't be right. The amethyst queen bee should be brewed by brewing royal jelly to increase its cultivation. Your queen bee is currently at the peak of the first layer of the core forging realm. It shouldn't have just advanced." Chapter 610. Lu Ping had no choice but to explain the situation in the secret place. but he concealed the matter about Long Huai. Finally he said, once the spiritual herbs in the sea of flowers leave the soil, they immediately turn into ashes. I had no choice but to let Zilan collect as much nectar as possible. After Zilan knew that the sea of spiritual herbs could no longer be returned, she commanded the bees to stimulate their potential, almost risking the collapse of her cultivation to continuously collect the nectar. In the next few years, in addition to recovering from her injuries, she also used the amethyst queen bee collected during that time to brew the royal jelly. Only then was her cultivation promoted to the peak of the first layer of the core forging realm. Although the Laozu had already known the news of the secret place in the fallen archipelago, this time when they heard Lu Ping's personal experience, they were still shocked by the scene. A boundless sea of spiritual flowers. Fornax Laozu's face was full of yearning. It's a pity that we can't collect them, it's really strange. Celestial phenomenon. Laozu smiled slightly and said, how can we study the wonders of this world? It's not surprising that there is such a wonderful place. Even so, the Jinling Laozu still sighed endlessly. Lu Ping saw that the matter of the royal jelly was over, so he smiled at Fornax Laozu and said, Martial uncle, I can give you the bee swarm disciples, but it's best not to expose the matter of Zilan to the Laozu of the various sections. Fornax Laozu coldly snorted and said, boy, the old man knows more about this matter than you do. This group of amethyst bees has made the old ghosts of the various sects envious. If they know that the old man has a purple crystal queen bee at the core forging realm, I'm afraid that the various sects will be so jealous that they will plot to kill the old man. However, Lu Ping immediately felt that it was a little strange, so he asked, Martial Granduncle, are the sects just going to let our sect use the amethyst bees to collect the nectar for the ice attribute spirit flower? Fornax Laozu smiled, of course it's not that simple. Whether it's the nectar or the royal jelly, I Jinling will only get 30%. The rest will be left for the other sections. However, your 2 bottles of blood condensation royal jelly came at the right time. I'll give one to them when the time comes. Lu Ping suddenly smiled slyly and said, Martial Granduncle, since this swarm of bees belongs to this disciple, shouldn't this disciple also have a share of the ice spirit nectar? Not much, just 10% will do. Fornax Laozu flew into a rage and said, get lost, don't even think about it. Who knows how much amethyst honey you have right now? I heard that Tianlin, and their little girls use amethyst honey to make tea every day. You still want to come here and share a cup with the old man? Lu Ping smiled embarrassedly, but in his heart, he was cursing incessantly. Which one of the Laozu present here didn't receive his filial piety? However, Lu Tianling was his teacher, Jiang Tianlin was his grandmaster, and they were all stationed at Huangli Island all year round. In addition, Jiang Xinshen was his junior sister, so naturally his filial piety was a little more than the others. However, Lu Ping quickly put away his embarrassment and once again smiled at Fornax Laozu and said, Martial Granduncle, this disciple plans to concoct elixirs for a period of time. That Nachuan cauldron, do you think it's time for you to return it to this disciple? In the past, Lu Ping had made it clear to Fornax Laozu and Tianjiang Laozu that when he had the strength of an alchemy grandmaster, he would return the Nachuan cauldron to Lu Ping. Fornax Laozu's face lit up and said, you have already concocted a transcendence elixir? Many of the Laozu present also looked happy and looked at Lu Ping with some anticipation. Lu Ping was a little scared by the gazes of several Laozu and quickly said, this disciple's current alchemy skills have reached a bottleneck. This time, I hope to use the Nachuan cauldron to break through in one fell swoop and become an alchemy grandmaster. Although Lu Ping had not yet broken through to become an alchemy grandmaster, this reason was enough for Lu Ping to get the Nachuan cauldron back first. As long as he could concoct a transcendence elixir, the Nachuan cauldron would naturally not need to be handed over to the sect. Fornax Laozu still looked a little reluctant. The high quality of the Nachuan cauldron was even higher than the estimation of Fornax and Tianjiang Laozu. The two of them had once discussed in private that with the quality of the Nachuan cauldron, it was completely possible to condense 2 more treasured prohibitions. This was unique among the few top-grade alchemy cauldrons that Jinling currently had. As for condensing the 4th spirit-connected alchemy cauldron, Fornax and Tianjiang Laozu did not even think about it. The 2 Laozu had also not heard of any sect in the cultivation world that had an alchemy cauldron at the level of a spirit-connected magic treasure. Perhaps such a treasure did exist in the cultivation world, but even a large sect would most likely keep it a secret. Give it to him. Lu Ping looked over with some surprise. The one who spoke was Tianjiang Laozu. Give it to him, lest he thinks all day that the sect will confiscate the Nachuan cauldron. I heard from Tianqin that this kid picked up a piece of 1,000 sand copper in the Fallen Archipelago. He was really lucky, and exchanged it with Tianqin. With this piece of 1,000 sand copper, it is estimated that he can completely repair the Sky Hut Cauldron and even improve its quality. Tianqin also bid for an alchemy cauldron in Phantom City. I have seen that treasure prohibitions before, and it is most suitable for the characteristics of the Sky Hut Cauldron. In this way, there is a 70% chance that the Sky Hut Cauldron can be upgraded to a magic treasure. In this way, the Nachuan Cauldron can be freed up. Besides, once this kid becomes an alchemy grandmaster, the Nachuan Cauldron will be the same no matter who has it. Fornax Laozu nodded when he heard this, and a small cauldron suddenly appeared in his hand. He said in a muffled voice, "Kid, your alchemy cauldron, take it. The Nachuan Cauldron is now a magic treasure alchemy cauldron. You've made a profit, but don't forget to return the Linchuan Cauldron." Lu Ping happily received the Nachuan Cauldron that he had not seen for a long time, and then handed the top-grade alchemy cauldron that he had been carrying with him all these years to the annoyed Fornax Laozu. Lu Ping was about to get up and say goodbye to Laozu when Fornax Laozu said, "The spiritual fire in your hand should still be the Eastern Purple Chi Flame. Originally, the spiritual fire of heaven and earth can be used to refine any kind of elixir, but if you want to refine Dharma stage elixirs, a mid-grade earth-level spiritual fire is still a bit low." After saying that, Fornax Laozu stretched out his left index finger and an orange flame suddenly ignited at the tip of his finger. Fornax Laozu said, "This flame is a low-grade heaven-level starry sky flame. It is the spiritual fire that the old man uses for daily alchemy. You can take it out and use it first. After the alchemy is completed, you can return it to the old man." Lu Ping looked at the starry sky flame. Although he was very willing in his heart, he had to say, even if this disciple used Martial Uncle's starry sky flame to refine the Dharma elixir, this starry sky flame does not belong to this disciple. It is better to use this disciple's own spiritual fire to refine it. After Lu Ping finished speaking, a red flame also rose in his hand. It was the high-grade earth-level red spiritual flame that Yen Wujiu had given him in the East Sea. Fornax Laozu snorted and said, "When did another high-grade earth-level red spiritual flame appear?" Tianxiang Laozu's expression changed and said, "Red spiritual flame? Where did you get this flame from? Did you get the consent of the East Sea Fire Phoenix race?" Lu Ping sighed inwardly at Tianxiang Laozu's experience and knowledge. So he replied, "This disciple was acquainted with Yen Wujiu, an alchemy grandmaster of the Fire Phoenix race in the East Sea. This red spiritual flame was given to this disciple by him. However, at that time he had a junior by his side who was also an alchemy grandmaster. This disciple gave the Eastern Purple Chi Flame to this junior in exchange." Tianxiang Laozu nodded and said, "Oh, that's all right. Yen Wujiu is considered a genius among the demon cultivators of his generation. He has good relations with many cultivators of the human race. You being able to get to know him can be considered as an opportunity. However, if it is not necessary, it is best not to reveal the red spiritual flame in front of others. Otherwise, it will easily attract the attention of the experts of the Fire Phoenix race." Lu Ping nodded in agreement. Yen Wujiu had said similar words to Lu Ping before. Tianxiang Laozu smiled and said, "After Qinqin's return, our sect already has 2 alchemy grandmasters. With Qinqin's alchemy skills, Xianling sect's Wei Shiren will definitely not be able to catch up. Now that this kid is about to break through, I heard that Martial Niche Shenyan is also trying to become an alchemy grandmaster?" Tianxiang Laozu nodded in confirmation. Tianxiang Laozu smiled and said, 3 alchemy grandmasters is the foundation of a large sect. If our sect has 4 alchemy grandmasters, hee. Our sect originally had 3 top-grade alchemy furnaces. Among them, the Sky Hut Cauldron was damaged. Now the Sky Hut Cauldron is about to be repaired, and it also has the potential to become a magical treasure. In addition to this Nachuan Cauldron and the top-grade alchemy furnace that Martial Niece Tianqin obtained in the East Sea, Xianling sect will never be able to catch up with us." When the various Qinxiang Laozu heard Tianxiang Laozu talking about the family's wealth, even though it was only a part of Jinling's family wealth, it still made the various Qinxiang Laozu smile and nod. After a few years, Lu Ping once again put the Nachuan Cauldron back into the space in his heart core. Like a king returning, the golden scale sword, the landslide, and the nether water sword were directly pushed to the outermost layer by the Nachuan Cauldron. Originally, the Nachuan Cauldron was about to approach Lu Ping's golden elixir again. Unexpectedly, the 7 treasures thunder gourd exploded and directly blocked the Nachuan cauldron to the 3rd layer. After bidding farewell to the various Laozu Qianxiang, Lu Ping found a secluded place in the back hall of the Dark Ice Temple and began to prepare to refine the elixir for the Dharma stage. On the Frost Island, under the combined efforts of the 2 great practitioners and 10 mid-Dharma Laozu Qianxiang, the relic that the failing sect and the Ying Tian sect worked together to build was surrounded by layers of prohibitions. Perhaps it was because it was too big, or because the prohibitions and formations inside were extremely difficult to break, or maybe it was because the Laozu Qianxiang were afraid of damaging the treasures in the relic. In short, after 3 to 5 days, the relic had not been completely explored by the various sects Laozu Qianxiang. From time to time, there would be loud noises that shook the entire island. At this time, Lu Ping had already opened the cauldron to refine the elixir for the Dharma stage. Above the raging red spirit flame, a huge copper cauldron floated in midair and slowly rotated. Inside the cauldron were 3 elixirs that had already begun to condense. In these few days, whenever the few Laozu Qianxiang returned from the relic, they looked very excited. It was obvious that the Laozu Qianxiang of their sect had gained a lot from the relic. However, it could be assumed that the Laozu Qianxiang of the other sects would not be any worse off. However, thinking of the 6 Laozu Qianxiang Jinling at this time, one of them was a great practitioner, 2 were mid-Dharma practitioners, but their combined strength was not inferior to a great practitioner. In addition, there were 3 early Dharma practitioners. With such a strong lineup, Lu Ping was very sure that Jinling Tianxiang had gained the most in the relic. Chapter 611. In fact, on the first day Lu Ping arrived, a medium-grade spirit vein was drawn to the bottom of the profound ice temple. Lu Ping had heard from Qianlu Laozu that there were only 4 medium-grade spirit veins in the ruins. It was impossible for each sect to divide the 4 spirit veins evenly. However, the fact that Jinling was able to get his own medium-grade spirit vein still surprised Lu Ping. On the second day he heard from Guotianshan Laozu that Tianxiang Laozu, Tianfan and Tianxue Laozu had worked together to obtain a few treasures in the ruins before Daoxing Laozu. However, Guotianshan Laozu only smiled and didn't say what the treasures were. On the 3rd day, when Lu Ping asked Tianlu Laozu about alchemy, he heard from Tianlu Laozu that Tianjiang Laozu had found a batch of high-grade spirit materials in the ruins. It was said that some of them were quite effective in refining cauldrons. Tianjiang Laozu also swore that with this batch of spirit materials, he had a 90% chance of upgrading the Sky Hut cauldron to the level of an artifact. While Tianlu Laozu was commanding the purple crystal bees to collect the spirit flowers in the ruins, a group of purple crystal bees found a spirit herb garden hidden in an extremely secret space. Tianlu Laozu didn't make it public. He called Guotianshan Laozu over when no one was paying attention and commanded a small group of bees to collect honey from the garden. After harvesting the nectar, he ordered ancestor Guotianshan to harvest all the high-quality spiritual herbs in the space as soon as possible. On the 4th day, Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was guarding the sect with Master Lu Tianling, arrived at Frost Island. Jinling was called the new formation master of the North Sea cultivation world, spiritual master Xianxian. Guotianshan Laozu returned to Tianling Mountain and guarded Jinling's headquarters with Lu Tianling Laozu. After the Laozu left the ruins, Lu Ping went to visit Jiang Tianlin Laozu. From him, he learned that Celestial Phenomenon Laozu, Daoxing Laozu, Eastern Pole Laozu of the Blue Sea sect, and the 2 mid-Dharma Laozu of the Sea Flame sect and Water Mist Pavilion had opened an alchemy room together. The 5 Laozu each had their own gains, but this time, Daoxing Laozu was faster and took the top-grade alchemy furnace in the alchemy room before Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu could only take a high-grade earth-level spirit fire. However, a third of the jade scrolls and books in the alchemy room were swept away by Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. The rest of the jade scrolls, pills and spirit herbs were taken by the other Laozu. At the same time, Tianfan, Tianxue Laozu, Shou Laozu of the Chongming sect, and Yujian Laozu of the Yujin sect worked together to open a secret chamber. Within it, they discovered a batch of treasures. It was said that there were some spiritual items and strange items, but their grades were not too high. On the 5th day, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's opportunity arrived. With the help of Reverend Xianxian, they unlocked a secret array. Jiang Tianlin Laozu found 3 boxes within the array, but he had no idea what was inside the boxes. After that, under the joint efforts of a few array formation grandmasters and array formation grandmasters, The various sects Laozu worked together to open the central hall of the ruins. Once again the Zhenling cultivator took the lead. 6 Laozu cultivators worked together to sweep through 1/3 of the inheritance manuals in the central hall. The remaining portion was divided among the dozens of Laozu cultivators from the other 8 sections. After that, the various sects Laozu cultivators finally discovered 2 destroyed teleportation arrays in the central hall. One of them led to the Feiling Mountain that had sunk to the bottom of the sea due to the isolation of the Forbidden Array. As for the other teleportation array, it was highly possible that it led to the Ying Tian sect's dojo, which was hidden within a spatial crack. The various sects Laozu cultivators could not think about Feiling Mountain at the moment. Even if they wanted to, they could only wait until 400 years later, when the Forbidden Array had weakened and Feiling Mountain reopened again. Ying Tian sect's dojo was different from Feiling Mountain, which was sealed by the Forbidden Array. Array formation masters from the various sects gathered together. It was highly possible that they could use the destroyed teleportation array to calculate the location of the hidden Ying Tian sect's dojo. Leaving the various array formation masters to busy themselves in the central hall, the various Laozu cultivators returned to their respective sects' territories. Outside the secret chamber in the back hall of the Dark Ice Palace, the 3 Laozu cultivators, Qianlu cultivators and Tianlin cultivators stood together. Despite the obstruction of the secret chamber's dark ice door, a rich pill fragrance still seeped out from the secret chamber. Qianlu cultivator Laozu wrinkled his nose and said, "It's the 9 clear elixir. This is a type of elixir that Dharma adepts often take. I don't know if I can make one." Tianjiang cultivator Laozu was a little surprised. It looks like he's at the final stage of condensing the elixir. He also has a treasure cauldron and a top-grade earth-level spirit fire. This kid must have a lot of royal jelly on him. He should be able to make one, right? Qianlu cultivator Laozu shook his head and said, "It's hard to say. This is the kid's first Dharma elixir. Even when Tianqin was refining it, she only managed to make one on her 3rd try. Even if this kid's conditions are better than Tianqin's, I don't think it'll be easy for him to make an elixir on his first try." Jiang Tianlin originally wanted to say something, but after hearing Qianlu cultivator Laozu's words, he just smiled faintly and said, "Uncle Masters, let's wait and see the final result. It looks like the elixir is about to be made." The 3 of them stood outside the secret chamber and waited. At this time the temperature in the secret chamber was getting higher and higher. Although the Dark Ice Palace was the core of the Dark Ice Array and was protected by the array, under the roasting of the red spirit fire, there were still signs of melting. Water had already begun to flow out of the ground. In the secret chamber, Lu Ping's eyes were staring at the Nachuan cauldron that was spinning faster and faster in the air. Originally, when Lu Ping used the spirit fire smelting purification technique, he only wanted to keep 1 elixir to enter the final stage of condensing the elixir. Unexpectedly, when Lu Ping was purifying, he used the spirit explosion technique and exploded 3 top-grade spirit stones in a row. After his divine thoughts entered the cauldron, Lu Ping suddenly realized that after his divine thoughts were focused on 1 elixir, he still had spare energy to pay attention to another elixir. After Lu Ping weighed the pros and cons, he was finally driven by a little greed and vanity in his heart. The rest of his divine thoughts circled in the cauldron and quickly wrapped around another elixir. As for the 3rd elixir, it was directly abandoned by Lu Ping, and it exploded into a ball of spirit chi in the cauldron. At this time, it was already the final stage of condensing the elixir. With Lu Ping's divine thoughts cultivation, which was no less than that of an early Dharma adept, he could barely control the 2 elixirs. However, at this time the fire in the cauldron seemed to be a little unstable. At this time, Lu Ping did not have a trace of panic in his heart. This kind of loss of control of the fire when refining elixirs for the Dharma stage was already commendable for Lu Ping to be able to persist until now when this situation occurred when he was refining elixirs for the Dharma stage. At this time, Lu Ping could not care about anything else. He flipped his left palm and a jade bottle appeared in his hand. 2 drops of royal jelly brewed by the purple crystal queen bee after she advanced to the core forging stage were popped out of the jade bottle and fell into the cauldron. Under the guidance of Lu Ping's divine thoughts, it quickly merged with the 2 elixirs. Although the unstable fire caused the rotating Nachuan cauldron to tremble from time to time, at this time, with the help of the royal jelly, Lu Ping's divine thoughts were still able to firmly control the 2 elixirs and wait for the last moment of the cauldron's opening. In the secret chamber, the joy on Lu Ping's face became more and more intense. Seeing that the cauldron had opened to the last moment, the 2 9 clear elixirs were formed at this time. To an alchemist like Lu Ping was naturally very clear what it meant. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and shook it. The lid of the Nachuan cauldron flew up, and a thick wave of spirit qi, along with a wave of fire, spewed out from the Nachuan cauldron. In this wave of air, the two silver-white elixirs each let out a clear whistle and crashed into the walls on both sides of the secret chamber. Lu Ping laughed, and the water vapor in the black ice secret chamber was pointed by Lu Ping's spell. Clouds of mist weaved into a net in the secret chamber, covering the two elixirs layer by layer. Lu Ping took out the jade essence bottle that he had already prepared and was about to put away the 2 clear elixirs. Unexpectedly, there was a loud explosion, and a red flame suddenly spread out from the bottom of the Nachuan cauldron. Oh no, I actually forgot this step. When the elixirs were out of the cauldron, the alchemist often had to first extinguish or reduce the power of the fire seed, and then began to take back the elixirs. This was to prevent the furnace from exploding after the fire seed was out of control. Not only would the fire seed be destroyed, but the cauldron might also be lost. Even the alchemist who was not strong enough would die. This was also the reason why alchemists above the master level had to first set up restrictions in the alchemy room before refining elixirs. Because when the elixirs were out of the cauldron, they had to first control the fire seed, and then they could capture the elixirs. Therefore, the restrictions in the alchemy room could always restrict the elixirs that were running everywhere in the alchemy room. However, after Lu Ping concocted 2 Avatar Realm medicinal pellets in one go, he forgot to stop the ignition of the Crimson Spirit Flame. This time, the Crimson Spirit Flame went out of control and was on the verge of exploding. Once the upper-grade Earth-level Red Spirit Flame exploded, even if Lu Ping could avoid it with his current cultivation, and he was not afraid of the quality of the Nachuan cauldron, but if this Red Spirit Flame was destroyed, it would be enough for Lu Ping to die of heartache. Not to mention that the 2 clear elixirs that were about to be put away would probably be burned in the fire forever. At this critical moment, Qianlu Laozu, who was outside the secret room, was experienced. He suddenly shouted, "Not good." Under the surprised gazes of Tianjiang Laozu and Tianlin Laozu, he kicked the door of the secret room, which was covered with the restriction of the Shen Ice formation, into pieces of ice. A red flame immediately swept out from the open door. Tianlu Laozu whispered, "Good guy." Both of his hands formed a fire separation spell, and in an instant, he separated the red spirit flame that was rushing towards him. Then a series of Jinling's secret fire manipulation spell was used to quickly suppress the red spirit flame. At this time in the alchemy room, Lu Ping smiled at the 3 Laozu who came in, and then hurriedly put the 2 clear elixirs into the jade bottle under the 3 Laozu's incredulous gazes. 2. Qianlu Laozu stood in a daze, dumbfounded. There are 2 of them. Tianjiang Laozu's face was full of surprise. 2 not bad. Jiang Tianlin Laozu was the last to enter the alchemy room. With a wave of his sleeves, he swept the messy alchemy room into an empty space. Chapter 6:12. In the Black Ice Hall, the 6 Laozu were seated. Lu Ping sat at the end of the table. Above him there were 2 late core forging female Zenrens. They were 2 of the 4 most outstanding female cultivators in the 2nd generation of Jinling's disciples. Master Xianju of the Talisman Pavilion and Master Xian Chen of the Array Formation Grandmaster. Tianxiang Laozu handed the jade bottle in his hand to Tianfan Laozu. Inside the bottle were the 2 clear pills that Lu Ping had just refined. Lu Ping had caused such a huge commotion in the secret chamber. Moreover, whether he could advance to become an alchemy grandmaster was a huge matter in Jinling. Tianxiang, Tianfan and Tianshui, the 3 Laozu, were not there at the time, but they had been paying attention to the secret chamber that Lu Ping was in. Naturally, they rushed over quickly. Although the few Laozus looked calm, their hearts were already in turmoil. 20% success rate? Was this a joke? Was this really the kid's first time refining a Dharma elixir? Although the few Laozus had their own doubts, the fact that Lu Ping had refined 2 clear pills was in their hands. The celestial phenomenon ancestor pondered for a moment and said to the Fornax ancestor beside him, "Brother Fornax, what is the success rate of refining a Dharma form elixir?" Tianlu Laozu laughed bitterly and said, "The success rate of refining a Dharma elixir is extremely low. Therefore, those who can refine a Dharma elixir can be called an alchemy grandmaster. Normally, if you don't create or modify a special Dharma elixir, you can be considered an alchemy grandmaster if you can achieve a success rate of 30%. Looking at Lu Ping's shocked expression, Qianlu Laozu continued, If I were to use my sect's top-grade cauldron to refine, the success rate of Dharma stage pills would hover around 30% to 40%. If I were to use a magic cauldron, the success rate could be stabilized at more than 40%. If I were to add in the royal jelly of the core forging stage, the success rate would increase to more than 50%. The few Laozus all sucked in a breath of cold air. Only Lu Ping could not believe it. How could the success rate of a Dharma stage core pill be so low? With Qianlu Laozu's alchemy skills, with the help of various external factors, he could achieve a success rate of 50%. How could the Laozus here be so shocked? Lu Ping clearly remembered the time when he was watching Yan Wujio refine pills on the East Sea Soundwave Island. Although he did not know if Yan Wujio had used external factors in the process, the 5 Dharma stage core pills were real. At that time, when he saw Yan Wujio's performance, he did not feel that it was as difficult as Qianlu Laozu had said. If Dharma stage core pills were really as difficult as Qianlu Laozu had said, then Yan Wujio's alchemy skills were clearly far above Qianlu Laozu's. This was why Yan Wujio had been able to enter the Northern Alliance's Qinyuan Palace and chat freely with the Dharma stage alchemist, Hongya Laozu, before Yan Wujio had reached the Dharma stage. Perhaps Qianlu Laozu's question had attracted the other Laozu's interest. Tianfan Laozu, who was at the side, smiled and said, Tianqin is Junior Qianlu's proud disciple. What is her success rate? Speaking of Tianqin, Qianlu Laozu's face also revealed a hint of redness. He smiled and said, this girl did not waste her time in the East Sea all these years. If she had refined it normally, her success rate for Dharma stage core pills could barely reach 30%. However, her control of the fire is still lacking. If she had the Nachuan cauldron and the core forging stage royal jelly, she could maintain the success rate between 40% to 50%. However, this girl's alchemy skills will surpass mine sooner or later. So if I upgrade the Sky Hut cauldron to a magical weapon, I will hand it over to her. Tian Shui Laozu asked curiously, didn't you say that the core forging stage royal jelly can increase the success rate by 20%? Why did I hear from junior brother that it only increased the success rate by 10%? Qianlu Laozu explained, if only the success rate could be increased by this much. The Amethyst Royal Jelly's benefits for Dharma stage pills would depend on the alchemist's own standards. If Junior Brother's alchemy skills could reach 80% success rate, naturally I would be able to fully utilize 20% of the Royal Jelly's benefits. But with Junior Brother's current standards, I would only be able to utilize 10% of the Royal Jelly's benefits. Tian Shui Laozu suddenly understood and said, so this 20% success rate can be set in such a way. As he finished speaking, he glanced at Lu Ping and said, if that's the case, when this brat concocted 2 9 purities pills this time, the royal jelly's benefits would definitely be lesser? Lu Ping chuckled. What Laozu didn't know was that when other alchemists concocted Dharma stage pills, they would usually concoct a full furnace. The number of pills they could concoct would depend on how many pills they could concoct. However, when Lu Ping started concocting the 9 purities pills, he immediately exploded the remaining 7 pills and concentrated on concocting the remaining 3 pills. In the end, he gave up on another pill and only concentrated on concocting the remaining 2 pills. Furthermore, he even added a drop of royal jelly from each pill. That was how he managed to concoct 2 9 purities pills right from the start. Of course, this was also related to Lu Ping's abnormal spiritual will cultivation. It was also the embodiment of Lu Ping's accumulation and growth in alchemy over a long period of time. Lu Ping concocted Dharma stage pills and became the 3rd alchemy grandmaster in Jinling. He had already obtained the recognition of the various Laozu of the sect. Naturally, it was also justifiable for him to wield the Nachuan cauldron. After concocting the pills, Tianxiang Laozu continued, the matter of the ruins has come to an end. Yesterday, junior brother Tianfan, junior sister Qianxue, and I sorted out the things that were brought out from the ruins in the past 5 days. The rewards were truly bountiful, especially the large amount of repair resources that Dharma stage adepts could use. This was undoubtedly a great boost for our sect. When everyone heard Tianxiang Laozu say this, they were all very excited. Immediately after, Tianxiang Laozu said, however, after these few days of calculation, the hidden space of the Ying Tian sect's training ground will soon be found by junior nephew Xianxian and the others. After a discussion, the various sects have agreed to each send an early Dharma adept to the Central Plains in secret. After that, they will head north into the northern ice plains to search for the Ying Tian sect's training ground. Spiritual Master Xuanju asked somewhat unhappily, Uncle Master, why can our sect only send 1 Dharma adept? Our sect's strength far exceeds that of the other sections. Even if we can't send 2 Dharma adepts, we should at least send 1 mid-Dharma adept. Tian Shui Laozu giggled and said, "You damn girl, you're spouting nonsense. Rather than agreeing to send 1 mid-Dharma adept, why don't the sects agree to send 2 early Dharma adepts? Do you really think that 2 early Dharma Laozu can defeat 1 mid-Laozu?" At this moment, Spiritual Master Xianxin said, "A few days ago the various uncle masters specially invited Senior Brother Jiang and his disciples to Frost Island. I believe that at that time, the various uncle masters had already decided to send Senior Brother Jiang?" Celestial Phenomenon Laozu and the rest all smiled and nodded. Jiang Qinlin's expression was calm. It was obvious that he already knew that he would be heading to Middle Earth in search of the Ying Tian sect. Although our sect will also only send 1 early Dharma adept this time, what Disciple Xuanju said just now makes sense. After all, our sect's strength far exceeds that of the other sections. How can we be on equal footing with the other sects? This time, Disciple Xianxin and Disciple Xianxin will be accompanying Disciple Jiang. When you all head to East Sea, you can bring Xiansu along with you to Jingzhou Island. This way our sect will have 4 practitioners going. This is also what the various sects agreed upon earlier. Among the 3 late core forging adepts, other than Spiritual Master Xianxin who was at the 8th level, the other 2 were at the 9th level. However, Spiritual Master Xianxin was a master of formations. In terms of exploring, his usefulness was not much lower than that of a Dharma adept. At this moment, Celestial Phenomenon Laozu saw that Lu Ping was sitting below and seemed to want to say something. He smiled and asked, "Little brat, what do you want to say? Could it be that you want to go to Middle Earth as well?" Lu Ping quickly said, "That's right. I heard that Middle Earth is vast and rich in resources. It is a paradise for practitioners. Therefore, I also want to go with Uncle Jiang and experience the prosperity of Middle Earth." Prosperity? Middle Earth may not be that prosperous now. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu snorted coldly. He did not give a reason and only said, "You're not allowed." Lu Ping looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu and saw that Jiang Tianlin was giving him a helpless expression. Lu Ping felt regret in his heart. However, he also knew that the current situation in Middle Earth seemed to be very bad. 2 years ago, news came from the East Sea. After 5 years of sailing, the treasured ship of Xiaoyao Pavilion had successfully returned. The ultra-long-distance teleportation array between Xiaoyao Pavilion and Tianyue sect had been successfully set up. However, for some unknown reason after Xiaoyao Pavilion returned, they pulled a ship full of Middle-earth cultivators back to the East Sea. However, Xiaoyao Pavilion also took advantage of the opportunity to make a fortune. Afterward, this batch of cultivators from Middle-earth brought a piece of news to the East Sea. Currently, the cultivation world of Middle-earth was in chaos. However, all the big sects were sweeping the snow in front of their door. At the same time, all the sects that had connections with the overseas sects were guarding the ultra-long-distance teleportation array, preventing Middle-earth cultivators from going overseas. These hundreds of people who boarded Xiaoyao Pavilion's treasured ship and came to the East Sea were actually to seek refuge. When Lu Ping saw that his wish to go to Middle-earth couldn't be fulfilled, he did not show any signs of vexation. Instead, he smiled, "Everyone Laozu, this disciple has advanced to become an alchemist master. I wonder if I can ask for some rewards from the sect?" Tian Shui Laozu sneered and scolded, "You foolish brat, I think it's only right that you ask for some beating." However, the corners of his eyes betrayed Tian Shui Laozu's current mood. Patriarch Sky Sail smiled as well. "What benefits do you want now, boy of many treasures? Don't tell me you have your eyes on the treasures in the ancient ruins? Although our sect has obtained quite a lot of benefits, there aren't many that are suitable for you." Lu Ping chuckled. "Disciple doesn't want anything else. I heard that Martial Uncle obtained a batch of heaven and earth oddities from the ancient ruins. I wonder if Disciple can choose a few? Heaven and earth oddities? What use do you have for those things? Oh, you have already advanced to the late stage of core forging. It's normal for you to smelt your dipper chi. However, that only requires water attribute heaven and earth oddities. Why is it that the old man doesn't want to choose 1 or 2? Without waiting for Lu Ping to think of an excuse, Tianxiang Laozu suddenly spoke. "Give it to him. Let him choose." Tianxiang Laozu knew of the existence of the 7 Thunder Treasures calabash. He was purposely opening up a path for Lu Ping. Lu Ping hurriedly thanked him. Although Tianxiang Laozu was somewhat surprised, he didn't say much. It was just a few heaven and earth oddities. Apart from a few that had special effects, The rest were no longer worthy of a Dharma realm cultivator's attention. However, brat, don't you think you should express your gratitude? Tianxiang Laozu, who previously made Lu Ping feel grateful, was now like an old fox as he smiled at Lu Ping. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.